As time went by, it seemed the Shinigami's words would mostly come to pass. The scene, observed silently from above, filled the observer with a sense of sadness. Within the private training grounds of the Uzumaki estate, 4 young children were being instructed in the art of chakra control by their parents, Kushina and Minato. The 4 young kids were attempting to walk up a tree, using only their chakra and nothing else. Falling to the ground for the 3rd time during the training session, Menma complained, "Mom, Dad, can't we learn some cool jutsu yet?" Minato responded with a patient tone, "Once you have better chakra control, we can move on to a jutsu or two. But first, you must learn the basics." Kushina, standing beside her husband, added to Minato's point, "Good chakra control is essential for performing all kinds of jutsu. I've told you before that when I was young, I had a lot of chakra but no control, so I couldn't do much in the way of jutsu, and it made it hard for me to learn things. That's why it's important to practice good chakra control, so you don't end up like I used to be." Although she knew her son wouldn't like her answer, he wouldn't argue, as he knew she wouldn't hesitate to knock some sense into him to get her point across. Koga Uzumaki Namikaze seemed to grasp the concept better than his siblings, though only by a small margin. Born the same night as the other Uzumaki Namikaze children, he favored Kushina in hair color, with vermilion red hair, but he had a mix of his parents' features. His eyes were a clear, bright aquamarine with a slight green tint, just like Umiko's, and he had his father's jawline. He wore a black t-shirt with the Uzumaki crest on the front and tan cargo shorts. As the 4 siblings fell and tried again, one might have seen it as a happy family moment. But one member was conspicuously absent from the otherwise normal scene. When everyone headed inside, Kushina and Minato exchanged a knowing look, aware that a family member was missing. They turned and went in, but Koga lingered for a moment, looking up. He saw Naruto, who had been watching from a tree, and motioned for his brother to come inside and spend time with the family. Naruto shook his head, jumped off the branch, and landed on the street side of the wall. While Koga and Naruto got along well, the other siblings didn't. Menma seemed to almost hate his brother, though before they turned 6, he had always tried to act like Naruto. Now, it seemed the boy simply wanted to be rid of him. The 2 sisters seemed to avoid Naruto as if he were a stranger, but much like Menma, their relationship with the young boy had been better when they were younger. As for his parents, they tried to include Naruto and get close to him, but every time they tried to ask him to join them for practice, a sense of overwhelming dread would take hold of them, as if the world would end if they even went near him. They would chicken out or look for him only to find he was already gone. He would come home late and leave early, as if he were avoiding them, which, to be fair, was a plausible assumption. A year and a half ago, they had yelled at him for attempting the water walking exercise without supervision, and things had gotten out of hand when they said some things no parent should say to their child. Looking back, they both wished they could take back their words and actions, but they knew the only thing they could do now was be better and show him they loved him. Naruto walked the streets of the village, mostly ignored by the majority of its residents. Only about a dozen people seemed to even notice the boy and didn't act like his family did. One such pair were Hana and Saminyazaka, along with their partners. The 2 women were kind to the boy and would let him and Koga come over to play with the Ninken when they were free. The pair had met the boys one day after Naruto had run out of the house because Menma told him to get lost. Koga had followed, hoping to fix the long-standing problem between his 2 brothers. The boys, not looking where they were going, found themselves in the Inuyasaka kennel, face to muzzle with Kuromaru and the Himura triplets. When mother and daughter ran to see what the commotion was, they found the 2 boys being licked to death by the Ninken, who had taken an instant liking to them, a rare sight for the 2 women. After that, Naruto and Koga played with the dogs until they were exhausted. The picture Tsum took of the 2 boys napping in a pile with the 4 Ninken made her squeal with delight as her female genetics, which seemed to make women think things are cute, kicked in. She ran to get Hana, who had the same reaction. Afterward, they took the boys home and showed Kushina the photo of the boys and Ninken napping together, which caused her to squeal just like the 2 Inuyasakas. After that, the 2 women would stop Naruto when they saw him and ask how he was doing. Alongside them were the Ichirakus, who owned the ramen stand Naruto loved, as did his whole family. There was also Mikato Uchiha, Kushina's friend, and a kind of aunt to the 5 kids, along with Yujiro Uzuki, a member of the Umbu who was like a big sister to him and Koga. Might Guy, while friendly and even helping Naruto with his taijutsu, sometimes joined by Lee and Koga, was just a bit too enthusiastic for Naruto at times. Izumi Uchiha was also nice and encouraged him to try his best and never give up, which helped him more than she would ever know. Naruto saw her as another sister figure but one he could tease about needing to talk to Ataki Uchiha and tell him how she felt or she would lose him to someone else. This, of course, made her threaten to steal and burn all the ramen in the village, which would make Naruto beg her not to do such a horrible thing. Shino Abarame, who would ask the boy to go bug hunting in the woods outside the village with him from time to time, which they both enjoyed. Shikamaru Nara and Koji Akimichi were both kind to him and even tried to be friendly, but when Menma came around, he would leave, telling them he had to go. And last but not least on the list of people who knew the young blonde was Anko Mitarashi, who loved to both tease and prank the boy and would chase him / be chased by him around the village and be pranked in return. This had been the norm for a few years now. While things at home were not getting better, and in fact seemed to be getting worse, Naruto would keep to himself or train with Koga, who was the only family member who didn't have a problem with getting close to his brother and was trying to get things back to how they used to be before they turned 5. If not training with his brother, he would just be scarce in general, going to the training spot the two boys had found that was secluded from most of the village. It was also a great spot to skip rocks and just go when he wanted to be alone. He never spoke up much or gave his opinion on things during family outings or dinners, thinking it would just be an opportunity for someone to get mad at him, so he kept quiet. But what the family didn't know was that Naruto had a secret sibling sealed inside him. What his father hadn't realized was that when he sealed the fox's excess chakra inside Naruto, the sealing method he used had mixed the chakra with some of his son's own chakra and also taken a small amount of chakra from a passing dire wolf that had gotten too close. The 3 chakras that had been sealed inside him merged to create a whole new tailed beast, which Naruto met the night his parents had punished him for trying to waterwalk by himself. Looking back on the memory of how he met the wolf pup who shared his mind, he couldn't help but wonder if what he planned to do tonight was the right thing. Flashback 1.5 years, Naruto awoke to find himself in a forest of trees that looked like they went on and on. The trees themselves were a light brown with green leaves that were too high up to reach unless he tree walked, and even then, it looked like he would have a bit of a walk to the lowest branch. Naruto wondered how he had gotten here. The last thing he remembered was crying in the corner of his room. Just to make sure this wasn't a dream, he pinched himself and felt it, with a small ouch. He knew it was real. As he thought about how he could have gotten here, he heard a sound that drew his attention away from his thoughts. It almost sounded like someone crying, and being the curious child he was, he went to see where it was coming from. After a few minutes of searching, he found the source of the sound and couldn't believe it. In a small clearing, a lone wolf pup lay curled up in a ball, whimpering. With slow, steady movements so as not to startle the pup, he moved closer until he reached out a hand and tried to comfort the small pup. When his hand met fur, the wolf's head snapped up, and he jumped back, only to find the boy he was sealed inside of crouched near him with his hand stretched out. The small ash-gray wolf stared at him for a second before he spoke. "Why are why you here?" the pup said through short sobs. Naruto blinked several times before almost jumping a whole foot back. "Why you just talked," the blonde boy stated, which earned him an eye roll from the young wolf as he stared at him. "Of course, I can talk, you act like it's a big deal," the pup said with a bit of irritation in his voice. "Kuromara talks, and yet you don't find that strange." Stunned for a brief moment by that fact and that he had now met 2 animals that could talk, Naruto looked the young wolf pup up and down before asking, "Who are you, and why were you crying just now?" The young wolf looked at him as if he had stupid written on his face in big, bold letters. "I am alone, why else do you think? I have been here all by myself with no one else around." "How long have you been here?" Naruto asked. "Ever since your father sealed the 9 tails chakra in you. I also have all the fox's memories up until the portion of excess chakra was sealed inside you, but what your father didn't know was that when he sealed the chakra inside you, it took a small amount of your own chakra and some of that of a passing wolf that got too close. When it all was mixed together inside the seal, I was born," the pup said as he sat next to Naruto. "So, what you're saying is that you're the son of the Kyuubi?" Naruto asked, eyes wide at the statement the wolf pup had just made a moment ago. "Kind of, but when I woke up, I was here, and no matter how much I looked, no one was here with me. I have been alone from day one," the young pup said, making Naruto's heart ache for him as he was able to relate in a small way to the wolf. "What's your name?" Naruto asked the wolf pup, only for it to shoot him a glare. "Are you trying to be funny? I don't have a name. Did you not just hear me say I have been here all by my lonesome since day one with no one to give me a name?" the wolf said with a bit of heat in his voice. "Well, how about I give you one?" Naruto said, making the wolf blink at him with a stunned look on his face. "Why you would really do that?" he asked as if it were unheard of, all traces of heat gone from his voice. "Of course, I would, everyone deserves to have a name." Naruto paused for a moment. "Plus, I know what it's like to be alone too," he finished as he stroked the fur of the pup next to him. Snorting, the pup turned his head away from the boy. "How would you know what it's like to be alone? You have a family," the wolf said with a bitter tone to his voice. When the wolf looked back at Naruto, he saw a gray cloud had formed over his head, like it was about to rain, which made the wolf blink just to make sure he wasn't imagining things. The boy's head was low, and he was looking down at his feet as he spoke. "They don't see me like that, they avoid me like I'm a stranger or treat me like I am not worth their time." He looked away from the wolf and muttered, "Some family. What about your one brother who trains with you and spends time with you?" the pup questioned. "Koga is the only one who seems to treat me like family and even tries to get the others to do things with me or even asks my opinion. Most of the time, though, it just ends with Menma telling him that it isn't worth the time to ask me, and they end up arguing or my parents telling us to behave," the young boy remarked. "He also says that I should try to find a way to fix things with everyone, but every time I try, it ends up going bad, and I just feel worse afterward. Do you hate them? The young wolf asked. No, I don't hate them, in fact, I love all of them. I just wish that they would see me as family too, Naruto replied before perking up. Now then, about that name, let's see, cow, yes, that sounds about right, he said, doing a 180 on topic and mood. To the wolf's confusion, the small cloud that had formed over the boy vanished as fast as it had come, as if it were never there. Cow, the newly named pup repeated, trying it out. Yup, it means happiness, also, it's a prayer that one day you and I will find happiness and love, the boy beamed at the small pup. Cow looked up at the boy and then smiled at him with tears in his eyes. Thank you for giving me a name, he said. End flashback, the memory brought on a mix of emotions, some sad, some happy. He knew that whatever happened from now on, he had someone who would be with him even when he felt alone. As thoughts passed through his mind about what he was about to do, his family made him a bit apprehensive. I mean, it was one thing to go to his and Koga's special training spot, but to do what he was about to do would make any sane person think twice. At that moment, he heard Cow's voice echo in his mind. You should try talking to them, maybe even tell them about me. It might make a difference, you know, the wolf Biju said as his presence could be felt in Naruto's mind. I don't think it will make a difference, besides, who would believe me anyway, he responded mentally to his tenant's suggestion. I still think you should leave a note at least to let them know where you're going, Cow countered. Plus, if you want them to believe you, all you have to do is channel my chakra, he said, referencing the fact that Naruto had been secretly learning to control the chakra cloak that the young tailed beast's presence inside his body granted him access to. The chakra produced by the cloak, unlike the fox's, was of iridian green color, and while it wasn't as corrosive as the fox's, it still hurt a lot. All that would do is make them ask too many questions, and they would get mad at me for not telling them, Naruto replied. Besides, bro, with what we are about to do, it's best that we just go. The young boy finished, having stopped along the way to pick up the pack that he had stashed at his and Koga's favorite training spot as he headed for his destination. I still don't like this plan of yours, it's called the Forest of Death for a reason, you know? Most sane people try to avoid going in there, Cow commented on their destination. Look, bro, we're going, and that's that, Naruto replied with a tone that told his adoptive brother his mind was set and there was no changing it. You're nuts. Seriously, you have to be the craziest person I will ever meet, the young Biju shot back at the blonde boy. It's who I am, and there's no changing it, you should know that by now, came the blonde Jinchuriki's answer. That's what I am afraid of, Cow said as he was, in no better way to say it, dragged along for the ride. Naruto just gave a mental laugh as he continued straight for his destination. Unbeknownst to the two, several blurs were following while trying to stay hidden. As it turned out, Cow had grown a lot in the time that the two had met, which led them to believe that through the seal, he was absorbing chakra, which led to the idea that as the boy continued to grow, so would his tenant, who already had 3 tails. This was not life-threatening, as the boy had huge chakra reserves, not only due to being an Uzumaki but also being the son of a Jinchuriki. What they believed would happen was that Cow would continue to absorb chakra until he reached the level of the 9 tails, or that is what they thought would happen. To be honest, they really didn't know one way or the other. When he reached his destination, he stopped for a minute as he looked up at the gates that surrounded the ominous training ground 44, otherwise known to many as the Forest of Death. The name was only a name after all, but that still didn't mean it was safe, far from it in fact. That was why he had picked it for where he would go to train in seclusion, where he would hopefully find what he needed to get his family to acknowledge him as a member of their family. I still think this is a horrible idea, Cow said as the training ground loomed in front of them. Cow, are you a wolf or a mouse? Naruto questioned the Biju. The only thing we will have to worry about is Anko, who supposedly lives here. Otherwise, the animals will most likely leave us alone because they can sense your chakra, Naruto said as he prepared to go into the deadly forest. That doesn't mean that a few of them won't think twice about trying to make us their meal, and I for one plan on living well past the point of getting my 9th tail. Thank you very much, the wolf Biju responded. As this was going on, the 4 blurs had gotten close enough that both boy and beast could feel their signatures. Boo, 4 of them, and one is Nico One-chan, Naruto surmised as he sensed them draw near. You mean that pretty Boo girl with the cat mask? Cow perked up, as Naruto shot a mental glare at his surrogate brother. Now is not the time or the place, Cow, Naruto replied. As the 4 shadows who had been following him for a bit now landed behind him, one stepped forward. Her hair was purple and long, and she wore a white cat mask with red lines on it. Naruto, what are you doing here? It's late, and why come here of all places? The masked woman asked, puzzled by the youth's actions. I'm sorry, One-chan, but I need to be away from the village and my family for a while, he said, not looking back. Ujo was a little shocked, to say the least. She knew both of his parents and knew about how things had been going at home, as well as how most of the village just ignored her favorite blonde, but she didn't think it was this bad. Naruto, please listen to me, she pleaded. Whatever is going on at home, you can talk to me about it. But right now, let's get you home. The blonde's eyes glistened with tears at the mention of that word. Home. I wish that place did feel like home, much to the confusion of Ujo's team. But I'm not wanted or even needed there, since no one but Koga will even come near me. Ujo's eyes went wide at his statement. Please don't say things like that, Naruto, your family loves you. He turned to look at her and gave her a sad smile and brought his hands up to make a hand sign. Sorry, Nei-chan, he said, but this is something that I have to do. Shadow clone jutsu, he called. To the surprise of all those standing there, 9 plumes of smoke appeared, revealing 9 identical copies of Naruto. And Nanny? Shadow clones, but he's not even part of the academy yet, were the responses coming from her team. Naruto rubbed the back of his head as he gave a bashful smile. Yeah, me and Koga kind of broke into the vault where the forbidden scroll of sealing is kept and copied the directions for the jutsu, he said with a chuckle before looking back at Ujo. Tell mom and dad I don't hate them or Menma, Narumi, Mito, and Koga. Tell them that despite everything that has happened, I still love them all. He paused and looked down. And tell Koga I'm sorry. With that said, he did a chakra-infused jump with a lazy backflip that carried him over the fence and into the forest, while his clones followed suit and bolted off into the forest. Shit, this is worse than bad. What do we do, Nico? One of the members of the group questioned as the said Umbu member bit back a curse. She was well versed with the shadow clone jutsu and its uses, one of which was the ability to throw off pursuers by getting them to chase clones rather than the target you were after. Turning to the other members of her team, she snapped orders at them. Go get another team and Anko. She will know this place the best and be able to guide us through some of the more dangerous parts, she said to one member and looked at the other two. Go in after him. If you find you're following a decoy, double back and pick up another trail. The two members looked at each other like she was out of her mind. Feeling a large amount of killing intent directed at them, they slowly turned their heads back to the source of the hostility. Nico's killer intent seemed to take the form of a giant cat ready to pounce on its prey. The two men also swore her eyes had turned red in that instant. If you two want to live past tonight, get in there and start following him, or I will cut your legs off at the knees and leave you for the predators of the forest to feast on, she said coldly. But where are you going? One of the two men asked as Ujo's eyes narrowed. To tell the Hokage, she responded. Now get moving. The two men, with great hesitation, took off into the forest, as Ujo turned around and ran full speed straight to the home of the Hokage to tell him the bad news. Kushina Uzumaki was in the kitchen making dinner for the family, with Mito helping her. As her thoughts went from one thing to the next, they came to one subject in particular. She remembered her oldest son as a sad expression crossed her face as she started to think about how much the family had been neglecting him. She even recalled how she and Minato had yelled at him after catching him trying to do water walking, an advanced chakra exercise. The words that she and her husband had said to him, along with the tone they had used, surely made her feel horrible. When she looked back on that day, she knew they had undoubtedly frightened the boy and made him feel hurt and confused. It was only after the event and she took a minute that she realized what they had done and recalled the look of fear and terror that had been on the young boy's face. Afterward, she went to go apologize. When she entered his room that night, what she saw made her regret every word she had said to the boy. Flashback, 1.5 years, Naruto's room. Kushina walked up to the door to her eldest son's bedroom and turned the knob slowly before opening the door. When she walked in, she noticed Naruto's bed was empty and began to panic, thinking the worst, until she saw the mop of blonde hair on the other side of the room. Walking over to him, she froze when she saw the boy curled up in the corner of his room, legs tucked in tight to his chest with his arms wrapped around them like he was expecting to be hit by someone. Naruto, Kushina said quietly as she carefully walked forward and knelt down next to the boy. Naruto. She tried again as she reached out a hand and put it on the boy's shoulder, only to get no immediate reaction from him. Seeing that her son was fast asleep, she stood, walked to the bed, and pulled the covers back. After which, she knelt back down near the little boy and gingerly lifted him into her arms so as not to startle him awake. Laying him down gently on the bed, she removed his shoes and pulled the covers up over the boy. When she saw the tear stains on his cheeks, she felt disgusted with herself and Minato for treating the boy the way they had that afternoon and wished she had come to apologize sooner. Sitting lightly on the edge of the boy's bed, she lightly stroked the side of his face. I'm sorry, Naruto, she said, still keeping her voice quiet so as not to wake him. Your father and I didn't mean to overreact the way we did. She shook her head at what she was about to say and looked back at the boy. No, there is no excuse for what we did. But please know that no matter what, we still love you and care about you just like we do the others, and that we would never let anything happen to you. She leaned down to kiss his forehead ever so lightly and looked down at the boy with an expression only a parent could make to show their love for their child. I will talk to your father, and we will try to be there for you more, especially me. She stood up, and a lone tear ran down her cheek as she lightly brushed a stray bang of Naruto's from his face and a sad smile formed on hers. Good night, my little maelstrom, she said. I will always love you. With that, she left the room, shutting the door quietly so as not to wake her sleeping son. Flashback end, from that day on, Kushina tried to get closer to her son and be there for him, but but just like before, the feeling of dread would come over her, and she would wimp out, to her everlasting shame. She had talked to Minato about what had happened, and he agreed with her that what they had done was inexcusable and that they needed to make amends for how they acted. Once again, though, when Minato tried to approach his eldest son, he felt the same fear that if he got close to his son, things would go horribly wrong, and he would walk away feeling defeated and like a failure as a father. Not only that, but the boy had become scarce and would seem to never be around. But as a mother, she had resolved that the next time she approached her son, she would not fail and would say what she had needed to say for some time. Her thoughts were disrupted when she heard her husband come in the front door and enter the kitchen. As he entered the room, he slumped into the chair he'd pulled out inside, muttering under his breath something about burning paperwork. Long day? Kushina asked, looking over her shoulder at Minato, who looked up at her with a tired expression on his face. I swear it seems like every day there is more and more paperwork, even with Sarutobi's help. Sometimes I think that the council tries to find ways to make more paperwork just so they can get some kind of sick pleasure out of it when they see my face. Trying to hide the fact that she was finding amusement at her husband's misfortune by turning her head back around, she got herself under control and told him to get the kids for dinner. As Kushina turned off the stove, she moved to set the table. Just as she was finishing up, an urgent series of knocks at the front door were heard. Hokage-sama. Sensei. Open the door, shouted the voice of Kushina's student, Yujao, and from the way it sounded, it was urgent. Heading to the front door, she was stopped by Minato. Kushina, have you seen Naruto? He asked. I can't seem to find him. I checked all the rooms, and none of the other kids seem to know where he is, Minato said, worry showing on his face. At this, the rest of the kids entered the room, only to wonder what was going on. Sensei, open the damn door, Yujao shouted again, knocking even louder. When she opened the door, Kushina saw her former student standing in the doorway. Dressed in her standard umbu uniform, the look on her face spoke volumes. Whatever it was urgent, and she was pissed. Yujao? What's wrong? She asked. It's Naruto. The purple kunoichi said, gaining the full attention of both parents and the kids, as a look of worry crossed both Minato's and Kushina's face. He went into training ground 44. The whole house was silent as if time itself had stopped, only for the silence to be broken by Kushina. What? Kushina's scream was so loud that the whole village heard it. Heck, the whole land of fire probably heard it. Her eyes widened in horror and fear for her son. The forest of death? What is he even thinking, going in there alone? Minato questioned, now terrified for his son. He felt that you didn't want him, and the best way to make everyone happy was to leave, Yujao said as her face showed anger and how worried she was. But he said to tell you that even with all that has happened, he still loves you all. This news shocked them all, even Menma was surprised by what his brother had done. You unwanted, Kushina thought. Naruto, you truly believe we didn't want you? She was broken out of her thoughts when Yujao continued. He also said to tell Koga he was sorry. This statement caused everyone in the room to look at the boy, who in turn held his hands up and stated that he had no idea what his brother meant and that he had been trying to get Naruto to work things out with everyone else for some time. Yujao looked Kushina and Minato in the eyes before she asked the question, have either of you even talked to Naruto in the past few weeks or even paid any attention to what has been going on with him? To say she was aggravated would be an understatement. Most of the village ignores him, while only a handful of people even acknowledge he even exists, and you, the people who are supposed to love him the most, seem to be too busy to even notice that he's hurting on the inside. Those words cut like a knife right through Kushina and Minato. Even though they were true, they had been keeping Naruto at arm's length when they should have gotten closer to the boy and tried to help. Kushina was about to reply when Minato's hand rested on her shoulder. Looking at him, he shook his head before speaking. We can assign blame and wallow in self-pity later. Right now, our son needs us more than ever, he said, looking at his wife. Looking at the rest of her children, her resolve hardened. She told them, the four of you stay put, lock the doors, and don't open them for anyone. Kushina then went to her and Minato's room, returning dressed in her Jonin ninja gear with her hair tied back in a ponytail. She looked at Minato and said, let's go get our boy back. With that, the three of them sprinted into the night to find Naruto. Naruto was leaping from branch to branch as he made his way through the tall trees of the infamous Forest of Death. Not much had happened so far, as his clones had done their job and drawn the attention of his pursuers, making it much harder for them to track him. So far, he had yet to run into any of the forest creatures, much to his and Kao's relief. As he ventured deeper and deeper into the forest, he knew he would have to rest for the night soon. While his Uzumaki bloodline granted him large stamina reserves, he would have to rest at some point. Naruto knew about his bloodline from studying scrolls on his clan's heritage in the family library and had learned about his family's unique abilities and other useful facts. While he had wanted to learn them from his parents, the knowledge he had gained through study would serve him well. But all that knowledge would be useless to him if he exhausted himself to the point of collapse. This cow chimed in on his thoughts. We need to find a place to rest for the night. Even with your Uzumaki longevity, you will burn yourself out if you aren't careful. I know that, but first, I need to find a secure place to rest, Naruto stated. Why not use one of the trees? It will keep us away from predators and will allow us a high vantage point, Kao responded, thinking it was a good idea. No, that's way too obvious and won't help. We need to find somewhere that is hard to spot and can withstand bad weather. I mean, we are going to be here for a while, so it only seems like a logical choice, Naruto countered. Heading deeper into the forest, he was hoping to find a cave that was hidden from view. While looking for a spot that he thought would be ideal, he was told to stop by Kao, who told him to turn back and head down to the forest floor. When he got to the spot his adoptive brother had mentioned, he saw an opening in the side of a small hill. It looked almost like a crescent moon but seemed like a dead end and was too easy to spot. But when he was about to leave, Kao told him to take a better look and that he would help. When Naruto looked again, this time Kao enhanced the boy's eyes as they changed to a lupin yellow, and Naruto saw what his friend was talking about. It was dark enough that when one looked at the hole, it would look small and cramped, but with his enhanced vision, he saw that there was a small passage at the back which was hidden by the cave's layout. Following the passage, he found himself in a much bigger cave that led to what looked to be some kind of mural depicting wolves and what looked to be ninja fighting side by side in battle. This reminded Naruto of the Inuyasha and their Ninken, but what he saw led him to think differently due to the depiction of a set of hand signs that Naruto thought he recognized as the summoning technique. Deeper in, he found a lone scroll that sat on a stone pedestal of sorts. Taking the scroll, he opened it and found that it was not just any old scroll but a summoning contract. Naruto read the scroll and found that it was the contract with the summoning wolves, which, from what he saw and how much dust the scroll had gathered, told him that there had not been a living user of this contract in a long time. After talking with Kao and making his choice, he signed the scroll with blood as was directed in the contract. Deciding to try out the new technique, he bit his thumb and swiped it on his palm, making the proper hand signs and slamming his hand down. He called, Summoning Jutsu. A large plume of smoke filled the room, and when it dissipated, a large white wolf with a black diamond in the center of its forehead stood in its place. The wolf looked around the room, and when its eyes fell on him, he froze as the wolf growled and crouched down. Naruto thought he would be ripped apart by the summon. His mind racing, he was thinking about using a jutsu when Kao's voice was heard in his mind. Naruto, kneel down. His voice was urgent. What? Naruto responded, not knowing if he should fight or run. Kneel. This wolf is one of the matriarchs of the pack, if the scent I am getting is correct. Kneel, or she'll attack you. The tone in the Biju's voice said it was either that or get mauled. Taking his friend's advice, Naruto knelt and lowered his head. The she-wolf quirked its head in curiosity and approached, sniffing. When it had finished, the she-wolf backed up and seemed like it was trying to figure something out. Then it spoke, asking him, "Who are you, young one, and why does your scent convey that of a human and wolf?" Naruto blinked before answering, "My name is Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, and I'm a Jinchuriki, if that helps answer your question," he said, never looking up for fear of her attacking him. The she-wolf seemed confused at the statement. As she looked the boy over, it was strange. She was old enough to know that there were only 9 Biju and none of them were wolves. Before she could ask what he was playing at, Naruto answered her unasked question. "If you are going to tell me that you don't know of any Biju that's a wolf, it's because he's a new Biju born from my chakra, the 9-tailed foxes, and that of a wolf who had some of its chakra absorbed by the sealing technique that was used." At this new information, she was even more confused. How could this be true? The boy had to be lying about what he claimed, but his scent was no lie, so how was it possible? If he were telling the truth, then it would explain how his scent was so abnormal. Naruto, ask her if she will let you place a hand on her shoulder. I should be able to connect her to your mindscape so we can show her that you aren't lying. But she might say no, so don't be surprised if she turns you down or worse, threatens to take your hand off, Kao said, hoping that she would allow it. Not having any alternatives, Naruto took a chance and looked up at the she-wolf, swallowing. "If I may, my Biju says he might have a way to show you that I speak the truth, but in order to do so, he says that I would have to be touching you to do so. If you would allow me the chance, I will show you that what I say is true." The she-wolf thought for a second, then replied, "I do not know you well enough for that, young Naruto, but perhaps I can help both of us." With that said, the wolf started to approach Naruto, who lowered his head, and when she reached out, he thought he would have felt a paw, but he instead felt a human hand softly place itself on his shoulder. When he looked up, he saw a beautiful woman with snow-white hair and a black diamond mark on her forehead with what looked like wolf ears atop her head. She was dressed in a white kimono with black accents. The next thing Naruto knew, he was in his mindscape, and so was the beautiful woman he had seen in the cave. Kao walked up next to Naruto, but when he didn't move or speak, Kao waved a tail in his face but got no response from his surrogate brother, who seemed to be broken. When he nudged Naruto, the boy fell over, having fainted in his own mindscape. The she-wolf woman giggled as Kao commented, "Now there is something you don't see every day." You left him speechless. Not many people can say that. The beautiful woman walked over to Naruto and placed his head on her lap and waited for him to wake as Kao laid down next to Naruto. When he woke, Naruto felt his head resting on something soft and opened his eyes to see the radiant face that had caused him to faint, looking at him with a smile. Before his brain could short-circuit again, she spoke in a voice soft and smooth like verbal silk. I know not many have seen this form, but like the summoning foxes, certain summoning wolves have a human form they can change into, she said as she gazed down on the boy. Sorry if it took you by surprise. No, that's not it, Naruto said as he looked at her. It's just that you're so beautiful, I didn't know what to say or how to react. This comment caused the woman to blush and clear her throat. Well, yes. Thank you, she said, looking to the other wolf in the room and asked, and what is your name, young Biju? Cow, he responded with a bow. And may I ask what your name is? My name is Usagi, she answered with a slight bow of her own. Meanwhile, somewhere else in the forest, the sounds of what would have been thought to be a battle were going on as a group of ninja raced from branch to branch as a certain red-headed kunoichi was plowing her way through whatever got in her path. Get the hell out of my way, an angry and desperate voice shouted out, as a large snake fell to the ground with its head cut off. The voice belonged to none other than one Kushina Uzumaki as she cleaved her way through many of the vicious beasts in the forest that were foolish enough to get in her way. Following behind her were Minato, Ujeo, and a handful of other Umbu, as well as the training ground's only human resident, Anko Mitarashi. They stayed back as Kushina, using a borrowed sword from one of the Umbu, sliced and diced or used any sort of jutsu on the unfortunate creatures that were either dumb enough or unlucky enough to get in her way. Oh man, even I know not to mess with an angry mother who is looking for her child, Anko said with a small hint of fear as she watched as Kushina proceeded to beat a bear's skull in when it tried to swipe at her. Minato could only look on with worry and concern, seeing the state his wife was in. He knew she was desperate to find their son, just as he was, but he could also see that she was starting to fatigue and had used a lot of her chakra. He needed to do something, or else she would hurt herself. Kushina, please stop. We have to go back, he said, as she was now strangling another poor creature with her chakra chains before using them to slam it to the ground and looked back at him with anger and pain in her eyes. I'm not leaving Naruto out here in this damn place. I'd rather rot in hell than go back without him, she argued, as she backfisted a huge lizard that was about to attack her, making said reptile fall to the ground with its eyes having rolled back in its head. I want him back just as much as you do, Minato retorted. But if you keep overusing your chakra and pushing yourself in your current condition, you could end up killing yourself. Kushina could only narrow her eyes as she kept moving forward. By now, all the creatures were hiding in fear from the redhead's wrath. You all can go back if you want, but I'm no ugh, she gasped out as she felt a chop to the back of her neck, her senses not warning her due to focusing all her attention on getting her son back and falling unconscious, only for Minato to flash forward and catch her. I'm sorry, sensei. But for Naruto's sake and the rest of your children, I have to stop you, Ujeo said, apologizing for her actions as she sighed and turned to Minato, who had a solemn look on his face as he slung his unconscious wife over his shoulder. Come on, everyone, he said. We'll continue looking for Naruto in the morning when we have better light. With that, the team of shinobi vanished as they departed the area. Minato's last thought being, Naruto, be careful and stay safe. After a bit more conversation with the young boy, Usagi learned what had been happening with Naruto and what had brought him to the forest and why he was looking for a place no one would find him so he could train. With a bit more questioning, she also learned that the boy didn't crave power but wanted to improve to show those around him that he was worth their time. Thinking it over for a bit and finally coming to a decision, she offered to take him back to where she was from so he could train under the wolves, which would be an improvement to training by himself with no instruction at all. The young boy agreed and was teleported back to where he had called her from. When he saw where they were, his mouth fell open. Before him was a large cave that, as he was led through it, he found that it was huge and the center point of the cave was a vaulted room with a skylight that let the moon shine through, giving a silvery glow to the room. Welcome to Full Moon Cavern, Usagi said to the boy, leading him through the long tunnels to a room of sorts which would be his while he stayed and trained here. Get some rest, you will meet the leader of the pack tomorrow, she said as she turned and left the boy to his sleep. Unrolling the sleeping bag he had brought with him and a comforter from home, he laid down, only to sit up and rummage through his pack to grab a photo he had taken with him from a family photo album. It was of the family when Naruto and his siblings had just turned 6, the last time that they were a whole family and things had been better. Sighing, he tucked the picture under his sleeping bag and put his head down on the small pillow he brought and let sleep claim him. His final thoughts before he drifted off were of when he was younger and how he hoped things could go back to the way they had once been. Naruto slept as the sun rose to shine through the skylight. The tunnels brightened as 4 young wolf pups jumped and pounced on him and licked him to death until he got up. He groaned as he managed to get the pups off of him. Okay, I'm up. As Naruto finished getting dressed, one of the 4 wolf pups bit his wrist and started dragging him through the corridors of the cavern with the other 3 pups chasing after them. As they went, Naruto swore he heard the other wolves laughing as they passed by. When all was said and done, the pups had brought him to an area with a raised platform-like rock that had a large wolf with a moon-shaped scar on his left eye. He was much larger than the rest and conveyed an aura of power. As he looked down on the boy from his vantage point, he couldn't help but wonder what could have brought one so young here. Young Naruto, I would like you to meet the alpha wolf of our pack, Teo, Usagi said as she walked up next to him. It is a pleasure to meet you, young one, but if I may, what is it that has brought you here? Teo asked. I have come here to get stronger so that I may prove to my family that I am worth something and not just someone to ignore, Naruto said, looking down at his feet. Naruto told the large wolf the events that had led him here and why he was looking for a place to train. For the entire duration of his speech, Teo remained silent, taking in all the information the boy had shared. When Naruto finished, the large wolf rose and approached him. In response, Naruto knelt before Teo on one knee. As Teo leaned in to get a scent of Naruto, his eyes widened. He could indeed smell the presence of a bija, a fact that completely surprised the great wolf. Usagi had told him the boy housed a bija, but he had believed it was a trick the boy had used to deceive her. This new evidence, however, changed everything. Backing up to give the boy some space, he asked, "So you seek to become stronger for your family?" Naruto responded with a soft yes. He was met with a loud and heated reply. "Speak up, boy. A wolf doesn't cower when he speaks." Naruto looked up at the wolf with confusion in his eyes for only a second before it changed to resolve. "Yes," he answered loudly. "And what would you do with such power?" Teo asked pointedly. Naruto blinked. "What would I do if I had power?" he questioned mentally. It was a valid point. What would he do if he had power? Would he use it for the right reasons, or would he abuse it? Would he do the right thing, or would it be better if he never had that kind of power so he couldn't use it to hurt others the way he had been? His thoughts went from one extreme to the next as he searched his mind for an answer. Suddenly, a memory popped into his head of something that had been said to him when he was 6. Flashback: what do you want to be when you grow up, Naruto? Izumi Uchiha asked the 6-year-old boy. I want to be a strong ninja just like my dad so I can beat up bad guys, Naruto answered. Izumi frowned at him. Is that really what you want, or are you just trying to act tough? She asked with a knowing smile. Naruto was surprised that she had figured out what he had been trying to do and looked away bashfully. Naruto, you shouldn't fight only to hurt others. That isn't the reason you should be fighting for, she said, looking at him with that expression that Naruto always thought of as sisterly. So then what should I fight for? Naruto asked, looking up at her for the answer. You should fight to protect what is important to you, Izumi answered. Naruto smiled and nodded his head. Okay, I will. And when I do, I will protect the village and the people who are precious to me. Izumi smiled back at the boy. You promise? She questioned, holding out her pinky. Naruto reached out with his pinky and locked it around hers. Promise. End flashback. Thanks, Izumi-chan, Naruto thought as he looked the great wolf dead in the eyes and proclaimed, I would use it to protect the things that are important to me. I would use it to fight those who try to hurt others and to prove that I am worth something and am not to be ignored. Seeing the young boy's determination, he smiled and nodded his head. Teo then detailed the cavern and where Naruto could and couldn't go, mainly for the boy's safety, such as Naruto was restricted from going to the nursery, due to that area being where the newborn pups were. He nodded in understanding at that, knowing a pregnant wolf giving birth was more protective and dangerous and would kill him without a single shred of hesitation. Teo told him that if he was going to get stronger, he would need to learn from them. This included more than just fighting and defending himself, it also entailed chakra control and chakra nature exercises and study, along with understanding the basics of how jutsu were performed. The training was grueling and hard, at times, he even thought about quitting, but he learned and grew stronger as time passed, one thought driving him forward, I will prove my worth to them. That was 4 years ago, as Naruto was now 12 and a lot stronger than he had been before he arrived here. Throughout that time, Naruto had many thoughts about what would happen when he went home. Would things have changed? Would they go back to the way they were before? One thing was for certain, if nothing changed, he would be better off not going back at all. The one thing he couldn't take was being ignored, not again. Hate he could take, fear he could take, loathing he could take too. But to be utterly ignored, to be seen but not heard, to be looked at like he was a stranger in his own village, an outsider among the people he grew up around, he could never go through that again. It would be a fate worse than death in his book. As he was going through a set of katas for the taijutsu style the wolves had taught him, he stopped when he saw a lone person approaching him. He smiled as she drew close, and he bowed to her when she stopped, which she returned. Usagi-chan, what can I do for you? Naruto asked the she-wolf. Teo-sama sent me to tell you it is time for you to return home, she said as he looked at her, surprised that the great wolf thought he was ready. He also wishes to speak with you before you go. Naruto had been wondering when this day would come as he and Usagi made their way to the area with the raised platform like rock. When they arrived, Teo stood upon the platform, looking at the young boy who had grown so much in the time he had been there. The time has come, young Naruto. I believe that you are ready to return to your village, Teo said. I don't know if I can. What if things haven't changed at all? What if my family still treats me like a stranger? Naruto was saying only to be cut off by the large wolf. Are you a wolf or are you prey? You came here to train and make yourself stronger, to prove your worth so you could protect those important to you, or was that all just a lie? Teo challenged. No, I meant every word I said, Naruto replied, a slight heat to his tone. Then stand up for yourself and show them that you have changed. Show them the fruits of your labor and prove your worth to them, Teo said, his booming voice echoing around the space, looking the boy straight in the eyes as he continued. Go now, Naruto Uzumaki Wolf's blood Namikaze, and show them that the lone wolf walks alone no longer. With that, Naruto bowed and thanked the wolves for letting him stay with them to train and left to return home. It was quiet in the home of the fourth Hokage and his family. Minato was at the tower, doing his duty as leader of the village, while the kids were at the ninja academy, preparing for their graduation in a few months. So, that meant the only person in the house was Kushina, who was standing by the window looking outside, toward the forest of death. A solemn look was etched on her face. It had been 4 years since her son left, out of hurt, neglect, and sadness. When the news about Naruto running into the forest was spread around town, you would have thought that there would have been more people wondering what happened to bring this about, but it seemed that life in the Leaf Village didn't even notice that he was gone. There were the odd few who had been close to the boy who came around, telling her that he would come back, but Kushina had a hard time believing that. While it was a small comfort that they had faith in the boy, it still didn't heal the wounds in Kushina's heart. Ever since the night Naruto had run away, she had been having nightmares, no, more like night terrors, about Naruto being killed in grisly ways, Naruto asking why she hated him, the worst of which had been the night he ran away. Night terror flashback, Kushina's eyes snapped open as she found herself back in the living room of her family's house, only the strange thing was, the whole place was colored monochrome, while only she was in color. The confused woman looked at her hands, a look of utter shock on her face. What's going on? Where am I? She thought to herself, but her thinking was cut off as she began to hear voices. One she immediately recognized as Minato's, and the other was hers, and by the sound of it, they were yelling at someone. All of a sudden, it hit her as fear overcame her. Her eyes widened, and she ran for the kitchen. When she saw the calendar, her heart sank. She remembered this date all too well. No, please not again. Not again, she thought, as the yelling outside intensified. She then bolted for the back door and opened it. To her horror, she saw herself, Minato, and Naruto in the backyard, with the latter looking terrified as tears ran down his whiskered cheeks. You stupid little bastard. What were you thinking, using an advanced chakra exercise without our permission? The past Minato yelled at Naruto. But, Tio-chan, aye. The younger blonde said, only to receive a hard slap from Kushina. That's enough out of you. I can't believe a little shit like you would try to pull a stunt like this, the past Kushina screeched, making the present Kushina wince at the words, as tears leaked from her eyes and fell down her cheeks. No! Stop this! Please stop, she begged to any deity out there to stop this torture, only for it to fall on deaf ears as the two specters of herself and her husband continued to shout at Naruto, who was now curled up in a ball crying. Then, to her confusion and unease, a sinister grin formed on the mouths of herself and Minato. It's obvious that this little shit stain doesn't know his place, said the past Kushina, while the past Minato nodded in agreement. Yes, and we know what happens to brats like him, he said, while the real Kushina looked on, clearly confused by the scene unfolding before her. Wait? This is not right. We sent Naruto to his room, Kushina thought, as past Minato pulled out one of his Hiraishin kunao. And it's not like anyone would care. The whole village already ignores him, so they won't even notice he's gone, said Kushina's past self, and her eyes widened in horror at that. Before a thought could enter her mind, her supposed past self unleashed her chakra chains and strung Naruto up by the neck, while spreading his arms and legs out. His face now showing true fear as he looked at the two of them. K-Ka-A-chan, Tto-chan, please. Naruto begged, his voice strained, but the grins on their faces only turned more cruel. Sorry, Naru-chan, but we never wanted you. We have your brothers and sisters, after all. The other Kushina said with a sickly sweet voice, and then another chakra chain shot out of her back, and the kunao tip went speeding at the 6-year-old, piercing him in the shin. This resulted in the little boy screaming out in pain. The real Kushina looked in horror at what just happened. The horror was evident on her face at what just happened. No! This is wrong. This is all wrong, the Uzumaki screamed at herself. This isn't what happened. She then saw Minato fling his signature kunao behind Naruto, before disappearing in a yellow flash and reappearing behind Naruto, a familiar spiraling ball of chakra in hand. Raise non, Minato called, slamming the chakra ball into Naruto's back, causing said boy to cry out in agony. No! Stop it! Kushina screamed as she tried to help her son, only for something to grab her ankles and make her stumble. She looked down and saw what looked like black vines wrapped around her ankles. She reached for her kunao pouch but found nothing, as it was gone. Desperation took hold as she clawed at the vines, trying to get free to save her child from this torture. Let go of me, she roared. She then heard another scream and whipped her head back. Her eyes widened as another chakra chain impaled itself into Naruto's other shin, then two more to his forearms. Panic settled in as the red habanero now struggled more than ever to get to Naruto, but then another black vine shot forward and grabbed her wrist and yanked it back. Kushina then watched as the past Kushina turned into an ugly, twisted version of herself, as her skin became horribly burned, her red hair a greasy mess, her teeth became sharpened needles, and her eyes a bloodshot demonic yellow, as the same thing happened to the past Minato. Then, two ninjato swords sprouted from the ground, their blades rusted and old. Now for the finishing touch. The now demonic version of Kushina said as she took hold of the sword and yanked the blade out of the ground, with the demonic version of Minato following suit. Yes, time to put this bad dog to down. For good. With that, he stabbed the blade into Naruto's stomach, forcing a strangled cry of pain from the young blonde. Then the demon Kushina proceeded to skip toward the chainbound boy. "Oh, Naro-chan, Naro-chan," the demon Kushina said in a sickly sweet voice, as the real one continued to struggle, as she watched what was happening. "If only you've been a good boy, you wouldn't be having this punishment." Kushina could only growl as this thing spoke to her son with her voice. But what the demon Kushina said next made her blood freeze. "Now, you die." And with that simple phrase, she rammed the ninjato into Naruto's neck, the said boy choking on his blood as his eyes went blank. The look of horror on Kushina's face was clear as she saw her precious child die in front of her. "No," she screamed just as the vines, the chakra chains, and the twisted versions of herself and Minato vanished, as Naruto hit the ground. The distraught mother immediately rushed over to her son and scooped him up into her arms. Tears cascaded from her eyes as she looked at his small unmoving body. The world around them dissolved into an empty darkness. "Naruto? Naruto!" Kushina wailed as she tried to wake him, but with no results as his eyes were rolled back and lifeless. The mother, seeing no response, cradled her son's body while rocking back and forth, racking sobs coming from her throat. "Naruto, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry," she choked out in complete utter despair. "Why?" A little voice rasped, causing Kushina to jerk her head up and look around, only to hear raspy breathing coming from her supposed dead child. Looking down at Naruto, her eyes widened in horror as she saw his face, which was pale and lifeless as he looked at her with those dead eyes. "Why do you hate me?" With those words uttered, the now talking corpse of Naruto turned to dust in Kushina's arms as the question it had asked started to repeat itself over and over, using Naruto's voice. As the voices grew louder and louder, they blended together and reached a crescendo. It was like 1,000 nails on a chalkboard. As she begged them to stop, they only laughed at her misery. She could only take so much before she screamed at the top of her lungs for them to stop. As she now saw Naruto standing before her as his skin paled and his eyes were empty, lifeless orbs looking at her, he asked her again but in a voice that sounded like a demon's. "Why do you hate me?" Night terror end. Kushina jolted awake, screaming, sweat covering her entire form and drenching her clothes. She saw she was in her and Minato's bedroom at home. Remembering the horrifying night terror she had, she curled up into a ball against the head of the bed, as several sets of footsteps were heard, and the door flew open, revealing a concerned Minato. "Kushina, are you alright?" the fourth Hokage asked with great concern as he, Ujo, Hiruzen Sarutobi, and another Umbu with a raccoon mask entered the room. They watched as Minato went to his wife, who looked as though she had seen the Shinigami himself. "Kushina? Kushina, talk to me," Minato said gently as he carefully tried to place a hand on her shoulder, which caused her to jerk her head up and back away until she was against the wall. "Kushina, calm down, it's me," Minato said as he moved toward his wife, which seemed to scare her even more. Knowing he had to act fast, he moved forward and grabbed the clearly distraught Uzumaki, who began to struggle and thrash around, the distress evident on her face. "SHHH, Kushina, SHH," the blonde said calmly as he repeated the process until she calmed down. Kushina then hugged her husband and began sobbing. "It's okay, Kushina. Now, tell me what happened." Kushina could only cry more as she remembered the horrible scene that had played out in her mind just moments ago. It was so horrible," she said between her sobs, and Minato turned to the other Umbu. "Go get Inoichi, now. Tell him it's an emergency, and that I need him here right away." Minato ordered the Umbu member, who nodded and vanished in a shunshin. It was at this moment that the other four Uzumaki Namikaze children came into the room, concerned for their mother. Only for Hiruzen to stop them as he shook his head. "Your mother just had a nightmare, you four," the retired Hokage said. "It would be best if you didn't disturb her right now." End flashback. Kushina remembered how Minato had vomited after Inoichi had shown him what his wife had seen in her dreams. Minato had comforted her, saying that they would never do that to Naruto, that they loved him. "Yes, we have made mistakes, but we can be better and help our boy when he comes home. We will do what we should have done all those times we failed. We just need to be there for him when he does come home," Minato had said to her, trying to lift her spirits. But her dreams had not seemed to stop or get any less horrifying. After one of those terrible nights, she attempted suicide, only to be stopped by her best friend, Mikoto Uchiha. She was then placed on suicide watch for half a year until she was deemed stable with help from her family and therapy sessions with Inoichi. A few tears leaked from her eyes as she thought about the child she had foolishly neglected and left alone, all because she couldn't overcome her own weakness. Even though Ujo told them he didn't hate her or the rest of the family, Kushina knew that Naruto would never trust them again, especially her. She had spent a lot of time in her eldest son's room, either making sure it was kept neat for when or if he came home or breaking down and crying. Naruto, she thought. I'm such an awful mother. She heard a knock on her door and stood up. I'll be right there, she said softly, but loud enough for the person on the other side of the door to hear her as she wiped the tears from her eyes. When she opened the door, she smiled as there on the other side was none other than Mikoto Uchiha, her best friend from her genin days. Hey, Mikoto, how are you today? She asked as she smiled at her friend. Mikoto gave Kushina a smile in return but could see her friend's smile didn't reach her eyes. And she knew why. Hello, Kushina, I just came over to see how you were doing and how you were holding up, she said and watched as Kushina unconsciously rubbed her wrists. I've been fine, Mikoto, really. I'm not planning on offing myself anytime soon, Kushina said in a vain attempt at humor, while Mikoto sighed. Kushina, said Uzumaki chuckled nervously as she scratched the back of her head, knowing nothing escaped her best friend. Mikoto could only shake her head. She knew that Naruto running away was hard on her, and she was now becoming even more desperate, her hope that she would see him again diminishing with every day. He will come back, Kushina. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but he will come back, I promise you that, she said, while Kushina sighed as she led her friend to the living room of the house. I wish I was more confident about that, said the depressed mother. But how would I know that he doesn't hate me for what I've done? Well, here we are, said Naruto as he stood on the head of his father, looking over the village he left 4 years ago. Yep, the village hasn't changed much. That's for sure, said Kao, who was also looking at the village through Naruto's eyes, seeing that mostly it had stayed the same. Said Blonde nodded at his tenant said. Well, let's go meet the old man, Naruto said before he started to make his way to the Hokage Tower. On the way to his father's office, he stopped by a Chiraku's for a bite to eat. As he walked through the curtain that separated the outside from the inside of the little shop, he took a seat at the counter and looked at a menu. Ayam came out from the back and saw that a customer was waiting. How may we help you? She trailed off as the blonde lowered the menu and ordered. Yeah, let me have one miso pork ramen, Naruto said as the girl just stared at him, having dropped her pen before she could write down his order. Ayam couldn't believe who she was looking at. There was no way, but here he was, sitting at the counter. It wasn't possible, she had had this daydream before and rubbed her eyes just to make sure she wasn't hallucinating again. When she looked up, there he was, still sitting there, looking at her. He cocked his head slightly, looking a bit worried. Ayam-chan, are you okay? Naruto questioned. Naruto, Ayam squealed as she nearly jumped over the counter to hug him. What has you so excited, Ayam? Tuki questioned, coming in from the storeroom, only to freeze mid-stride. Is that Naruto? He exclaimed and came around the counter to shake the young blonde's hand. When did you get back? Ayam questioned, smiling at him the whole time. Just a little while ago, Naruto answered. Have you gone to see your family yet? Tuki asked. They have been worried sick waiting for you to come back ever since you left, he continued. When I heard that you had run into the forest of death, I thought you had died in there, but here you are, safe and sound, Ayam said as she hugged him again, which he tried to worm his way out of. I'm fine, Ayam-chan, he reassured her. Oh, right, about that ramen, Naruto asked, only for Tuki to smile. Right, this one's on the house to mark your safe return home, he said as he passed the bowl to Naruto, who ate it with gusto. After saying his goodbyes to both of them, he continued on to the tower where his father would be working to run the village. Minato sighed as he read another document that needed to be signed. Although he had asked Sarutobi to help be an aid to him, there was still plenty of paperwork to go around. How Sarutobi-sama survived this bullshit without help, I will never know, he thought to himself. But one thing is for sure. I'm not going to sign some bullshit that gets Naruto banished or labeled a missing nin. It had been a grueling 4 years for Minato and his family when his son, Naruto, ran away from home and into Training Ground 44, or the Forest of Death. He had been sending Umbu search parties in there to find him, but they all came back exhausted, banged up, and empty-handed. Then there was his wife's attempted suicide, which was thankfully prevented by Mikoto, who had been on her way over and had caught her before Kushina could kill herself. And to top it all off, there had been whispers that a group of rogue ninja calling themselves the Akatsuki had been causing problems along the border with the Hidden Rain. He sighed as he rubbed the bridge of his nose. Things were getting hectic with each year. But, despite all this, the one thing that had him most edgy was his son. He cursed himself due to his lack of will to overcome his fears and talk with his son to be there for the boy when he needed it most. Now, his son would undoubtedly hate him, and there was nothing he could do about it. His thoughts were interrupted as he heard a knock on the door. Enter, Minato said as the captain of the Leaf Police Force entered his office. Hokage-sama, Fugaku said, bowing. Minato smiled, motioning for him to sit. Asking for tea to be brought for them, Minato turned back as he asked, To what do I owe the pleasure of you coming to see me today? I would like to talk to you about the unrest that has been growing in the Uchiha clan's ranks, he said as he accepted the cup of tea that had been handed to him by the assistant, who left the room after setting down Minato's cup on his desk. There have been whispers about a possible coup attempt to replace you with me as Hokage, he finished, taking a sip of his tea. So, you would like me to step in and use my power as Hokage to put a stop to it, is that it? Minato asked Fugaku point blank. Not so directly, Fugaku commented. I have called a clan meeting that will take place in 4 days' time, and I would like you to be there to help get the point across. Fugaku, you know that I can't interfere with clan affairs unless there is proof to support the claim, Minato stated, knowing that the meeting was for clan members only. I am not asking you to interfere in any way. I would like you to be there as an olive branch to show the members of my clan that they have a choice: either put the good of the village first or place themselves above the village and accept the consequences that come with their actions, Fugaku replied. So, you want me to be there to help make your point clear? Minato questioned. Yes, Fugaku said as he rose and walked to stare out the window. Your being there would not only help get the point across, but it would also help many of the clan members know that I would rather resolve the matter peacefully than with force. Minato shook his head as he looked at the captain of the Leaf Police Force. As the conversation between the two men went on, it changed subjects and eventually landed on the topic of their families. So, how is your family doing? Minato asked Fugaku, who just before replying. Things are going well for the most part. Itaki is doing well in his role in the Umbu, and Mikato is doing fine as well, along with my daughter Setsuna. He paused to take a sip of tea as he continued. But my youngest, Suzuki, wants to progress too fast for his own good. He seems to think that because he is an Uchiha, he should be stronger due simply to that fact alone, much like many of my clan. This arrogance will be his downfall and that of the clan if something is not done. Minato nodded, knowing full well that many in the Uchiha look down on others simply for the fact that they belong to the clan and seem to think themselves superior to others. And in some ways, they were right, but in many more, they were wrong. Just because they had the Sharingan, it didn't make them any better than anyone else. They still had to work hard and train their skills just like anyone else. Having a Kekkei Genkai didn't make the ninja, it was what one did with this power that showed his slasher worth. His heart is in the right place, but his mindset and pride are holding him back if he would only realize this. Fugaku sighed and smiled. How are things going with your own family? He asked. This made Minato sink in his chair a bit, knowing that things were not going well with his family, and it was his fault for not seeing how much pain his son was in as well as his being a coward. It's been a long and hard 4 years, Minato sighed, sipping his tea. Mito blames herself for Naruto leaving and keeps saying that if only she had been nicer to him, he would have stayed. Narumi, on the other hand, keeps waking up in the middle of the night and going to Naruto's room only to find it empty and will cry herself to sleep in his bed. And you already know what has been going on with Kushina, he said, looking down at his desk. What about Menma and Koga? Fugaku asked, hoping that there was some good news. Koga has been trying to get the girls to stop blaming themselves because it won't bring Naruto back any sooner, and Menma seems the least bit concerned, saying that Naruto caused this problem and he can fix it himself. Minato paused, sighing before he went on. I mean, I knew that they were not on the best of terms, but I didn't know it had gotten this bad. You know he will be back. It may take some time, but your son will come back, Fugaku stated, making Minato look at him. I wish I shared your optimism, Minato said, shaking his head. But no one has seen any trace of the boy since he went into the forest, and the Umbu who go to look for him keep coming back empty-handed and worse for wear. It's not my optimism, it's the fact that my wife believes it, and I have learned to trust her instincts over the years when it comes to these things, he nodded, continuing. He will be back, he is your son, after all. Before the conversation could go any further, a commotion outside the office interrupted them. Young man, I told you. The Hokage is in a meeting right now, the guard said adamantly. I don't care what you say, you flat-chested weasel, a young voice shot back. Who are you calling flat-chested, you little punk? You! Now, out of my way. I am going in to see him, and I don't have time to mess around with you. Release the... Before the order could be completed, there was a shout of wind-style, great breakthrough. The door flew back as it was ripped from its hinges as it and the body of the guard flew through the doorway, crashing into Minato's desk as the door broke in two on impact, the top half coming down to clock the guard in the head. Fugaku had managed to get out of the way in time, but only just, prompting himself, Minato, and the Umbu guarding Minato to jump into taijutsu stances. The two men looked at the individual who caused the disturbance as he walked in. Minato caught sight of him and his eyes widened as he was looking at a miniature version of himself when he was a genin, though the jacket was a different color. Minato couldn't help but gape like a fish as he stammered out the name of his guest. Naruto. Minato couldn't believe his eyes as he saw his son standing right in front of him. He also saw Naruto had grown well for being in such a hostile place and could tell the amount of training he had put himself through. Minato looked into his son's eyes and saw they were the eyes of a dedicated shinobi, but in those deep blue eyes, he found he almost lost himself in the nearly emotionless eyes. Despite this, due to years of training, he did manage to read a small bit of emotion in those eyes. He saw pain and sadness mixed with determination and something he couldn't place. "Hey, old man, surprised to see me." Fugaku also stared, only to mutter, "Speak of the Kyubi, and you will hear its roar," Minato said, finishing Fugaku's statement. "Fugaku Ajizan, it is good to see you. I hope everything is well with you and Mikoto Oba," Naruto said with all the respect he had. Naruto had learned a long time ago that Fugaku valued respect, and this prompted him to show as much as possible so as not to get on his bad side. This earned a small smile from the man, which was an achievement all by itself. "It is, thank you for asking, Naruto-kun," he replied. "Naruto," Minato began to say, only to be cut off. "I'm here to sign up for the academy, if I'm not too late, that is," Naruto said, wanting to avoid talking to his father for the time being. He had forgiven him and the rest of the family besides Koga, with whom he had no problem, but he was still not just going to let the rest get close, they would have to earn that. Minato was silent for a few moments, his son's casual interruption shocking him, before he managed to find his voice. "Why, yes. But, Naruto, you have to tell me what happened to you in the forest, and how no one could find you in there even though we combed the whole forest," he said, hoping his son would open up just a little. "I'll tell you once I feel like I can trust you," Naruto said as his blank expression turned into a frown, causing Minato to wince at that, and the Umbu to tense. Will you come back home at least?" Minato asked, hopeful that his, now estranged, son would at least come back to the house. "I might," said Naruto, as he looked his father dead in the eyes. "As long as you don't try to pry into what happened while I was gone or have me watched by Umbu, I will tell you when I feel you have earned it." Minato sighed and nodded. "All right, but you should talk with your mother. Your departure was hard on her." "Heck, it has been hard on all of us," he said. Naruto didn't even flinch one bit, which caused Minato to worry a bit. However, unknown to Minato, Naruto mentally did flinch at the news. She took it that bad? Kami, I'm such an idiot. Still, I can't trust them yet. They need to earn my trust, he thought, as Kao answered him. "And that's why I told you to leave them a note," the new Biju said, while Naruto mentally glared at his partner. "Zip it, moron," he said, and Kao could only sigh. "One of these days, Naruto, you're going to do something that you will forever regret," he thought, being careful as to not let Naruto hear his thoughts. "I'll try to talk with her, but know that she is in the same boat as you. Mito, Narumi, and Menma are not off the hook either, but I will try to patch things with them up, however that will be up to them too, not just me," Naruto said, while Minato nodded, glad that Naruto was going to try and make things better with his siblings. "I understand that, son," he said, as he opened a desk drawer and brought a piece of paper and began to write into it. "This note will let you into the class Koga and the others are in. Give it to the instructor, Irika Amino, he's a good person. I know you'd want to graduate with the rest of the students your age." Naruto nodded as he approached the desk and accepted the letter from Minato. After he wrote down the instructions on what Irika was supposed to do, he placed his seal on it and gave it to Naruto. "I'll see you at home later, then," Minato said, while Naruto nodded as he turned around and left the office through the destroyed doorway. Minato let out a sigh he didn't know he was holding as he looked at the still-out cold guard and the door on the floor of his office. "Please get him, and whoever else was hurt outside, to the hospital, and have some janitors fix the door," he ordered, and the Umbu nodded as they gathered up the unconscious man and anyone outside who was knocked out to the hospital. "I told you, never doubt my wife when it comes to these things," Fugaku said, looking at Minato with a slightly smug expression. Minato laughed at the statement, saying, "I'll have to remember that. I'm gonna have to work hard to get Naruto to trust me again," he thought as he looked back to his paperwork, sighing to himself. "But, if things go smoothly, I can atone for the mistakes I made." Mito Uzumaki Namikaze yawned as she listened to her class's instructor drone on and on about the history of Konoha, which she had heard 5 different times. It was nice hearing the history of your home once or twice, but Irika-sensei was a person who made it boring. She felt like she was about to pull her red hair out in frustration if she continued to listen to Irika's long-winded lectures. Heck, she knew that her brothers and sister had to be feeling the same as her right now. "Sweet Kami-sama, help us all. Please give us a distraction so that we don't have to listen to this torture." At that moment, a knock was heard at the door of the classroom, making Irika stop his lecture so he could answer the door. "Thank you," Mito mentally shouted with glee as she cried anime tears of happiness. However, her expression then turned to surprise as she saw the person on the other side enter, and then morph into shock. Naruto. She couldn't believe her own eyes as she saw standing by the door of the classroom was her brother Naruto. Even though it had been 4 years, she still remembered him. However, this shock wasn't just hers alone, as the other 3 Uzumaki Namikaze siblings had similar reactions. "Excuse me? Is this room 23A and are you Irika Omino-sensei?" Naruto asked, and said Chunin instructor blinked in confusion. Yes, that's right," Irika said. "How can I help you?" Naruto walked up toward the academy teacher and handed him the note that his father gave him. Irika took the note, opened it, and read the contents before his eyes widened, which quickly turned into a smile. Well, Naruto-san, I must say, welcome back from your training, he said, while said blonde nodded. Now if you would take a seat next to, let's see, you can sit next to Hinata. Said girl, after hearing that, began to blush at that, as Naruto nodded and made his way toward the Hyuga heiress. Hello, Hinata, it's nice to meet you, Naruto greeted as he sat down next to her. The shy Hyuga didn't say anything, but nodded her head. Naruto couldn't help but chuckle a bit. Relax, I won't bite, he said cheerfully, as he placed his hand on her shoulder, making her blush like a tomato. Watching this was a boy with brown shaggy hair covered by a hood with a puppy in it, with brown slitted, fang-shaped tattoos, and feral features growled as he glared at the blonde's actions on the Hyuga heiress. This was Kiba Inyazuka, the heir of the Inyazuka clan. When he took one sniff of the blonde, he felt in his bones he was a threat to his role as the alpha male, and this made him feel on edge. He wasn't the only one, as Suzuki Uchiha also felt uneasy by the aura that the blonde was giving. Shikamaru Nara had a look of boredom on his face but in fact was studying Naruto. Shikamaru and his friend Koji had tried to be friends with the blonde when he had been younger, but now it was like looking at a whole new person. He wasn't the only one studying Naruto, as Shino Abarame was looking at the prodigal son of the Hokage and his friend as he was conversing with another of his few friends. Okay everyone, Iruka said. The Hokage has assigned a new student to this class. He has been on a training trip with one of the bodyguard detail, so why don't you stand up and introduce yourself? Naruto nodded and stood up. My name is Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, he said, much to the surprise of almost everyone there. My likes are ramen, my friends, and training. My dislikes are hypocrites, abusers, kidnappers, and the like. My plans for the future are to become a great ninja and start a family. My dream is to show the villagers and show my family I'm worth something. Mito and Narumi both winced at the statement, hearing that was like a stab to the heart, while Menma just looked at him with a slight frown. Koga, on the other hand, was smiling to himself that his brother had come home safe and that he was not just lying to his sisters this whole time. Iruka nodded and smiled a bit. Thank you, Naruto, he said. You can sit down now. Naruto nodded and sat back down, as Iruka continued with his lecture. The rest of the school day went by quick as the students left the academy. Naruto was heading for the gate, after talking with Hinata, until a gruff voice got his attention. Hey! Naruto turned, and there stood the Inyazuka heir, giving him a death glare. Yeah, how can I help you? Naruto said blandly. This made Kiba's glare turn more intense, if it could get more intense that is. Stay away from Hinata, he said, and the blonde raised an eyebrow at that. Why? What do you care who I talk to? Naruto said, and the Inyazuka heir's face became red with anger at that. Just shut up and stay away from her, he shouted and attempted to march at him, but stopped and became unnerved as the look in Naruto's eyes made him feel as if he was looking into the eyes of a predator. I wouldn't shout at me if I were you, he said warningly in a somewhat too calm voice. I don't take kindly to people who try and attack me. The Inyazuka just glared at Naruto before giving a hump and storming off. Naruto sighed as he shook his head, knowing that the rivalry between the two of them was born from the same one dogs and wolves had, even if the Inyazuka boy didn't know it. While dogs were loyal to their masters and would die to protect them, wolves had no masters and were loyal only to the pack and looked after one another like family. In Naruto's view, dogs and wolves were like samurai in a way. The dogs were the ones who served the Lord until their last breath, while wolves were more like Ronin and fought hard to earn a living to feed their family. Who does that mutt even think he is? Kao questioned. Naruto sighed as he responded, just let it go. Aniki. Naruto blinked as he looked and saw his sisters, Mito and Narumi, approaching him with nervous looks on their faces, like if they said the wrong word, he would hit them. But Naruto wasn't the type of guy to hit a girl, least of all his own twin sisters. Yes, Mito Imuto, he asked, and his twin sisters both fiddled with their hands before one managed to speak up. Ayano, would you like to? Narumi tried to say but was cut off by Naruto. Walk home with you too, he finished for her, and they nodded as both of them looked to the ground. Naruto sighed as he shook his head. Why not? Their heads perked up at this. As Narumi tried to glomp onto his arm, only for him to sidestep, much to Narumi's disappointment. But, he said with a raised hand, looking between the both of them, I want you both to know that you are going to have to work to regain my trust. Don't think that things are going to be fine right away. They both deflated somewhat at that as they both knew that they had been part of the reason he had left, but this time they didn't feel like he was a stranger. In fact, that feeling that they would always get was almost all but gone. They both nodded as they moved to stand beside their brother as they thought things are going to be different this time. The three siblings then left the academy grounds together, heading in the direction of their home. After a few minutes of walking, the three siblings were stopped by Koga, who was jogging to catch up with them. When he reached them, he looked at Naruto. He was so different, but at the same time, he was the same as when he left. Koga had some things that he needed to say and he didn't want his sisters around to hear what he had to say. Hey, can you two give us a minute? Koga asked, looking to both sisters as he passed Mito Sunryo. Why don't you get some popsicles, one for each of us while I talk to Naruto? The girls nodded and asked what flavor both of them wanted. Orange is fine, Naruto replied. Green, please, Koga said, and with that, the two girls left. Koga just looked at Naruto for a few seconds before Naruto spoke. You have something you wanted to say? Naruto asked, looking at his brother. You look good for where you have been the past 4 years, he said. It's good to see you after all this time. Same to you, Naruto responded. Sorry about all of this. I know you said I should try and fix things with everyone here, but I just didn't see how to do that. Koga sighed. I know why you left, but you could have left a note or something. I mean, heck, anything would have been better than just up and leaving the way you did. I told you that you should have left one, but do you ever listen to me? Nope, Kao stated, only for Naruto to fire back for him to zip it. All I want to know is that you are back and don't plan on running away again, he said. I don't think anyone will be able to take it, heck, things are bad enough already. If it happened again. Koga trailed off for a second before continuing. I don't want to think about what would happen. As the conversation went on, Koga filled Naruto in on everything that had happened since he left. To say that what had been going on shocked Naruto was about PR for the course today. When he got to the end, Koga asked, do you remember what I told you about what happened after you got yelled at for trying to water walk by yourself? Naruto remembered. It had been what had kept him from running away sooner than he had. Koga had told him that he had seen their mother tuck Naruto into bed and tell him that she was sorry for everything they had said and said that she and Minato truly did love him. This statement had given him hope that things would get better, but when things stayed the same as they had been for a while, he finally gave up. Yes, I remember, he replied. Well, now you know it's true. It just took you running away to make everyone see just how much they needed you. At this, Narumi and Mito rounded the corner with the popsicles in hand. Mito asked if everything was okay as they walked up. At this, the brothers nodded and the 4 siblings went on their way. It had been 20 minutes since they left the academy and finished their frozen treat until they arrived at the front gate of their home, and after passing through it, they stopped at the front door. Naruto took a deep breath, knowing this will be the moment of truth of how his mother will react when she sees him. Koga, seeing his brother's hesitation, placed his hand on his shoulder. Narumi and Mito stepped up next to him and both told him it's okay, we're here for you. Well, it's bound to happen sooner or later, he thought as he stepped up to the door and turned the knob. In the house itself, Kushina was still talking to Mikato about how she could have done better with Naruto, with said Uchiha trying to assure her that although what she did was wrong, the Uzumaki regretted doing what she did. Still, Kushina felt she should have done more and had no one to blame but herself. They heard the door open, and Kushina realized how late it was since Mikato came and the kids must be back from the academy. She was about to greet her kids, but she paused when she saw them enter the room with a look that told her they were being apprehensive about something. Mikato noticed it as well and blinked in confusion. Hey, Kaa-chan, Mikato Oba, Mito said nervously, now making the two women more confused. Mito? What's the mat? She stopped as her eyes widened when she spotted someone else come out and stand beside them. A person who Kushina never thought she would see again, now grown up and dressed like a true shinobi. The same blonde, red-tipped hair, in the same style as her husband's, cerulean blue eyes, and 6 whisker-shaped birthmarks, 3 on each side of his face. Mikato was in the same boat as Kushina as she saw her best friend's son, now standing right here in front of them, next to his sisters and brother. She had been telling him that he would come home, but to be here when he did almost seemed poetic in a way. Kushina, who had tears about to spill from her eyes, took a shaky step forward. Naruto, she said, her voice barely above a whisper as she slowly began to approach her son. Is it really you? Naruto didn't say anything, but as he looked at his mother, he saw that his father and brother were right. His leaving really did hit her hard, as the shadows under her eyes showed that she hadn't slept well for a long time, and she looked a little thinner than usual. Not to mention the slightly visible scars on her wrists. Sachi. He heard her sob, and when she was close enough, her tears began to fall freely, a hand placed on her mouth as she raised her other one shakily to her son's face and began to caress it. My baby. Naruto didn't do anything to stop her as he let her touch his face. His trust with her was shaken, but he could at least give her some comfort. Naruto had made the decision long ago that he would not be an asshole, but he wouldn't make it too easy for his family to earn his forgiveness. He then gave a sigh as he looked at his hopeful mother's face, who was praying that it wasn't a dream. Hi, Kaa-san, he said, his voice neutral. It's me. That did it. As Kushina enveloped her son in a tight embrace, knowing she needed closure, he stood there letting her have this. Kaa-san, I know you don't want to hear this from me, but I can't trust you and the rest of the family yet, he said, while Kushina just shook her head as she held onto him, never wanting to let him go again. It doesn't matter, she said. You're back home, and that's all that matters. Naruto blinked at that, but a small smile formed on his lips as he let Kushina hold him. A part of him was actually happy, as he felt that this hug was one full of love. Unknown to them, Kao was watching the whole thing, and he couldn't help but smile, as he also felt the love Kushina had for her son through Naruto. He knew it would take a while, but from what he saw of his father's memories, Kushina was a determined woman and would do anything in order to win her son's trust back. You should be happy, Naruto, he thought. Even though she neglected you, she still loved you like any mother would. Don't screw it up. Kao continued to watch as mother and son were reunited once again. Within a few days of Naruto's return, the whole village was abuzz, talking about how the runaway son of the Hokage had returned home. This news caused several stirs of excitement among the villagers. One such stir was headed to the Hokage's office door as it was slammed open and 3 well-known ninja, 2 of whom rushed in while the third calmly walked in. Is it true, he's back? 2 of the 3 people now standing in the Hokage's office blurted out as Minato put down the document he had been reading to look at them. Smiling, he addressed the 3 Sannin who were standing before him. Yes, Naruto came home just the other day and has been enrolled in the academy class that his siblings are in, Minato said, much to the surprise of Jiraiya and Tsunade while Orochimaru stood there silently, contemplating the whole situation and its possible outcomes. You really think he will be able to keep up with the rest of the class? Jiraiya asked, looking at his former student. I mean, it's not exactly like he has had anyone to teach him this whole time he has been gone. I want to see him. Check and make sure that he doesn't have anything that he could have caught while in the forest. He could spread it to the other students, Tsunade stated. Naruto is fine. He has been around the other students for a few days, and nothing bad has happened. No one has gotten sick, and all seems to be going as well as can be expected, Minato replied to Tsunade's concerns. Minato looked at the third member of the group and commented, You have been awfully quiet, Orochimaru. No questions of your own to ask? Minato questioned the Snake Sage. Questions, yes, but not for you, more so for Naruto, the Snake Sage said, his eyes not really focused on anything. Well, that is going to be a bit harder than you think. He has been very tight-lipped, even around us, about what happened while he was gone, Minato stated, much to the surprise of the other 2 Sannin. So, he still hasn't opened up to anyone since he got back? Jiraiya asked, seeming a bit worried about how his eldest godson, as he saw it, was closing himself off to the rest of his family. Well, what do you expect when the boy has been ignored by practically everyone in the village since he was 6, us included, Tsunade said with a bit of sadness on that last part. He has not been totally closed off. He and Ga are still close, as are the other few people who have been there for him over the years, but I don't think he has said much to anyone at all about what happened, Minato commented, making the rest of them wonder what was going on inside the young boy's mind. It had been a few months since Naruto returned home and entered the academy as a student, but ever since that day, he had been described as average compared to many of his peers at the Ninja Academy by the instructors. He was seen as somewhat of an enigma by many of the teachers. He was the eldest son of the Hokage, yet he was only slightly above average. This puzzled the instructors. Why was someone who was supposed to have been training for so long be so average? Several of the students who were labeled above average, such as Sasuke, thought that it was strange too. Even his sisters who were up for top kunoichi of the class thought it odd. In several of the sparring sessions that were held to test the students' abilities in taijutsu, those who fought Naruto felt like he was holding back. But if that were true, what could he be holding back for? As for his relationship with his family, he had been slowly but surely opening up to them as they decided not to push him to tell them what had happened in the forest. This fact had been a plus. Another had come from his mother, who was very determined to win back his trust as she had made sure his room was well taken care of. She also bought some replacement equipment for him from a ninja surplus store outside of the village and dealt pain to a few shinobi who tried to pull a fast one. He said it wasn't needed, but Kushina told him that she will continue to protect him like she was supposed to, no matter what age he was. His sisters, while nervous, managed to serve as informants, telling him who to trust and who not to trust in the ninja academy, mainly the students and some teachers. One of the academy students he was told to look out for was of course Sasuke. Others were Kiba Inyazuka, who seemed to be very good friends with Menma, Sakura, and the fan club she was leading. He was thankful for these tips and had let his sisters know that he was grateful. During those few months since he came back, he began to spend more time with Hinata, who had been slowly coming out of her shy shell. The girl got along well with both him and Ga, who seemed to like that Naruto was opening up to other people. Now, today was the day they finally graduated from the academy and after that were placed into teams. He was sitting next to Hinata, who was trying not to stare at Naruto as the two of them and their classmates were waiting for their sensei to arrive, with many of them being loud. Of course, that ended when Irika came through the door and told the students to shut up, putting a minor amount of killing intent behind it. Naruto could only grin. He had only known the man for a few months, but he had already warmed up to the Chunin Academy instructor. He may act like a tough teacher, but he cared about his students greatly. Okay, now that I have your attention, it's time to go through the final exam before you graduate. You are to do 3 of the academy basics and if possible, perform a bonus jutsu you may have learned over the course of your time here, Irika said and picked up a clipboard. When you hear your name, you will head to the next room and be examined to see if you pass. Alright, first up. And so, the process of testing who will become a ninja and who will not began. As one by one, the students were called to the next room and came back with only a few without their hitayate and a disappointed look on their faces. Soon, after seeing Hinata, Menma, Mito, and Narumi returned with a headband of their own, Naruto's name was called and the young Jinchuriki stood up and headed to the other room. When he entered the room, he spotted Irika, along with another, white-haired, Chunin named Mizuki, the latter of whom Naruto didn't trust in the least, since he caught the suspicious academy teacher sneaking leering glances at his sisters and Hinata. His thoughts were cut off as Irika spoke up. "Okay, Naruto, just do the Academy 3 and a bonus jutsu if you can," he said, and Naruto nodded before speaking. "Before I start, Irika-sensei, I have a problem performing the regular clone jutsu, so is it alright for me to make a substitute in light of that?" he asked. This made Irika blink before he nodded. With that, Naruto performed the substitution jutsu, the transformation jutsu. Finally, after placing his fingers into a cross-shaped hand sign, he performed the shadow clone jutsu, which greatly surprised both Irika and Mizuki. Great job, Naruto," Irika said, and Naruto nodded before he began to perform another pair of hand seals. After making the hand signs and putting in as little chakra as possible, Naruto called out the name of his jutsu. Wind style, great breakthrough. With that he blew out a gust of wind from his mouth into the room. Although it wasn't very strong, it was enough to force the two Chunin to cover their faces while catching flying pieces of paper. After the gust ended and the two mid-level ninja gathered up all the papers, Irika took a deep breath to compose himself. "Well done, Naruto. You passed. Come and get your hitayate and return to the homeroom class," he said, and Naruto nodded as he walked forward, picked up a dark reddish, almost black-clothed hitayate, and wrapped it around his head. After giving a bow to the two Chunin, he left the room back to his classmates. When all was said and done, the students who were given their hitayates were congratulated, while those who didn't were told to try again next time. After Irika was done with his speech, the students filed out of the classroom and made their way home. Naruto, however, was sitting on the swing outside the academy, thinking about what to do now and who would be placed on his team. His thoughts were interrupted, however, when his eyes caught his sister Narumi following Mizuki away from the crowd and began to have a conversation. Curious as to what they were saying, Naruto got close enough to listen in on what the two were talking about. His eyes narrowed when Mizuki talked about her stealing the forbidden scroll of sealing, Narumi's eyes widening a bit, which he recognized was fear. He also managed to catch the supposed meeting place in the forest just outside of the village. Naruto had unnerving vibes about Mizuki since day one, and because of how he looked at some of the female students. This screamed two words, deceiver and arrogant. His sisters had the same type of feelings, but unfortunately weren't aware of just how shifty he was. "Are you thinking what I'm thinking?" he asked his partner. "Yeah, I bet anything that creep is setting your sis up," said Kao. "I think it's best we keep an eye on her," Naruto said. "We'll see what Mizuki has planned." Little did Naruto know that there was another person listening in as well. Ga, who had seen Narumi walk off with Mizuki, had also thought that the guy was a creep and had gotten the same vibe Naruto did from him. But to think that this guy would dare to betray his own village, Ga couldn't believe it, or that this guy would dare to try and use his sister as a scapegoat. "This guy is going to be dead meat when we get through with him," Ga mentally stated, only for a female voice to sound in his mindscape. "Oh, don't worry, when we get done with him, he is going to wish he was dead," said female voice calmly stated. It just so happened that Naruto and Ga ran into each other when they arrived at the location Mizuki had stated for the meet 15 minutes earlier than Narumi. The both of them were about to ask what the other was doing here only to have the same words come out of their mouths. At this, the two brothers nodded, not needing to say any more as they took up positions to wait for that bastard Mizuki to show his traitorous face. Narumi stepped into the clearing with the scroll of sealing strapped to her back and saw the small shack Mizuki had said would be here. She walked over to it and took the scroll off her back. With nothing left to do, she leaned the scroll against the shack and waited. "So, you made it. That's good." Narumi snapped her head in the direction of the familiar voice and saw Mizuki standing there with a sick grin plastered on his face. Narumi glared back at the treacherous Chunin. "You can have this after you tell me," the red-headed girl shouted, while the white-haired traitor just chuckled. "Of course, my part of the deal of why you and your family and most of the village neglected your piece of sh-" he began to say before he was cut off as the girl snapped at him. "My brother is not a piece of shit, you asshole," Narumi shouted, and Mizuki groaned in annoyance. "You know, I hate interrupting brats," he said while Narumi's grip on the scroll tightened and she thought about trying to run. "As I was saying, the reason why your family began to neglect your dear brother," he said the word brother like it was a bad taste in his mouth, "was because of a genjutsu that was placed on the village before you and your siblings turned 6. It was all planned by my master to make that little punk hate you, your parents, and the entire village of Konoha." He then sighed in annoyance. "However, that plan backfired because the genjutsu seemed to not work on some people, like your brother Koga. Not only that, but instead of hating the village, the boy ran into the forest of death to train and came back 4 years later." Narumi's eyes widened at this. So, it wasn't their fault that Naruto was neglected. But someone tried to force her brother away. She gritted her teeth in anger at this information. Who placed the genjutsu? Tell me, she said, before she drew a kunai and aimed it at the scroll, making the Chunin's eyes narrow dangerously. Or I'll cut this thing into pieces and it will be useless. The Chunin said nothing at first, before grinning again. Now, you wouldn't do that, he said before he rushed the surprised girl and grabbed the hand with the kunai and backhanded her to the ground. Now that I got what I came for, I don't need you anymore, he said as the grin got bigger and more menacing. But first, I'm gonna have some fun with you. He then dropped the scroll and began to walk closer to the dazed girl, and reached his hand out to grab her, only for a pair of fists to smash right into his face and send him flying into a tree. The two Uzumaki Namikaze brothers looked to see that Narumi was alright. Shaking her head, Narumi looked up and saw her brothers were here. Koga, Naruto nii, Narumi said, thanking Kami that her brothers had saved her life. What are the two of you doing here? Mizuki growled. Hey, Mizuki team, I see you enjoy making people's lives as miserable as always, Naruto taunted. Shut up, you damn bastard, he shouted as he grabbed the Fuma shuriken on his back. I'm gonna enjoy killing the two of you, to hell with what that mummy says. Naruto and Koga quirked an eyebrow at that. Mummy, they thought, as Mizuki began to spin the massive shuriken in his hand, as his face began to show signs of slight insanity. Now die. Mizuki shouted as he launched the shuriken at the brothers who dodged the incoming projectile as both of them bit their thumbs and made a similar set of hand signs, swiping blood on their palms and slamming their hands to the ground, shouting in unison, summoning jutsu. At this, two plumes of smoke exploded, and when they cleared, a large gray wolf with a white stripe-like pattern going down its back and a black fox with four white-tipped tails stood next to the brothers. Narumi gasped as she saw this and looked on with shock as her brothers rushed Mizuki now with feral backup. The four fought the Chunin who was supposed to be better than them, but with these numbers, it would be hard for anyone to fight back. Both Naruto and Koga fought the Chunin traitor hard and were in a way kicking his ass. After the two brothers sent Mizuki flying through the little shack, Naruto and Koga looked back at their sister as Koga dismissed his summon with a word. Naruto looked to the wolf and said, "Stay with her." The wolf nodded, and with that said, they took off deeper into the woods after Mizuki. Narumi was watching her brothers head into the woods after the traitor, all the while thinking how her brothers had managed to get access to summoning contracts. However, before she can ponder this, a voice called out, "Narumi-chan." Narumi turned and saw her mother coming toward her. "Kaa-chan," she said, happy to see her, only for her brother's wolf to get in her way and growl at her. Kushina stopped dead in her tracks as the summoning wolf guarded her daughter, only for Narumi to speak up, "Please don't hurt her, she is my mother." Kushina looked at the summoning wolf and pleaded, "Please, she's my daughter." The summoning wolf went up to Kushina and sniffed her scent, and when it seemed satisfied, it looked at her and then gave a nod of his head and slowly backed up only a few feet, just enough to let her know that if she tried anything funny, he would tear her apart. Kushina finally reached her daughter before embracing her, as Narumi shed tears. "Kaa-chan, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, Mizuki, she said, only for Kushina to hush her and telling her it was alright, before she broke the embrace and made her daughter look at her with a look on her face that was firm, but Narumi could see in her eyes that her mother was planning to kill her former academy teacher. "Where is Mizuki?" she asked firmly, and Narumi remembered before looking toward where her brother went after Mizuki. Naruto nii, he summoned this wolf and Koga summoned a fox. Then they proceeded to beat up Mizuki before kicking him that way, she said, pointing in said direction, as Kushina's eyes widened at that info before they turned determined and got back her daughter's attention. "Listen to me. I want you to stay here with Naruto's wolf until I get back with your brothers. You understand?" she said with finality, and Narumi nodded before Kushina stood up and looked to the summon. "You will keep her safe?" she asked, to which the summon nodded and spoke, "With my life." Kushina thanked the wolf before she went running in the direction that her sons along with the white-haired traitor went, praying that her sons would be all right. Mizuki grunted as he slammed, back first, against a tree. The traitor's body was covered in bruises, cuts, and bite wounds, with one of his eyes swollen shut. "This is ridiculous. They're supposed to be wet behind the ears, Genin. Yet I'm losing horribly to them," he thought in rage, as Naruto stood on a tree branch looking down on the Chunin traitor while Koga was perched on the branch just below his brothers. Mizuki growled as his unswollen eye glared at the two teens who had been kicking his butt. "TFT. And you call yourself a Chunin?" Naruto said mockingly. "You're a pathetic waste. Shut the hell up, you brat." Mizuki yelled back as he tried to stand. "Seems like he still has yet to learn his lesson," Koga commented. "I said shut up," the fallen Chunin roared as he pulled a kunai from his holster in a vain attempt to try and kill the two brothers. However, unseen to Mizuki, Naruto had created two shadow clones, one of which appeared and connected a knee to Mizuki's stomach, forcing the white-haired traitor to gasp in pain before he was kicked into the air by another Naruto clone. As the two brothers now appeared, Naruto above and Koga with Naruto sent a hard right to Mizuki's solar plexus, sending him hurtling down to the floor of the woods, only for Koga to hit him hard with a boot to the back, sending the traitor into a tree front first and collapsing to the ground, not getting up. Naruto looked at the form of the traitor, and could see he was still alive, albeit barely. "Okay, we may have went a little overboard," he said as he dismissed the clones, walking over to Koga. Koga just chuckled, saying he had it coming. "I have to admit, not bad for a pair of beginners." Uh-oh. Naruto blinked at his Biju's words before his own eyes widened and he snapped his head around, and his heart sank to his stomach. Koga, expecting another enemy, turned only to mirror his brother's expression. There, standing with a shocked expression on her face clad in her Jonin uniform, was their mother. Oh snap, they both thought. Naruto and Koga remained frozen as their mother, who still had a shocked expression on her face, looked at the two boys. None of them said a word as the silence went on for what felt like an eternity, but when Kushina saw Naruto about to make a move to run, she immediately acted. "Naruto, please," she said, trying to sound as calm as possible as she began to walk toward the two boys. "Don't run." Naruto remained standing in place as Kushina continued to approach the two boys. It felt as if it took hours for her to finally be near and kneel down to his and Koga's level and hugged both of her sons tightly to her before she drew back slightly and put a hand on both of their shoulders. "It's okay. I'm not angry at either of you. Naruto, I promised you that I would never hurt you again, and I still intend to keep it," she said, smiling at both of them. "I don't know how you both managed to get summoning contracts, but I'm not upset." She stopped and then placed one hand lightly on Naruto's face to reassure him she meant what she said. "I know you don't fully trust me or your father yet, or even your brothers and sisters for that fact, but I won't throw away the hard work I did to win back your trust by pressing you," she said, causing the blonde's eyes to widen. He could still remember all the good things Kushina and Minato had done to win back their son's trust before this whole debacle with Mizuki. "We all love you, Naruto," she said, hugging both boys close to her again, causing Naruto to stiffen just for a second before relaxing. "And we'll still love you, no matter how hard we'll work to get it back," she whispered in his ear. As she released the hug, Naruto still didn't say anything, but just nodded. Kushina smiled a bit as she looked at her two sons, just as an Umbu member arrived. Kushina informed him that everything was alright and said that she will return to the tower before she ordered Mizuki to be restrained and taken to Ibiki. After that, Kushina along with both of her sons and daughter went back to the Hokage tower together. Naruto was nervous as he stood in his father's office along with Narumi, Koga, and his mother. The third Hokage was also there, and not so surprisingly, the two boys' surrogate older sister, Yujao, who was wearing her Umbu mask and cloak. She had a comforting hand placed on the blonde's shoulder. Naruto had a feeling that he and Koga would have to explain how they came by their summoning contracts. Sitting behind the desk, Minato gave a sigh as he looked at his son, who, although appeared to be calm, was trying to fight off the nervousness he was feeling at being put in the spotlight, though he was a bit relieved that it wasn't only him being put on the spot. He was also thankful those old crones, Homura, Koharu, and most of all, Danzo weren't there. They would probably have pressured both boys to reveal everything on how they had gotten the contracts. Deciding to begin the conversation, Minato spoke up. "Naruto," he said, "I know you've been back for only a few months, and that's probably not enough to earn your full trust back." Naruto stiffened a bit. "But one thing is for sure. You and Koga both used summon contracts that haven't been seen in the Hidden Leaf Village, or if they have, they haven't had a user in a long time." He then took a deep breath and stopped himself. "I'm not angry with either of you, neither is anyone else. I know you would probably like to keep whatever it is you know a secret. But please, when you feel like telling us, don't be afraid to." He then turned to Narumi, who didn't even bother hiding how nervous she was. "As for you, young lady," Minato said in a firm, stern tone, "even though we now know it was Mizuki who was manipulating you thanks to Koga's summon informing us about what was happening, you should have come to us first. What could have been so important that you would hide this from us?" He asked before continuing, "If you had come to us in the first place, we could have prevented a whole lot of undue panic, stress, and worry." Narumi winced a little at that, but she managed to answer. He had information that I wanted, and said he'd give it to me if I gave him the scroll," she said, causing everyone to raise an eyebrow at that. "Information? About what, Narumi-chan?" said Hiruzen, as the young blonde lowered her head down. The true cause of why mostly everyone in the village neglected Nii-chan. That bit of info sent everyone in the room for a loop. "What did he tell you, Mizume?" Minato asked. Narumi was hesitant at first, but eventually managed to speak it out. Aichi said that a genjutsu was placed on the village just after we turned 6A, and the plan was for Naruto and II to despise you and force him away from the village, she said, making the eyes of the two parents and Naruto's to widen in shock. Of course, the plan backfired due to the fact that somehow the genjutsu didn't affect the whole village, and Naruto only went into the forest of death to train to get stronger. As she finished that statement, Naruto began raking his brain for whoever might have gained something out of this whole mess. He was not alone in this, as his father and Hiruzen were also searching their minds as well. Who could have placed the genjutsu and for what reason? Their suspect list being short to begin with, since the list of people who could cast a jutsu on that scale and level who they knew of were few. This list happened to be composed of Homura, Koharu, Danzo, Orochimaru, or the masked man who caused the Kyuubi to attack the village 12 years ago. However, 3 of those names were instantly scratched off the list due to the fact that 2 of the suspects had let their skills slip as they took more stock in their roles as advisors nowadays. While Orochimaru had once been accused of being traitor, having been arrested after suspicion about what went on in the lab that he operated. After he was taken to Ibiki Marino for interrogation on the scene that was found in his lab, he asked that they have Inoichi Yamanaka look through his mind to prove his innocence by reviewing the past few hours of his life. When the truth was revealed, they apologized and released the seals placed on him. During the interrogation, they had found that it was a spy who had gained Orochimaru's trust by posing as a new apprentice who had framed him. This spy had been stealing information and resources from his lab for Hiriko, a former Leaf Village shinobi who was banished after his experiments on human test subjects were found out. After the incident, Minato and Jiraiya apologized for their actions, Jiraiya especially. However, Orochimaru brushed them off, saying that they were only doing their jobs and that he would have done the same if he had been in their position. Originally, he was bitter and angry that his sensei, Hiruzen Sarutobi, had chosen Minato to succeed him as the 4th Hokage, but after Hiruzen talked to him about his reasons, he grudgingly accepted it. Slowly, he grew to like the man, thanks in part to Jiraiya forcing him out of his lab to meet with him for a drink from time to time. Now, he was the head of the torture and interrogation division and the main consultant when it came to building teams, as he oversaw all outgoing genin teams from the academy and had some insight as to what went on inside of their minds due to his position. However, Danzo, who was the head of the Umbu splinter group known as Root, was one of the few people who could have done something this big. He had also been adamant in having Menma, Mito, Naruto, and Narumi made into weapons molded for the village. He would have had his operatives watching who entered and exited the village. If Naruto would have left the village, his men would have been waiting to snatch him and take him to his base to be brainwashed into only serving him and him alone. After all, if he could gain a possible seal master who had access to the fox's power in the Uzumaki Kekkei Genkai, the benefits would be too good for him to pass up. The other was the masked man who had tried to destroy the village 12 years ago. However, he hadn't been seen since that night. Naruto chose that moment to speak. "I remember something that Mizuki said," he said, getting the others' attention. Something about a mummy and what he said. Minato and Hiruzen's eyes immediately narrowed at that bit of information, knowing that Danzo was called that not-so-affectionate nickname by many of the ninja and villagers alike. The young Hokage was about ready to order an investigation on the old bastard and have him squeezed for any information he knew about the genjutsu, until he got a confession from him. He then took a deep mental breath to calm himself down before he made any rash decisions, knowing that getting angry was not going to help matters. "All right," he said as he stood up from the chair. "It has been a hectic night for all of us, so I think it's best we all head home for the night," Minato said. He then looked to his 3 present children. "Teams will be assigned in a week's time. Be at the academy at 10 a.m. sharp," he said to them as the 2 sons and daughters stood up along with Kushina as they and Yujao left the office. When they were gone, Minato looked to Hiruzen with a serious look. "I swear, Hiruzen," he growled. "Old friend of yours or not, if I find proof that it was him, I'll personally kill the mummy son of a bitch myself." Hiruzen, sighing tiredly, spoke in a neutral tone. "If Danzo truly is behind the problems that you have had with your son, then we must tread lightly, Minato," he said. "We need to find some serious incriminating evidence that it was truly him. In order to do that, you must read his next move, and when you have him cornered, only then do you strike." Minato nodded at the advice of the former Kage. "I know," he said and gave a tired grin to the old man. "I knew I made the right choice in making you my advisor. Unlike your former teammates, you don't pretend that your actions are for the good of the village. When you say those words, you truly mean them." Hiruzen chuckled deeply at that. "Minato, I may love the village like my own family, but there are times when the head of the family has to put their foot down and tell the quarreling members to sit down and shut up," he said humorlessly before he and his successor began to laugh at the truth of it all. The 2 men stopped laughing, and Hiruzen sighed before lighting his pipe and began to speak again. "Why don't you go home, Minato?" he said. "The paperwork isn't going anywhere, and you need to be with your family right now. Take the day off tomorrow." Minato nodded in agreement at that. "Thank you, Hiruzen," he said before looking at the seemingly never-ending pile of paperwork. "I don't know how I would manage if you weren't here to help," he said, smiling before he passed the former Kage a small bottle of sake, to which the old man nodded his thanks before Minato disappeared in his signature yellow flash. 3 days had passed since the whole Mizuki incident, and in that time, things at the Uzumaki Namikaze home had gotten back to normal, or as normal as things could get. Naruto and Koga had decided to tell Minato and Kushina about their summon contracts, but only the basics. Both brothers thought it best to keep some things to themselves and others a secret for as long as they could. This seemed to put most fears to rest and or answer most of the questions had by Minato and Kushina. Things even seemed to get a bit better since Naruto learned that his family had been under a genjutsu this whole time. While he still hadn't forgiven them fully, he felt that some good faith was earned, which had prompted him to tell them about his summon contract. That and Koga had told him it would make things less awkward between Naruto and his parents, and in the end, he had taken his brother's advice and told them. Deciding to try and be a little more open, Naruto took his sisters up on an offer of going shopping with them and Kushina for new clothes that week. The girls, however, came up with the idea as a way to get closer to Naruto and spend some time with him. As they walked the streets of the village, they talked about who they hoped to be put on a team with, while Kushina had told them that they needed to be ready to work with anyone because the team placement could put them with anyone in their class. When they finally reached their destination, they stopped in front of a store called Shinobi Style with kunao knives as the eyes in the sign, while a shuriken that was made to look like it was sticking out at an odd angle made the Y. A bell tinkled as they entered the store, and a woman came out from the back and asked if they needed any help. When she saw it was Kushina and her daughters, she smiled. "Well, I'll be if it isn't Kushina. I was wondering when you would be back. Come to get some ninja gear for your girls?" the woman asked, seeing Narumi and Mito. "Nice to see you too, Rika, and yes, we're here to get gear for them and Naruto," Kushina said, motioning to her son. The woman walked around the counter and walked over to Naruto, smiling as she stuck out her hand and said, "It's nice to finally meet you, I've been wanting to for a long time." Naruto took the outstretched hand and shook it, replying, "It's nice to meet you too, Rika-san," he said before her smile turned a bit too mischievous, like how Anko's face would get before she would prank Naruto. As she reached up with her other hand and took a small handful of the boy's hair and pulled just enough to make Naruto wince in pain. Still smiling, she spoke in a slightly overly sweet voice, "Naruto, none of this sand business. Just call me Rika, okay?" Naruto responded with a slightly pained yes. At this, she let go of his hair and her smile shifted back to genuine as she ruffled his hair and turned back to Kushina. Rika asked if they were looking for anything specific. Kushina smiled and replied, "We need to get clothes for both Naruto and the girls." Rika caught the fact that she had singled Naruto out by name and that the girls were smiling as they looked over some of the clothes in the store. She smirked inwardly. This was all just a ruse to get Naruto to spend time with them outside the home and hopefully bring them closer together. The boy didn't seem to notice this, or maybe he did and just didn't mention it out loud. Rika couldn't help but giggle just a bit. She also noticed that Menma and Koga weren't here with them. She was about to ask, but before she could, Kushina said, "Menma already went shopping a day or two ago and got some clothes, so he doesn't need any, and Koga told me that he would go shopping with us on another day." Rika noticed the tone in Kushina's voice, and she had been told before by Kushina about how the Uzumaki Namikaze boys got on and that Naruto and Menma didn't seem to get along well, so she decided not to push the topic. Kushina was trying to keep her sons from having a fight and to help bring her estranged son closer together with her and his sisters. Rika had been one of the people who had not been totally affected by the genjutsu, however, she had never made an effort to talk to the boy as he had never come in her shop until one day when he was looking in her shop window for a second. When she went to ask him if he wanted to come inside and browse, the boy was gone. Now having him in her shop, she wondered how to get him to open up. "So, do you have any ideas of what you would like, Naruto?" Rika asked, looking at the boy. "I don't really know. What do you suggest?" Naruto commented, looking around. Rika smiled at this and decided to get the girls involved. "I think we need to get you a style all your own, don't you think so, you three?" Looking at the girls. Kushina smiled at this as did her two daughters. The three looked at the boy, and Kushina spoke, "That sounds like a great idea. Do you have any colors you would like, Naruto?" The boy thought about it for a minute before responding, "I like blue and orange." Kushina quirked an eyebrow at the color choices but wanted to let him make the choice himself as she remarked, "Any others?" The boy put his chin in his hand as he thought before he replied, "Black." Rika smiled and answered, "We can work with that, but I think it will be easier if we give you some outfit pairings and see what looks the best on you." After several outfits, Naruto walked out with the latest, and the girls all gave an answer of approval as Naruto was told to look in a mirror. The boy stood there in an outfit consisting of a midnight blue, almost black in the right light, shirt. It had an orange Uzumaki spiral, the main concession to his color choice of orange with two small orange stripes on the edge of his sleeves, along with a pair of light gray ninja cargo shorts and a pair of shinobi shoes. Naruto had also seen a pair of wrist guards that were dark blue and had an underlayer of armor to them. He had asked about them, and Rika told him that they would go well with the outfit as well as add a layer of protection. All in all, the outfit looked good on him, and the girls all gave their approval. After which, Kushina paid for Naruto's clothes and the clothes the girls had picked out. After which, the foursome went to lunch. When they arrived at Ichiraku's, they found Minato and the other two Uzumaki Namikaze boys who had just finished ordering lunch. Seeing his wife and the rest of his kids enter, he smiled. Letting the four of them get seated and place their orders for lunch. When all was done, he finally posed his question. "So, did you guys have a good time?" he asked, smiling at his wife. We did, and we got Naruto a new look. What do you think? Kushina asked, looking at her husband, to which Minato looked at his son and had to admit, Naruto looked good in his new outfit. Menma, however, sniffed and asked, why? It's not like Naruto is going to be put on a team. Both Kushina and Minato looked at their son and told him if he didn't have anything nice to say to keep it to himself. Menma was still of the idea that while his brother had come back, he wouldn't be apologizing to his older brother anytime soon, not until Naruto was able to stand as his equal. Though in a small part of Menma's heart, he honestly did want to become close to his brother again, but that part was having trouble with the part of him that had been able to take hold thanks to the whole situation that had led up to this point. Little did he know, however, that Naruto was already a match for him, if not better. The reason being that Menma was oblivious to this fact was that Naruto had never wanted to stand out at the academy due to the fact that it would raise too many questions that he felt didn't need to be asked, not until he was ready to share the answers to them. But with every plan, there is always a chance that someone will catch on to what you are doing, and it seemed that Orochimaru had noticed that something was up, even before this whole incident with Mizuki. Flashback. Naruto had gone to Ichiraku's for lunch that day, only when he walked up, he was met by someone that was a bit too smart to not see a pattern. Orochimaru greeted Naruto and asked if he was getting ramen, to which Naruto had nodded. The snake sage asked if it was okay if he joined him, and Naruto said yes as the two entered. Ayame saw her favorite blonde and smiled, greeting the two as they sat. Naruto ordered a bowl of tonkotsu with extra shashu and kakuni, while Orochimaru ordered a simple chicken ramen bowl with miso. The two sat in silence for a few before it was broken by a question. Naruto, may I ask you a question? Orochimaru asked. Naruto just looked at him for a second before he answered, and what question might that be, answering the question with one of his own. I know you have only been back for 3 months, but I would like to ask about how things are going at the academy? The snake sage asked, hoping the blonde would be up for sharing. What about the academy? Naruto again answered the question with one of his own. It's about you, more specifically, your performance at the academy, Orochimaru stated as he continued. You seem to be somewhat of an enigma to your instructors as you seem to be the same as any average student who attends the academy. Naruto raised an eyebrow, and is that bad? He asked, wondering where his godfather was going with this. No, many ninja who were average in the academy have gone on to be good shinobi, he said. But it makes you seem like you are hiding something since many of them think you're holding back when it comes to how you perform. Naruto just shrugged and looked at the older ninja. I don't know what to tell you, he said as he got up, having finished his food. He went to pay, but his godfather stopped him and put down money for the both of them. Flashback end. After this, Naruto had put a bit more effort in at the academy, which increased his scores a bit but not enough to make much of a difference on his rating. It was just to make it look like he was really just that average. But some of the instructors there still didn't buy it, and neither did Orochimaru. Even now, going over team assignments with Minato in the Hokage's office, he couldn't help but ask himself the question, Naruto, what are you not telling us and why are you trying to hide your real level of skill from us? So, Minato, what do you think of these for the potential team builds? Orochimaru asked, showing Minato a diagram with multiple different team compositions, ranging from tracking, assault, and support. After pointing out the candidates that would only be able to fill one role due to their skill set, then he brought out a chart showing the candidates that could fill multiple roles in a squad. So far, the teams look great, thank you, Orochimaru. Minato expressed his sincere thanks, as squad building in the past was a difficult process of basically putting genin together and seeing if they would work as a team or not. But with Orochimaru offering his insight into the matter, squads that have been assembled in the past couple of years have had a 92.7% rate of successful squad dynamics. But I am concerned about one thing. Orochimaru wasn't surprised since he had a sneaking suspicion as to what it was about though. It's over your children, isn't it? His suspicions were validated when Minato rubbed the back of his head in embarrassment. You caught me, Orochimaru. I wanted to know why Naruto's name isn't on any of the squad suggestions that you showed me. Orochimaru sighed upon hearing this from Minato, as he had anticipated this question. Minato, you and I both know that your oldest son was treated as if he never existed by both his family and most of the village, myself included. While we now know that it was due to a genjutsu that no one was aware of, because of that, he doesn't trust many people. He doesn't even fully trust you or your wife right now for that matter. Orochimaru stated, seeing how Minato was about to retort, he commented, do you know how he performed in the academy, Minato? Hearing the question, Minato frowned and nodded, wondering where the Sannin was going with this. I do, Orochimaru. From what I hear from practically everyone, he's about as average as they get at the academy. His performance on the written and physical exams brings passable marks. It's actually a surprise that he didn't place higher than he did. Minato said, his voice thick with guilt and shame at that fact. He knew full well that while his son had trained, he didn't have anyone to teach him what he needed. But at the same time, he also wanted to know how it was that if his son was so average, how was Naruto already able to do some of the jutsu he had used and how had someone who seemed to be so unremarkable survived in the forest of death for so long. That being said, have you ever seen his actual scores and performance on the written and physical exams? Seeing Minato shake his head in the negative, Orochimaru took out Naruto's file and handed it to Minato. After taking it and opening it, he didn't see what the snake sage was trying to hint at, though he did frown a bit when he saw how his son did. Seeing that Minato didn't get it, he sighed. You don't see it, do you, Minato? He asked. Isn't it suspicious that his grades aren't more varied? How on every single exam, physical and written, he has managed to score just enough points to put him in the average threshold. That alone warrants suspicion. It's as if he is deliberately trying to make himself look like the most average shinobi in order to conceal his strengths. He paused to let Minato think about it for a second. Minato thought about it for a second before responding, Are you sure about this? After all, we both know that he didn't have anyone to train him while he was in the forest of death. Now that I'm thinking about it more clearly and looking back at how after I talked to him about it, his scores went up, but not enough to change his placement, I'm sure that he's intentionally hiding his skills. Though for what reason, I'm not sure, Orochimaru said, his brows furrowed in thought. Minato just couldn't wrap his mind around why Naruto would intentionally hide his skill if he was as skilled as Orochimaru was making him out to be. But why hide his skills? I mean, I get why he didn't want to tell us about the summon contract and all, but if he has the skill, why doesn't he show them to everyone? Minato asked, only for Orochimaru to give a hum of acknowledgement. It sounds as if you're making him out to be a prodigy. If he was, he'd be the talk of the village. That's why I didn't place him with any of the squads that I made, Minato. I don't want you to take this the wrong way, but my personal assessment of him is that he's a potential risk. He trusts only a few people in the village, and because of that, he has very little loyalty or love for the village either. As soon as Orochimaru finished his assessment, he was met with an angry and accusatory glare from Minato. What are you implying, Orochimaru? Are you saying that my son is a potential threat to his squad mates, his sensei, and possibly a threat to the village? Minato wasn't happy that Orochimaru thought of his son as a threat to the safety of his ninja and village. Menma's comment about how his brother wasn't going to be put on a team lingered in his mind. He knew that his son wasn't treated the best due to what had happened, but he wouldn't betray the village, would he? Before the question could be answered, Ujo burst through the door to the office, startling the two as they were already on their feet and in a set of combat stances but relaxed only a bit when they saw who it was, but the look on the Kunoichi's face said that it wasn't good. Hokage-sama, I need to talk to you now, it's about Naruto. Ujo said, making Minato feel a chill run down his spine as he hoped that the earlier comment made by Orochimaru had not been an omen. Flashback, Ujo had been on her way to give Naruto his present for graduation from the academy. She had found them while looking for a set of gifts for her two surrogate little brothers and thought they would be perfect for Naruto, so she purchased the twin kamas. The pair were one of a kind since they were also chakra blades, and the craftsmanship and detail on them was beautiful. She had already given Koga his gift earlier, which had been a custom wakaizashi that was also a chakra blade made by the same smith, and she wanted to make sure Naruto got his present. Heading for the one place she knew he would be since no one else knew where he was at the moment, she soon found herself at the special training spot that both Naruto and Koga used when they wanted to train by themselves or just be alone. She had found the spot by tracking Koga from a distance as to not be spotted and or picked up by him with his sensory abilities if he had any. When the boy had stopped, he had come to the clearing that she was headed for now. She had found Naruto waiting for his brother, and the two engaged in training, which had provided the perfect cover for her to slip away. Remembering the route to the spot, she soon found herself landing in the clearing. Only when she got there, she was greeted by two voices, one that she knew to be Naruto's and one that she didn't recognize at all as they talked. She only caught the last bit of the conversation before Naruto had asked for the woman he was with to sing. She gave him a look before sighing as she said okay. Ujo stilled as the woman began to sing so beautifully it could have hypnotized anyone who heard her, it seemed. As she heard the song, Ujo could almost have sworn that she heard the music to the song playing as the woman sang. Hush, child. The darkness will rise from the deep and carry you down into sleep. Child, the darkness will rise from the deep and carry you down into sleep. Guileless son, I'll shape your belief, and you'll always know that your father's a thief, and you won't understand the cause of your grief, but you'll always follow the voices beneath. Loyalty, 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 loyalty only to me. Guileless son, your spirit will hate her, the flower who married my brother the traitor, and you will expose his puppeteer behavior, for you are the proof of how he betrayed her loyalty. Loyalty, 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 loyalty only to me. Hush, child. The darkness will rise from the deep and carry you down into sleep. Child, the darkness will rise from the deep and carry you down into sleep. Guileless son, each day you grow older. Each moment I'm watching my vengeance unfold. For the child of my body, the flesh of my soul, will die in returning the birthright he stole. Loyalty, 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 loyalty only to me. Hush, child. The darkness will rise from the deep and carry you down into sleep. Child, the darkness will rise from the deep, and carry you down into sleep. When the song was finished, she heard Naruto comment that the woman had one of the most beautiful voices that he had ever heard. As said woman thanked him for the compliment, Yujao got close enough to see that Naruto had his head resting on the woman's leg as he lay on his side with the two of them sitting next to the stream that wound its way through the area. Not wanting to startle them, Yujao used the body flicker technique to leave and race full speed to get to the Hokage's office. End flashback. After reporting about what she had seen, it came as a shock when Minato's reaction was a bit underwhelming. Minato took in the knowledge about his son being with someone Yujao didn't recognize. However, that song, he did recognize. It was a lullaby from a story Kushina would read to the kids when they were little. It was a fairy tale story. Minato also knew that Kushina had hummed and even sang that lullaby to the kids many a night when they couldn't sleep or were scared. If it wasn't his wife who was singing, then who was this woman? While he was mulling this over, Orochimaru thought about what had just been shared and if this woman was a threat to the village. Then an idea struck him, and he decided to voice it. If we have Inoichi take a look at Yujao's memories, we can see who this person is, and if your wife or you know her, Minato. Very well, I will get Kushina and bring her here, Yujao. If you would be so kind as to retrieve Inoichi so we can determine what to do about this, Minato said, to which Yujao nodded her head and vanished again using body flicker. An hour and one mind walk later, whoever this woman was, none of them knew her and that she was someone either Naruto knew well or she was playing him for a fool. However, Minato doubted the second of the two as he knew very well that his son while distant had a way of knowing when and when not to trust someone. Also, Minato felt that if he didn't trust his son, it was almost in a way betraying all the work he put into trying to get back his son's trust. After having learned all they could from Yujao's memory, Minato told Inoichi he could go home. Minato offered to take Kushina home, but she told him she needed to think, and the walk home would help her do just that. Now it was just him, Orochimaru, and Yujao in his office. Seeing that Minato was feeling conflicted on this whole matter, not to mention trying to figure out just what his son was doing and who the woman was, Orochimaru decided to relent. Minato, I'll assign Naruto to a squad on the condition that. Before he could finish his statement, Yujao interrupted, saying, please, Hokage-sama, I would like to be the sensei for Naruto's squad. Minato and Orochimaru blinked at the sudden outburst, but the idea appealed to Minato, he had to admit. It would be a way to keep an eye on his son and also help make him feel at ease by being around someone who he knew well. Orochimaru would have preferred to put Anko in charge of Naruto's squad as she would be able to report on his mental state just from observation alone. The only others capable of this were himself, Jiraiya, Tsunade, Ibiki, and Shizune. But he didn't think that they should be removed from their posts for one genin, even if that genin is possibly unstable and the Hokage's son. But he did have to admit the idea of making Yujao Naruto's team sensei would be beneficial for several reasons. I know Naruto better than most in the village and can assess his mental state firsthand. I will be able to see if anything is amiss, Yujao stated, pushing for Minato's approval. Well, I think it could work if you think it is a good idea, Orochimaru stated. Minato thought about the situation deeply. On one hand, he wanted to trust his instincts that his son wasn't a threat, but considering what Orochimaru said about entrusting only a few people in the village was undoubtedly true as he knew the list of people and it was a short one. Eventually, he had to place his village over his son as much as it pained him to do so, but he would do it his way. Alright, Yujao, but I want to make two things clear. First, there will be no favoritism towards Naruto. Seeing a wry smile on her face as he paused, he could only hope that this decision doesn't come back to bite him in the ass. After all, Yujao and Anko were good friends and shared some of the same hobbies and tendencies. Second, if anything is amiss, even if it seems trivial, don't hesitate to bring it to my attention. Am I clear? That smile never left Yujao's face as she replied, 100%. Well, now that we have that settled, let's rebuild the squads then. Starting with the ones who have the most flexibility in regard to possible positions, Orochimaru said as he brought out a rooster and proceeded to highlight and circle prime individuals. As they worked through the rest of the afternoon, Minato, along with Orochimaru and Yujao when asked to give recommendations for Naruto's team, reorganized the teams to make for the best pairing that would ensure the highest rate of survival for the young genin. The day of team assignments finally came, and Naruto and his siblings arrived at the academy on time as the rest of the students filed in until the whole class was there. A little bit later, Irika walked into the room and got the class to quiet down as their conversation stopped. He began to tell them that they were going to begin their journey on the road to being great shinobi and kunoichi. Now then, Team 1 will be. And so, the long process of team assignment began. As this process went on, Naruto half listened to Irika talk while he talked with Kao about who he hoped he would be placed with on a team. Though Kao told him that it wouldn't matter who he got paired with, he would have to try and work with them, even if it was someone he didn't get along with the best. As Irika went on, he came to the squads that would have the most well-rounded genin teams. Team 7 will consist of Menma, Mito, and Narumi Uzumaki Namikaze. Your sensei will be Kakashi Hatake. At this statement, many groans and complaints rang out about the newly dubbed strongest team, Team Hokage's kids. Though the three siblings named face-palmed at the unfortunate luck of having to stick with their siblings even when out on missions, and of having to deal with their perverted and habitually late older brother figure as their sensei. After quieting down the class once more, Irika continued. Team 8 will consist of Hinata Hayaga, Kiba Inyazuka, and Shino Abarame. Your sensei, Kurane Ui. Team 9 is still in effect from last year. Team 10 will consist of Ino Yamanaka, Shikamaru Nara, and Koji Akimichi. Your sensei, Asuma Sarutobi. At that, Ino practically broke the desk she was at when her head slammed onto it, complaining about how she was put on the worst possible team, while behind her, Shikamaru muttered a quiet troublesome. His eyebrow twitching slightly at the rude behavior of his students, Irika could only sigh before continuing. Team 11 will consist of Suzuki Uchiha, Sakura Harano, and Sai. Your sensei, Raiki. Though, he was once again interrupted when Sakura rose out of her seat with a shout as she pumped a fist in the air claiming that the power of true love prevails over all obstacles as Suzuki let his head drop. For the final time, Irika could only hang his head at his students' behavior before calling out the final team. The final team would be Team 12, which will consist of Yakumo Kurama, Koga, and Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. Your sensei, Yujiro Uzuki. Irika then announced that their sensei would be coming to pick them up soon. That caught Naruto by surprise as he wondered if his dad had done this on purpose to keep an eye on him or was it his dad's way of trying to help him out. A sudden quiet seemed to fall over the room as several of the other students looked back at Naruto, before they along with the rest of the students got up and moved to group up with their respective teammates as Irika left the room, and conversations broke out among the small groups. As Koga slid over a seat to sit beside his brother, a girl with brown hair braided on one side and light brown eyes approached the two. She wore a stylish but functional purple kimono-style top that had the sleeve on the left cut short while the sleeve on the right was longer. Around her waist was a pink sash and a blue skirt underneath, and she wore red mesh leggings and a red mesh shirt. Hi, I am Yakumo Kurama, she said, giving a slight bow as she continued. It looks like we are going to be teammates. Naruto and Koga both nodded and asked her to sit next to them. As she sat down, Yakumo couldn't help thinking about Naruto. Did he really go into the forest of death like Narumi and Mito claimed he did, and if so, how had he survived? Also, if Naruto had made it out of that supposed death trap, then why was he so average? These thoughts played in her mind as she sat next to them as they waited for their sensei to arrive. Being one of the few people who hadn't been affected by the mass genjutsu, she had noticed how people just seemed to ignore Naruto, even his sisters ignored him and even avoided him at times, which she thought was weird. When she had asked Narumi why, her friend told her that every time she would get close to her brother, it was like an overwhelming sense of fear would wash over her. Yakumo had thought she was being absurd, but after having seen the way Naruto was treated by the village and his family, she was not surprised when Narumi told her that Naruto had run away. But now that he was back, it seemed like whatever had been causing Narumi to feel that sense of fear was gone. Honestly, when she had been told that it had been a genjutsu, many of the pieces that she had been missing had fallen into place, and now she knew why things had been so rough for Naruto. She had made a promise when he had gone into the forest that if he ever came back, she would befriend him, and now being put on his team gave her the opportunity to keep her promise. After half an hour of waiting, most of the teams had been picked up by their sensei, and only 3 teams were left. Then a woman with purple hair stepped through the door. Yujiro smiled as she saw her 2 surrogate younger brothers and they smiled back. As she took note of who was left, she made a mental note that if Kakashi was as late as he normally was, she was going to burn his stash of Ika Ika Paradise books while she made him watch. At that moment, somewhere in the Leaf Village, a certain masked shinobi felt a chill run up his spine as he felt that his beloved book collection was in danger. With that mental note made, she commented for Team 12 that she was their sensei and for them to follow her. As the 3 got up to follow her, Naruto made a shadow clone and gave him a piece of paper and told him to read it when after they left. The rest of his siblings and the others waiting quirked an eyebrow at what that was all about but eventually shrugged and went back to waiting. Yujiro didn't ask what the clone was all about, she simply told the 3 that she had to use the bathroom and went inside. When she did, she placed a sound seal and made a shadow clone who used the transformation jutsu to take the form of a fly. As she released the sound seal, she flushed the toilet and washed her hands to make it look real. When she walked out, the fly left as well as the 4 of them left. The fly made its way to the room where the others were waiting as she entered through the open window above the door, only to find the clone setting up an elaborate trap on the door. Only the clone and the other 3 Uzumaki Namikaze kids were left. As Yujiro's clone saw what he was doing, she approved and decided to watch the result of Naruto's trap and settled in to wait. Leading the 3 out of the school and taking them to a local park and sat down on the stone steps that lead to a small pond. Yujiro looked at each of them and said, "Okay, I want each of you." Before she could finish her statement, she was tackle-hugged to the ground by Naruto as Koga just smiled as Yakumo never thought she would see Naruto ever show so much emotion. Yujiro smiled as she got up with Naruto still hugging her. "It's good to see you, too, both of you, but you are confusing Yakumo, Yujao said as she motioned to the confused girl. Naruto scratched the back of his head and moved to sit back down. Pardon my Ototo's action, but we are close, Yujao said as she looked at her students. Yakumo was puzzled at the statement as she knew Naruto and Yujao were not related but let it slide as she recalled how the boy had hugged her, maybe she and he saw each other as family. Now, as you all already know, my name is Yujao Uzuki, and I will be your sensei. Now, I would like each of you to give your name, likes, dislikes, and goals for the future. I will start, as I have already told you my name. My likes are moon watching, Kenjutsu, my surrogate younger brothers here, and a certain someone who I will not tell you about. Naruto snickered a bit at this, but a small glare from Yujao shut him up, which caused Koga to smile at his brother's predicament as she continued. My dislikes are hypocrites, rapists, sexists, and child abusers. My dreams for the future are to marry that certain someone and training you three into great shinobi. She smiled at the end as she looked at them all. Now, who wants to go next? She asked. Naruto raised his hand only to start before she could say anything. My name is Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. My likes are ramen, training, wolves, and wanakin. My dislikes are hypocrites, rapists, sexists, child abusers, and poachers. My dream for the future is to become a strong ninja and to prove I am worth something to the rest of my family. Yujao nodded at that, knowing fully well that Naruto's resolve was not to be doubted since she also knew where his resolve came from. Koga went next as he was next in line of the group. My name is Koga Uzumaki Namikaze. My likes are ramen, training, wanakin, and shogi. My dislikes are the same as my brothers. My goal for the future is to become as strong a ninja as I can become and to find a nice girl and start a family someday. The last part of his statement surprised both Yakumo and Yujao. They would have never thought that the boy would want to start a family. After Koga finished, Yujao turned to Yakumo and said, "Looks like you're up, tell us about yourself." At this, Yakumo felt like a bug under a microscope, but it could have been worse. Yakumo knew that if she froze now, it would only show that she was not fit to be elite shinobi. My name is Yakumo Kurama, my likes are reading, training with my tutor Kurane-sensei, Machi, and being with my family. I also dislike perverts, rapists, people who mock others for stupid reasons or reasons outside of their control, and people who look down on genjutsu users. My goal is to repay Minato and Kushina-sama for helping me to subdue the Ito that was inside my mind, giving me back my life, and to surpass Kurane-sensei as a genjutsu master. Wanting to surpass Kurane, that's a tall order for sure, but this girl seems determined as heck, Yujao thought as she looked at the girl. After a moment, she looked at the three of them and commented, "Good, very good," she said, before her face turned serious. Now for you to know something. The graduation test you took last week is not the real graduation test. This caused the trio to blink in surprise. What do you mean that it wasn't the real test, Wanakin? Naruto asked, confused at her statement. Just like I said, the test you all took was not the real test. The real test has a 66% failing rate, and only 3 or 4 teams will pass, she said as she continued. Now then, I want you three to arrive at Training Ground 12 tomorrow at 7:30 a.m. sharp. Eat light, because if you don't, you'll regret it. They nodded, showing that they understood. Good, then you have the rest of the day to yourselves, she said and disappeared, leaving behind a few leaves that were blown away with the breeze. After Yujao left, the three young shinobi in training looked at each other before Naruto asked, "You two want to get some ramen or something? We can talk and learn what each of us can each do while we eat." Yakumo and Koga both nodded, and soon the three of them were off to Ichiraku Ramen. When they entered the little ramen stand, Ayam was putting down the box that she had been moving and turned to see the threesome sit down. "Naruto, it's good to see you. I was wondering when you would be back." "Oh, and this must be the rest of your team, right?" Ayam asked in her normal bright manner. "Yup, and Wanakin is our sensei," Naruto said as he picked up a menu to see what he wanted to order. "That's wonderful," she said as she opened the box that she had just set down. "It's good to see you too, Koga. How have you been lately?" Koga smiled as he replied, "Good, and you?" Ayam gave him a smile as she said, "Really good since one of my favorite customers has been back." At this, the two of them laughed. "Oh, how rude of me. My name is Ayam, and what's your name?" she asked as Yakumo looked from Naruto and Koga to Ayam. "I'm Yakumo Kurama. I take it you all know each other?" she asked as Ayam nodded an affirmative to her question. "Yup, I've known these two and the rest of their family for a long time since the whole of the Uzumaki Namikaze clan seems to love ramen," Ayam said as the two boys looked over at her with mock expressions of sarcasm on their faces. "Now, that's just not true, Ayam-chan, we don't love ramen, we just happen to like it a lot," Koga responded. Ayam, Naruto, and Koga cracked up with laughter at the statement, and even Yakumo found their laughter infectious as she too joined in their moment of humor. When the four of them finally calmed down, Ayam took their orders and served them their food. When asked about where her dad was, she told them that he was out on a supply run and would be back later. As the trio talked over their bowls, they talked about their strengths and weaknesses. They also told each other a little bit more about themselves. When all was done and they had finished their ramen and learned a little bit more about each other, as they left, the trio said that they would do their best on tomorrow's test and headed for home. Back at the academy, Kakashi was merely walking down the hall of the academy, silently reading his newest addition to his library. If one did not know who he was from the many rumors that surrounded him, people would say that he was a shinobi only for the benefits of being one. However, people who knew Kakashi knew that this was one small way of how he honored one of his friend's memories. Stopping beside the door, Kakashi could feel a small amount of killer intent rolling off all three genin. Wondering what his surrogate siblings had planned to do as punishment because of his tardiness, Kakashi created a shadow clone and had it walk through the door. After the clone disappeared and the memories came back to him, it caused him to flinch as he was now extremely glad that he created said clone. He knew he was late, but that was one thing he didn't want to repeat, be it memory or for real. What greeted his sense of sight was a semi-war zone as several different types of kunao scattered the lower and upper wall near where the clone had been. Ninja wire also scattered the floor, a little more around the middle of the small pile. Note to self, never piss off I-sensei's kids again, he thought to himself as he remembered how bad it was to have the ninja wire cutting into his genitals as it tied him up in a very painful way. Not only that, but his favorite book had been soaked in what looked like oil. Where had they even gotten the oil from? Kakashi could only guess before a match struck a hard surface before alighting the wire and his favorite book. As Kakashi walked through the door, a note was laying on the floor. The white-haired ninja bent to pick it up. When he turned the note over and read it, a chill went down his spine. Dear Kakashi, if you are reading this message, then you used a shadow clone or a substitution to take the fall for my trap, like I figured you would. Hope it was a clone so that way you at least know what it felt like since shadow clones transfer memory. This is your only warning before something bad happens to that pile of smut you call a book collection. Try to be on time from now on. Oh, and this is just me telling you what I will do, no telling what Wanikan would do to you, so if I don't burn that smut, you can bet she will or she will do something much worse. Sincerely, Naruto. P.S. And don't you bother with some lame excuse about a black cat crossing your path or how you got lost on the road to life on your way to meet your team. You are a jonin and now a sensei, act like it. At this point, two things went through Kakashi's mind as he looked up from the note. 1. Nothing could be worse than having his prized book collection be burned. He would rather die than have that happen. 2. Where was Naruto? Looking around the room to see if he could figure out where Naruto was hiding because there was no way he would miss a chance to view his handiwork in person. As he looked around, said Blonde's clone in fly form decided to have some fun as he buzzed by Kakashi's ear and landed on the back of his neck, only for the clone to be dispelled when Kakashi slapped himself on the back of the neck to try and kill the supposed fly. Ujo's clone, who had also taken a fly form, on the other hand, flew out the open window and dispelled itself where no one would see it. Kakashi thought that he must have missed and that the fly flew off to somewhere else, looking now to the three genin who were all somewhat amused by their brother's antics, even Menma. Kakashi told them to meet him on the roof and that he would be waiting before disappearing in a puff of smoke. When Naruto got the memory from his clone and the look on Kakashi's face, he found he couldn't stop grinning as they continued to walk home. Koga noticed this and asked, "What's so funny?" To which Naruto replied, "Nothing, I just remembered something that I found funny, that's all." When morning came, Naruto woke early and got ready for the test that day as he headed for the bathroom while he still had the chance. When you live in a house with 4 other siblings, the line for the shower can get long, but as luck would have it, the Uzumaki Namikaze estate had 3 bathrooms, 2 of which were for the kids, and the third was the master bath that was off of Minato and Kushina's room. After a quick shower, Naruto dressed in his new clothes and headed for the kitchen to get something light for breakfast. As he entered the kitchen, he found Koga already there, eating a small bit of fruit salad. His brother had made 2 bowls, one of which he pushed over to the seat next to him. Naruto smiled and accepted the bowl, which he ate with gusto. One thing that Naruto knew was that his brother might not have been as good as their mom, but he was still pretty good when it came to cooking, if you could call fruit salad cooking. After they finished their meal, the 2 boys got the rest of their gear that they would need for the test. Strapping their kunao pouches and such into place, they both headed for the front door, only for Kushina to be waiting by it. When she saw them, she smiled and hugged them as she told them, "Good luck and do your best." With that, she stepped back and watched as they walked out the door and headed to Training Ground 12. Along the way, Yakumo met up with the 2 brothers, and the trio made their way to the training ground together. When they got to the training ground, it happened that they were about 20 minutes early, but that didn't bother the 3 as they knew they were going to be early when they had left for the training ground when they did. Since they had a bit of time to burn, Koga took out a small storage scroll and unsealed a shogi game that was already in progress and sat down with Naruto sitting opposite him to finish the match. Yakumo sat down next to them and asked when they had started the game, to which Naruto replied, "Last night." While this was going on, Ujo watched from a tree in the forest of the training ground, pleased that her team had shown up early. It showed that they took this seriously. Having shown up about 5 minutes before her team, Ujo had wanted to get some peace and quiet to herself, but she didn't mind sharing it with the young genin as she wanted to see how they would act without her around. And so far, it seemed like her team got on just fine. Little did she know that Naruto had picked up on her chakra when they had arrived there. He just didn't tell the others because why spoil the look that he would get from his one-chan when he told her he knew where she was the whole time. After 20 minutes had passed, Yujeo entered the clearing of the training ground and walked over to her team. "It's good to see you all here, and early. That is also good, that means that you take this seriously," Yujeo said as she looked at the three genin. "Come on, One-chan, you were in the trees the whole time watching us," Naruto stated, which made Yujeo and Yakumo blink and stare at him while Koga just smiled, knowing full well that his brother was a sensory type and that compared to Naruto, Koga wouldn't even come close to matching his skill in this field. Though he knew how to sense chakra, his sensing abilities were not as sharp as Naruto's. Yujeo was slightly in shock at the fact that Naruto was able to sense her like it was something casual, but then again, this is Naruto after all. The boy who defies logic, she thought to herself. "Okay, since it seems that everyone is obviously ready to start, let's go over the rules," Yujeo said as she pulled 2 silver bells from her pocket and dangled them in front of her genin. "The rules to this test are simple, all you have to do is get these bells from me before the timer runs out," she stated, setting a clock timer on the stump that she stood next to, said clock already ticking. "If none of you get a bell by lunch, then you will be tied to one of the 3 stumps while I eat my lunch, and after that, you will have a second chance to get the bells. If you fail, then you will be sent back to the academy," Yujeo stated, attaching the bells to her belt. This made Yakumo flinch while Koga just frowned, thinking to himself that there were only 2 bells and that would mean that no matter who got the bells, one of them would be going back to the academy, which would mean that this test was not truly about the bells. If that was the case, then it had to be about something else. Naruto was already thinking the same thing and had already come to the conclusion that the test was about what they could do as a team, not who got the bells. If that was the case, then they needed to work out a plan and fast. "Oh, and one last thing, come at me with everything you have because if you don't, you won't win," Yujeo stated, looking the 3 of them in the eyes, and the test already started. At this, the 3 genin scattered into the trees. Once in the trees, Naruto and Koga decided that they needed to meet up with Yakumo, but it would be too easy for Yujeo to find them if they grouped up. So, they both made shadow clones and sent them to where they could sense her chakra was coming from. Yakumo was crouched behind a tree that gave her a view of Yujeo that was uninterrupted. She needed a plan to get one of the bells from her sensei or she was headed back to the academy, and she had worked too hard for it all to be for nothing. While she had been focused on what was in front of her, she missed Naruto and Koga's clones as they came up behind her, startling her, which caused Yakumo to squeak, or that would have been the case if not for the fact that Naruto's clone clamped his hand over her mouth. "Think you can give a girl a warning next time?" Yakumo asked, staring at them like she was going to kill them herself. "I nearly had a heart attack. Sorry, but this was the easiest way to fill you in on what's up with this test," Koga's clone stated, which made Yakumo frown. "The test is all about getting the bells," Yakumo claimed like it was so obvious. "No, the bells may be part of the test, but they aren't the true goal of the test," Naruto's clone stated. "The true test is about working together as a team to get the bells. But there are only 2 bells," Yakumo countered, "so even if we work as a team, one of us will be headed back to the academy. That's the point of the test. The bells are to divide us so we focus more about ourselves than our teammates," Koga's clone replied. Yakumo blinked at this and face-palmed at the fact that she fell for something as simple as this, but that was the whole point, the simplest tricks were the ones that worked best. "Okay, so what's the plan then?" Yakumo asked, hoping that the brothers had something up their sleeves. "I think it's time we pull a sneaky fox," Naruto's clone commented, to which Yakumo raised an eyebrow while Koga's clone just chuckled, looking at the other clone. "A sneaky fox?" Yakumo questioned, her mind drawing a blank at the phrase. "Do you really think it will work? I mean, we haven't pulled one of those in a long time," Koga's clone asked, to which Naruto just smiled. "What's a sneaky fox?" Yakumo asked, starting to get annoyed. "That's why I am sure it will work. After all, we never really pulled one on One-chan," Naruto's clone said, still holding his smile. "Okay, that's it. What is a sneaky fox?" Yakumo hissed out, drawing both of her teammates' attention. "Have you ever heard the phrase, 'the wolf is in the henhouse'?" Koga's clone asked Yakumo. Yakumo frowned at this, after all, it was a common saying, replying, "Of course, who hasn't?" "Well, while the wolf is making a scene out in the henhouse, as the farmer runs outside, the fox sneaks in and steals dinner off the table," Naruto's clone answered. Yakumo had to admit it was a solid plan, but would it work? Their sensei was a jonin after all. Would she fall for such a simple ploy? If it was that simple, then this test wouldn't have such a high failure rate. But if the point of the test was to see if the team could work together, then they had already passed the test. "So, who is the fox and who is the wolf?" Yakumo asked, still not sure about how this plan was going to work out. "The wolf here is actually 2 wolves, and that is just the start," Naruto's clone said as the trio hatched their plan. After 25 minutes of standing there, Yujeo was starting to think that her 3 students were getting cold feet and were not sure if they should make a move. But she knew Naruto better than that. He wouldn't run, he would try to find a way to fight back. However, before she could go further down that rabbit hole of thought, Yakumo stepped out of the woods alone. This, of course, made Yujao start to shake her head, but stopped when she saw that something was wrong. Yakumo was holding her head in both her hands as she stumbled forward as a purple haze flowed from her mouth as it solidified into a humanoid form. She had read about this. Yakumo had a being inside her known as the Ito, and it was so strong that the genjutsu it cast could cause real damage. Yujao knew she had to act fast if she wanted to protect her student, but when she tried to get close, she was restrained by a tree that sprang up out of the ground to wrap its limbs around her. Looking on at her student who was about to be killed, a piece of information popped into her head that she had read from the girl's file about the Ito. The file had said that the being had been absorbed by her so that she no longer had to worry about it running rampant anymore, so that it couldn't hurt anyone like it tried to do with her parents. Yujao now understood what was going on. This was a distraction in the form of a genjutsu, which she knew how to break out of. Releasing the genjutsu, however, brought her back to her senses and also brought her face to face with a small group of Naruto clones running straight at her. This surprised her at the fact that she had not expected Naruto and Yakumo to work together. If anything, she had thought that the brothers would have teamed up since they knew her fighting style well enough that they could have had a small chance at beating her. She was even more surprised at how fast and strong Naruto had gotten since she had last seen him before he went into Training Ground 44. The group of clones was actually pressing her hard with their combined attacks and had even gotten in a few good hits. When did he get so strong, she thought to herself as Naruto's next strike was blocked. The one thing that Yujao knew though was that she was always better at Kenjutsu as she cut down clone after clone, only for the real Naruto to pull back and run through a set of hand signs for a jutsu. As 4 of the Naruto clones formed up, throwing shuriken at her as the real Naruto called out, "Wind style, Gale Palm." A blast of wind shot from his hands which propelled the shuriken even faster to their target. Yujao would have dodged out of the way of this attack if not for the shout of "Wind style, great breakthrough." Coming from behind her as a Naruto clone sent a strong gust of wind at her back, which sent her hurtling straight towards the oncoming shuriken. The shuriken impacted with their target, only for her to vanish in a puff of smoke. As the real Yujao came up from the ground next to the clone who had just hit her and cut him down. Turning to Naruto, she smiled as she heard a twig break behind her. She ducked Yakumo's strike and used the girl's momentum as she grabbed her arm and threw her at Naruto. Naruto raised his hands as Yakumo did a quick flip so her foot was aimed at Naruto's palms, which she used as a springboard to propel herself back at her sensei. She locked eyes with her for a short bit as Yujao leaned back, which allowed Yakumo to pass straight over and past her. Doing a quick roll on the landing to burn off the momentum, she came up in a crouch as her long sleeve came back to reveal a wrist-mounted senbon launcher firing 5 senbon at Yujao. As she came up, the senbon hit their mark, only for it to be a Naruto clone that disappeared in a puff of smoke. The real Yujao stood where the now-gone Naruto clone used to be. She smiled as she said, "Congratulations to you and Yakumo for coming up with a solid plan, but you're going to have to do better than that." As soon as these words left her mouth, a smoke bomb hit her from behind and caused her to stumble. Recovering her balance, she felt a tug at the spot where the bells were located. As she darted out of the smoke cloud, she looked down to see that both bells were still there, but now Koga was standing with Naruto and Yakumo. Yujao smiled that the three had worked out this little plan. Yujao shook her head as she looked at the trio and said, "Well, I guess that this means that the 3 of you can work together." "That means you." She trailed off as a small red fox ran up to Koga to have it scurry up his leg and end up sitting on his shoulder with both bells in its mouth. She looked down to see that both bells were missing now. Yujao blinked as the fox lowered its head as Koga reached up to take the bells from its mouth. Nodding at it, the little fox jumped down from his shoulder and vanished in a puff of smoke. When she saw this, she smiled. Well played indeed." "So, who are you giving the other bell to?" Yujao questioned. Koga looked at her, then tossed the bells to Naruto and Yakumo who caught them and in turn tossed them back to Yujao who caught the bells and smiled at this outcome. "We did this as a team. If you send one of us back, you send all of us back," Naruto stated as Yakumo and Koga stepped up to stand next to him, showing they agreed with his statement. "Very well, you all pass," Yujao said, making the 3 teammates smile. "You 3 are now officially Team 12. Take the rest of the day off because tomorrow the real training and work starts." The trio asked Yujao if she would join them for a meal to commemorate them becoming a team, to which she said that she would meet them later for food. Right now, she had to make a report to the Hokage and left using body flicker. Yujao arrived at the Hokage's office to find several other Jonin there as well as the Hokage. As she looked around, she noticed that Kakashi was not there as the meeting started with each sensei who had been given a team making their report about if their team of genin passed or failed the test they were given. One by one, the sensei presented their reports. When about half of the sensei had made their reports, Kakashi showed up and waved to everyone with a casual yo, like he wasn't just showing up a half hour late. Turning to the Hokage, he continued, "Sorry, I'm late. I got lost on the road of life." This statement caused everyone, including Minato, to facepalm. Really, Kakashi? Asuma said as he shook his head after getting back to his feet. That excuse is so old, nobody is using it anymore. Heck, most people don't even remember that one. I smiled nervously as he scratched behind his head. So, Kakashi, how did they do? Minato said with a sigh, while Kakashi gave his report. They passed. Not that I was expecting any other result. I mean, they are your kids after all. The masked Jonin said as he smiled. Team 12 also passed, Hokage-sama. They were pretty good for a couple of rookies. Their teamwork was well executed, but the most surprising thing was Naruto. At that statement, everyone's attention was focused on Eugeo. Minato's eyebrow raised at her statement, and he asked if she could continue, which she did. I knew he was fast, but since he came back from the Forest of Death, that kid is faster than ever. And I mean fast. I'd estimate that in terms of pure speed, he's at least Haichunin to low Jonin. But that's not all, he hits pretty flippin' hard too. Lifting the sleeves of her shirt, Eugeo showed the light-colored bruises that spotted her arm. These were from Naruto. I'm not joking when I say he actually pushed me hard. The first move he made was a kick to the head, and I'm sure if I hadn't dodged it, I'd be in the hospital with a concussion right now. At the end of her report, everyone in the room was silent. The supposed most average kid of the academy managed to actually make the famed sword mistress of the Leaf fight him like she meant it. That sent a shock through their systems as well as curiosity as to what else he could have been hiding. Minato knew that he had to get to the bottom of that mystery when he got the chance, though he doubted he would get very far since Naruto still didn't trust him fully, or most of the family for that matter. Thank you, everyone. For the genin who didn't pass, please notify them that they will be put on reserve until they are placed on a team, alright? That's all I have. Thank all of you for your reports, and meet me tomorrow for your squad's first mission. The next few weeks went by in a flash as the newly minted Team 12 was put through the ringer. Eugeo set a grueling pace, as by the end of the first week of their second month, they had completed their 35th D-ranked mission. This fact astounded the other Jonin sensei. Instead of the usual 2 to 5 missions a week, Eugeo made her team complete a minimum of at least 7 missions a week. These missions included finding the daimyo's wife's cat, babysitting, running errands, catching the daimyo's wife's cat, helping a family move because the father had thrown his back out, helping the elderly ladies who needed someone to carry their groceries, finding lost items, and chasing down the damn cat. During their training, she rotated them between the 6 different topics, which covered chakra control, taijutsu, kenjutsu, ninjutsu, genjutsu, and their many types and facets as well as team tactics. They would need to be well versed in each of these, the practice of which was beginning to shape them into a jack-of-all-trades sort of team, which Eugeo had been planning on making them. Better to be safe than sorry was her train of thought, as she wanted her squad to be prepared for anything that could happen in the future. Plus, Eugeo didn't want to be stuck doing D-ranks any longer than she had to be. Yakumo, who due to her slightly more frail body, was having a hard time with the physical exercises during training. Eugeo made sure to check and see if she was alright if she thought she was in danger, but she was beginning to get physically stronger with every session, to the joy of her parents and the pride of Eugeo. Kurane, who was Yakumo's former trainer, even said that she was beginning to lose her pale and weak complexion and gain a more lively and strong one, which made said Kunoichi blush when she heard these words. On days off, the team would often meet up for a meal or head to the training grounds for some sparring matches to see how far they had come with their training, which was why Eugeo now knew that her genin were ready for their first C-ranked mission. Congratulations for another mission well done, Team 12. I assume that you want another mission, correct? Minato asked, handing the completed report to his assistant to be filed later. Koga's right eye started twitching at the thought of doing more chores as he tried to keep his cool. Yakumo sighed, knowing that they'd be doing more manual labor in the coming hours. Naruto retained his blank look, but his eyes darkened a bit. Minato noticed the glint in Eugeo's eyes and immediately knew what kind of mission she was going to ask for. We sure are, Hokage-sama. I think my cute little genin are ready for their first C-rank mission. We've completed the minimum number of 30 D-ranked missions, and I know that they'll be able to handle it. As the words left Eugeo's mouth, Koga's lips broke into a slight smirk. Yakumo's eyes widened in excitement as she straightened her back and put on a determined face. Naruto's face still remained blank, but there was a little excitement in his eyes. Seeing the look of determination and excitement on the faces of the genin, Minato could only sigh and relent, smiling. He agreed. You're right, Eugeo, your squad has gone above and beyond when completing your missions, so I think you've earned this. Minato said with pride as he handed Eugeo a mission scroll. It's a simple escort mission, but I think your team will be able to handle it. Alisa-san, could you please let in Tajuna-san? Turning towards the door, Minato called out to the secretary to let in their client. The door soon opened to reveal a gray-haired, bespectacled man. As soon as he reached them, he turned and gave them his evaluation of them. I thought I paid to hire a team to escort me, not 2 boys, a little girl, and a woman. I bet those 3 kids haven't even touched a weapon and that woman hasn't been in a real fight, Tajuna said as he took a gulp from a small bottle of sake. At this comment, Yakumo frowned, definitely not liking how he was implying that women were weak. Naruto and Koga tried their best not to react, but they did clench their hands slightly. It turned out, however, they wouldn't have to because in the blink of an eye, Yujiro was in front of the old man with a kunai ready to take his manhood. Tajuna-san, insult me or my cute genin again, and you will be returning to Wave Country in 2 pieces. Yujiro said with a smile on her face that one could only guess she learned from Anko. Before things could escalate any further, Minato immediately narrowed his eyes at Tajuna as he kept his voice level and spoke. Face-palming before he sighed, Minato looked up and addressed the older man. Tajuna-san, I would appreciate it if you don't insult the people that will be escorting you. The ninja before you are more than capable of protecting you. This is one of my best teams, and Yujiro is one of my top kunoichi, as it just so happens she is an ex-Umbu member. At that information, Tajuna and Yakumo both looked shocked, while Naruto and Koga just smiled, having known this for a long time since the 3 of them were close. Tajuna was shocked because he had someone of such caliber protecting him, and Yakumo because she didn't know that her sensei had held such a prestigious position. At all the attention she was getting, Yujiro couldn't help but blush slightly. Geez, it's not like I am some sort of superhuman or something, many other kunoichi have made it to such a position before, she said with a grin, rubbing the back of her head in embarrassment. Eventually, the tense atmosphere before returned to a tranquil one, Yujiro directing her genin. Alright, my cute little genin, we're meeting tomorrow at the main gate to head towards the land of waves. From the mission details, we're going to be escorting and guarding Tajuna-san while the wave complete a bridge. So, pack enough supplies for at least a month to be safe, alright? After her instructions, her genin nodded, and they were all dismissed. As Naruto walked out of his office, Minato quickly called out to him. Stopping near the door, Naruto turned around to face him. Naruto, please be safe out there, okay? Expecting him to just nod, Minato was surprised when Naruto responded to him, I will be, thank you. Naruto said before he exited the room, leaving Minato to smile slightly before he returned to his paperwork. That night after dinner, while Kushina was doing the dishes, she seemed to be distracted, as it had taken Minato 3 times just to get her attention. She couldn't help but wonder about what was happening with her sons. The unexpected conversation she had with the Nine-Tails still replaying in her thoughts. Flashback. The walk and the fresh air were helping Kushina, but not as much as she would have liked. She didn't know what to do or how to react to what had been happening since Naruto got back. Every time she thought she was making progress with him on getting him to open up, something would come up and make her think that she was even more in the dark about where she stood in her relationship with her son. The news about this woman Naruto was seen with was just another in a long list of things that were piling up to add to the mountain of questions that surrounded what happened with her son. Would Naruto ever open up to her and the rest of the family? Where had he gotten his summon contract? Who was this strange woman? How did she know Naruto? Would they ever be able to all be a true family again like they had been before all of this? All these questions and more were going through her head as dusk was settling onto the village, and yet she couldn't help but think that this would not be the last time she would hear about something that happened with her son that he was keeping secret from them. In fact, now that she was thinking about it more, she realized Koga was the only person who out of the whole family could claim to know Naruto the best, and even he was in the dark on some things as far as she knew and from what she had seen. As she was lost in her thought, she started to hear laughter, low at first and then getting louder and louder, as it seemed that only she was the one hearing it, as no one else who was out walking seemed to notice anything of the sort. Only to hear a low, deep voice that seemed to come from inside her head, if only you knew the truth about what has been happening to your family and how it is connected to how I was sealed away all those years ago. The voice said, not needing to put much effort into trying to sound ominous, as the voice itself took care of that. Next thing Kushina knew, she was in her mindscape, staring at the nine-tailed fox himself. What do you want? She asked, annoyed. Would she ever be rid of this blasted pain in the neck, fox? Nothing really, I just thought I should tell you that what happened all those years ago and what has been happening now aren't just mere coincidences. The fox said, smiling. Well, duh, it was no coincidence. The masked man wanted your power and my husband sealed you into 4 of my kids, case closed. She said, only for the fox to start laughing again. You really think that's all that happened? Oh, the irony of it all, that you don't even notice it, is even more delicious than the fact that it is right in front of you. The Nine-Tails said as he mocked her, laughing himself to death, or at least Kushina hoped he would. How are you even talking to me? You were forced out of me and sealed in my kids. Kushina questioned the fox, shooting him a look of contempt. I can talk to you because you once housed my being inside your body. Also, for the fact that a very small amount of my chakra lingers in your body, which is not only making it easier to communicate with you, but it is also how you were able to live through what happened all those years ago. Some of my chakra remains sealed in you through sheer force of will, though only the smallest bit, the QB stated, still having the cat that ate the canary smile on his face. I think a little thank you is in order. If not for my chakra, you would have died that night. Not on your life, so what now? You come to taunt me with the fact that you can bug me whenever you want? Or maybe you came to tell me that if this small amount of chakra is removed from my body that I will die. You should know me better than that. After all, you were my host for a good long while, the fox said, reminding her of the time she had spent as his host. And no, the amount of my chakra that lingers in your body is not enough to kill you if it were to be removed, but it would hurt like hell, I assume. If you have a point, please get to it already, Kushina said, getting really irritated by the fox taunting her with what it knew. Well, since you put it that way, you should know that my chakra was sealed into 5 vessels, not 4, if that gives you any hint. Kushina blinked as the Kyuubi went on. Naruto isn't the only one of your sons hiding something. It's another reason why they are so close and yet another reason for why Naruto left the way he did. Naruto left because he was being ignored by us and almost the whole village due to a genjutsu, but he came back, and we are trying to fix things with him, she shot back as the fox gave away nothing in his expression. And what are you talking about? Minato sealed your chakra into 4 of my kids. Kind of makes you sound like your memory is going bad. That is where you are only half right. Naruto left for more than one reason, and as for what happened the night I was sealed, who else would be able to tell you where my chakra was sealed better than me, the fox asked, not giving her a chance to answer as he went on. Your sons are hiding more than you know, but don't take my word for it. After all, who would know them better than their mother, right? The fox said as he faded Cheshire Cat style, leaving behind his eyes to fade last. Flashback end. Kushina. Minato called for the 3rd time. Blinking, she looked over at her husband who finally got her attention. Oh yes, what is it, honey, are you okay because you've been washing the same dish for over 4 minutes now? Minato questioned as Kushina finally noticed that he was waiting for her to pass him the dish so he could dry it off. Oh, sorry, I was lost in thought. Kushina responded as Minato just smiled and took the dish from his wife. I can see that, so Ryo for your thoughts, Minato asked, smiling at his wife. Haha, very funny, Minato. Kushina shot back. No, really, I am serious, tell me what has you spacing out so hard, Minato said, looking at his wife with a look of worry in his eyes as he set the dish down now that it was dry. It's Naruto, Kushina stated, looking at Minato. Every time I think we are getting closer to being a normal family again, something comes out of left field and makes me feel like it's next to impossible. Kushina, Naruto has his secrets, as do we all, but he will open up to us when he is ready. Forcing him isn't going to help, and it will only make things worse if we try to pressure him into telling us, Minato stated as Kushina seemed to tense up a bit. But what do we do if he won't talk to us? Kushina questioned. We do the one thing that we can do, be here for him when he needs us. When he needs someone to listen, someone to talk to, someone to confide in, and most importantly, be here when he needs a home and when he needs love. It's the most important thing that we should have been doing from the start, Minato stated as he moved to hug his wife. But we failed him, Kushina sobbed as tears welled up in her eyes. We left him to fend for himself, we treated him as if he weren't even here, and when he needed us the most, we acted horribly. How are we supposed to fix that? She asked with a pleading look in her eyes as tears started to run down her cheeks. Besides that, the only person Naruto is likely to talk to of anyone in this family is Koga, as he was the only one of us not affected by that cursed genjutsu. We may not be able to undo what has already happened, but we can change how we act and what we do in the future, Minato stated, wiping the tears from Kushina's eyes. Naruto has a place to come back to, we have made sure that he knows that. Not only that, but we have been working hard to get back his trust, and he knows it. All we can do now is do the best we can and hope that the rest will work itself out in time. Minato finished, still holding Kushina tight as he stroked her hair. Kushina couldn't help but think that all they could do wouldn't be enough to help in the situation with Naruto. Opting not to bring up the conversation that she had with Kyuubi about Naruto and that he may not be the only one who was hiding things from them. This thought made her think that if things get any farther out of control, she didn't know how her family would be able to pull through in one piece. The next day, Team 12 had all assembled at the main gate. Yakumo had her eyes closed with an excited smile on her face as she hummed a little tune, while Naruto and Koga looked at the forest through the gate with a set of matching expressions of both excitement and anticipation. After a few minutes, Tajuna arrived, followed by Yujao, who after seeing the looks of her genin, couldn't help but smile. Well, it looks like the 3 of you are excited to leave on this mission, huh? Well, let's get to it then. As she gave her orders, she received a unanimous hi from her genin as they headed towards the land of waves. After a few hours of travel had gone by, Yujao noticed that Tajuna looked more tense than an escort client should be. It was almost as if he was marked for death. Then she noticed a large puddle ahead and narrowed her eyes. A puddle? It hasn't rained around here in the last few days, definitely has to be genjutsu. But maybe this'll be a good test to see how they handle a situation under pressure. If things start to turn, I'll step in. After making the decision of letting her team handle things, Yujao walked on the puddle as chains wrapped around her and ripped her to pieces, to the horror of her genin and Tajuna. The chains retracted as 2 cloaked figures rose out of the puddle and ready to charge at the group, claw-like gauntlets raised to strike. One down. one of the cloaked figures said as they approached the group. Yakumo froze. She thought her sensei was one of the best in the village. If she had got taken down that easily, then what good would she be against these two? Swallowing her fear, she dodged one of the cloaked figures as he lunged at her with his gauntlet. Seeing Yakumo in trouble, Koga immediately threw a volley of shuriken at her attacker, managing to get his attention long enough for Yakumo to kick him away as she fired her senbon launcher at him, which scored a hit as the projectiles hit his shoulder. While Koga and Yakumo were occupied with one of the cloaked figures, the other one charged at Naruto and Tajuna. Tajuna was scared. He had just seen an ex-Umbu member get ripped to pieces like it was nothing, and now he was going to see a couple of kids get killed before he died. The two who had teamed up were managing to hold off one of them, but the blonde alone wasn't going to hold off the other one all by himself. As the other attacker approached, Tajuna could only watch in shock and awe as the blonde-headed kid actually stopped his attacker. Miyaizu couldn't believe what had just happened. A kid stopped his attack with a single comma. A comma against his gauntlet shouldn't have been a match, but somehow this kid was holding him at bay. Jumping back, he readied himself to strike again. As Miyaizu lunged at him, Naruto, having already put the comma back, flashed through a set of hand signs. Fire style, Dragon Flame Jutsu, as the fire spilled from his mouth and raced for the target, engulfing him in flames, only for a burnt log to fall to the ground, smoking and charred as the real target was standing off to the side, only for Naruto to appear before him, ready to strike. Judging from the shock of his opponent, he didn't expect that to happen. Oh well, Naruto thought as he went for the finishing blow, spinning and connecting his elbow to the left side of Miyaizu's body. A sickening snap echoed across the road as Miyaizu fell to the ground, gasping for a breath and clutching the side of his body in great pain. However, Naruto didn't let up with his assault as he turned around and struck the back of Miyaizu's head, his opponent's head impacting the ground with a dull thud. Gozu couldn't believe his eyes when he saw his older brother hit the ground, holding his side. He didn't expect a kid to be skilled enough to handle his brother, let alone beat him, but his distraction cost him as a kick connected to his stomach, making him gasp for air. However, when he opened his eyes, he found himself lost in a thick mist that seemed to be impossible to see through. As Naruto finished dealing with his opponent, Yakumo had finished the signs to her jutsu as Koga managed to land a kick to Gozu's midsection. Staring right at Gozu, Yakumo whispered, "Phantom Mist Jutsu." Seeing her opponent's look of confusion as he seemed to look around like he had no idea of where he or anyone else was, Yakumo knew that it had worked. As Koga was about to strike again, he saw his opponent's confusion and knew that Yakumo's jutsu had worked. Changing where he would strike, Koga tightened his hold on his wakaizashi and smashed the hilt into the back of the man's neck. The attacker went down in a crumpled heap. To say Yujao was shocked would be an understatement. Not only had her team managed to hold off enemy ninja, but they also managed to hold their own against two Chunin-ranked opponents. While she was extremely impressed with Yakumo and Koga's teamwork, she was shocked when she saw how efficiently and brutally the three of them had taken down their opponents, especially Naruto, as he had taken one on by himself. Dropping from her observation point in the tree she had been hiding in, she clapped her hands as her three students and client looked to her. "Well done, you three, well done. Now, do you believe that my genin can keep you safe in the big, bad world, Tajuna-san?" Yujao asked, looking at him with a smile on her face. The four of them just stared at her, two in amusement and two in disbelief. "What?" she asked, looking at them like it was no big deal that she was alive. "Why you died," Yakumo stammered. "We saw you get ripped to pieces and..." She stopped as the two brothers didn't seem to be surprised at what was happening before it finally clicked in her mind what had happened. She looked back and saw where her sensei had once stood, now lay a pile of wood that was shredded to pieces. "It was a substitution," Yakumo said as the two brothers couldn't help but crack a smile at how she was reacting to the situation. "Yes, it was. Sorry, but I wanted to see how you three handle yourselves in a real fight, and I was ready to step in if need be," Yujao answered, cracking a smile at how the group was reacting. "So, it was a test?" Naruto asked as Yujao looked at him as her smile changed from one of pride to one of sincerity. "Yes, Ototo, it was a test. Sorry, but I needed to know how you three would do on your own, and you all did wonderfully," Yujao stated as she looked over the two rogue ninja who attacked them. "Now, if you will excuse me, I need to have a talk with these two," she said as she took the two bodies of the two ninja who had attacked them away into the forest for a nice long chat once they both woke up. As the three genin watched over their charge, the trio kept watch for any and all threats. As they did, Tajuna seemed to relax just the slightest bit, if only just a bit. As they all waited for the jonin to return, each of them was wondering what she was doing, and yet at the same time, they all had the same thought that they didn't want to know. Deeper into the forest, said jonin was taking her time as she had woken the rogue ninja and was squeezing them for every drop of info she could get. As she finished with one of them, letting him look forward to his next session with her, she walked over to his brother. Bending over to lift his head, looking down at him, she smiled and whispered into his ear, "This all can be over quickly, or we can keep going for the rest of the night." she purred as he looked at her with a mix of fear, hate, resignation, and what she thought was despair in his eyes as Yujao smiled sweetly before continuing, "The choice is yours." As this phrase left her lips, Goza sneered at her and responded, "Do your worst. You're going to kill me anyway once we're done, so get on with it. You're wasting your time." A note of defiance in his tone. "My worst? Oh, sweet thing," she said in a seductive voice as she paused. Her smile turned into something that she could have only learned from Anko. "I can assure you that only the best is yet to come." It took some time for Yujao to return, as she had been thorough in her interrogation of the Demon Brothers of the Mist. But when she did come back, she marched straight for their client with a hint of anger in her eyes. "Look here, Tajuna-san, I know that this has definitely escalated from a C-rank escort mission. You mind telling me why the Demon Brothers of the Mist attacked us when we're just supposed to be keeping you safe from bandits?" Yujao questioned, a scary and angry glint flashing in her eyes at the audacity of the man to put her genin in danger. Tajuna almost immediately went down to his knees and begged her for forgiveness and to help him, telling them all about the situation in the Land of Waves, about how a crime lord, Gato, has taken over and now holds control over the people of the Wave with an iron fist. He explained that a C-rank mission was the most that they could afford with the allotted funds from the few villagers who had extra to spare. As he finished, he pleaded with them again to help him, that they would repay them in the future when the Wave was back on its feet. Yujao heard the sob story and couldn't help but feel pity towards the man and his village, yet at the same time, she knew what was supposed to be done. According to code, she was to abandon the mission and report Tajuna to Minato and have his name blacklisted for lying about the details and requesting a false mission. Deciding that she couldn't make this decision alone, and that it was her genin's first time outside of the village, she asked them, "Well, you all heard what he said. What do you think? Remember, it's okay to not continue, it's a dangerous mission and one that is higher than the rank you guys are cleared for." Yujao asked, her unusually gentle. Naruto knew that tone, it was one she had used with him whenever he had run off and she had caught him. She didn't get an answer right away. She didn't blame the three, they had heard that Gato kidnapped women and girls and forced them into the entertainment business. Finally, she received a response from one of the team, but the response wasn't one she or anyone else was expecting from him. Wanikan-sensei, Naruto said to Yujao, knowing that she would get him back for it later once they were back home. "We are going on this mission. We're going to escort Tajuna-san to Wave, and he's going to complete that bridge. Then, we're going to find Gato's thugs and make them pay. Finally, we're going to find Gato himself and kill him." Naruto started out quietly, but near the end, he raised his voice as his eyes burned with so much fury that the rest of them were a little shaken by it, even Koga. But as quickly as it came, it left, Naruto's face returning to a calm state, though they could tell how he felt from the small scowl now on his face. While she was shaken by his response at first, Yakumo steadied and found her resolve, agreeing with her teammate, though not about the killing part entirely. Koga didn't even have to be asked as he nodded. He would follow his brother's call, knowing that it would be dangerous, but that with what he and Naruto were able to do combined with their Wanikan's experience and skill, plus Yakumo's abilities, they were more than ready to handle this. Seeing the now determined faces of her genin, she could only smile at them for wanting to help Tajuna, though she was a little scared of Naruto's proclamation. Most of all, though, she was scared that her genin had just bitten off more than they can chew and that it would end up being the death of them. She had known him for years, and ever since Naruto came home, he was different, but at the same time, she saw how her Ototo acted the same as he had before he left for the Forest of Death. She knew some things may have changed, but deep down he was the same old Naruto she remembered, and that was good enough for her, at least that was what she wanted to believe. Out of all the people who she ever knew, Naruto was the one person who never seemed to change what he believed in. Even more so since he had come home, she saw it in his eyes, a resolve to make a difference, to change things so that other people would have a better future, as well as making a better future for himself. So, his sudden proclamation that he was going to kill Gato made her flinch on the inside. He wasn't actually going to kill anyone, was he? Putting that thought from her mind, she returned to the task at hand. She would have time to get lost in her thoughts later when they weren't on mission. Seeing the team come to a consensus to assist him and his people, Tajuna could only lower his head and repeatedly whisper, "Thank you," as tears streamed down his face. After their vote, the group pressed on toward the Land of Waves. After a few more hours of travel, they finally reached a checkpoint where a friend of Tajuna's lent them his boat. While on the boat, Yakumo began to ponder what Wave Country was like and why their own land shinobi didn't handle the problem. "Sensei, if this Gato is such a threat, why don't Wave's own shinobi take care of him? I mean, wouldn't it be easier than paying us?" she asked, eliciting an amused look from her sensei. "The reason is that Wave doesn't have a shinobi village," Yujao explained, adding, "due to its isolated location and natural defenses, the existence of a shinobi village here isn't really necessary given the nature and layout of the land." Before she could ask more questions, the man steering the boat hissed a warning that they were nearing Wave territory and needed to be silent as they didn't know who might be nearby. After they disembarked, they thanked the boatman and wished him safe travels. They continued on their way, with only about an hour and a half of travel left to Tajuna's home. As they walked down the well-worn road, Yujao began to feel as though someone was tailing them, but she couldn't pinpoint who it was. On guard but attributing the feeling to being in unfamiliar territory, she pushed the thought to the back of her mind. Naruto, however, had also sensed someone. It was faint, as the person was trying to conceal their chakra to remain undetected. This made it difficult for Naruto to pinpoint their location when a second chakra signature suddenly flared to the right a little ways away. Naruto didn't hesitate and threw a kunao at the bush where the signature had appeared, only for it to vanish before the kunao struck its target. On cue, a small white rabbit scurried out of the bushes in a panic. "Naruto, please be more careful. You really scared me. I thought it was another enemy." Yakumo scolded him, though politely. "Well done, kid, you saved me from being attacked by a rabbit," Tajuna mocked. Naruto shot a glare at the old man as his thoughts were interrupted by Kao, who commented, "If we didn't have to protect this guy, I would seriously consider following through on Urana-chan's threat from earlier, and yes, I felt it too, someone else is here." "That's a snow rabbit, but the color? They only have white fur during winter when the days are short and there's little sunlight." This rabbit was raised indoors away from the light, which could only be for one purpose, a replacement technique, Yujao thought as she looked around. Only now did she sense the presence of another person nearby. "So they're already here," she mused. "Looks like Naruto had them pegged." No sooner had the thought gone through her mind than she felt the hair on the back of her neck stand on end as her instincts warned her of an incoming attack. "Get down," she shouted, dragging Tajuna down with her as the rest of the team hit the ground. No sooner had they hit the dirt than a large blade, the size of a full-grown man, whistled through the space they had just occupied, sailing past and embedding itself into a tree a short distance away. In a flash of a body flicker, a man was perched on the handle of the blade. No wonder the Demon Brothers failed their mission, but of all the people who would be sent to guard this old geezer, I never thought the legendary sword mistress of the leaf would be the one I would face, the stranger said from atop his perch. Well, if it isn't Zabuza Mamakai, rogue ninja swordsman and former head of the assassination unit from the Hidden Mist, Yujao stated as she stepped forward to face the newcomer known as Zabuza. "Yujao, the sword mistress, did I get that right? It's too bad, but you'll have to hand over the old man," Zabuza said casually, as if this were just an ordinary request. He continued, "I'm going to give you one chance, walk away. Leave the old man, and none of you will have to die." Tempting as that offer might be, you and I both know that won't happen, so why don't we skip to the part where I use my blade to cut your head off and send it back to the mist so they can tear your page out of their bingo book for traitors, Yujao stated as she drew her katana and slid into a ready stance. Following their sensei's lead, the three genin also fell into formation to protect Tajuna from the threat. Naruto knew this wasn't going to be as simple as the two from before, as this guy was on a whole different level. "Fine, we'll do this the fun way," Zabuza said as he and his sword flickered and vanished, only to reappear on the surface of the small lake nearby. Chakra swirled around him, whipping up water as he called out, "Ninja art, hidden mist jutsu." In an instant, Zabuza vanished as a dense mist flooded the area around the group. As the mist thickened, the air seemed to get heavier, as if the group wasn't in a mist but almost underwater. Naruto and Koga were holding up better than most would under this type of killing intent. Even so, both of their hands had a slight shake to them. Yakumo, however, was on her knees. Her already frail body was unable to take the killing intent directed at her. The tanto she originally held in one hand was now held in both, shaking just like her body. She wasn't prepared for this, she expected another quick fight, not this. She didn't want to be here, she wanted to take everyone and run, but she couldn't even move a finger in this situation. "We need to get out of here. We're not going to make it if we fight this man. I don't even think Yujao-sensei can beat him in this mist. We are going to die," Yakumo thought as she stared into the mist before her, unable to vocalize any of her thoughts or actions due to the killing intent Zabuza was emitting. Zabuza laughed from his hiding spot before listing off the 8 points on the body that would be a fatal blow. "Now, which will be my kill point?" he questioned, almost as if he were doing an everyday task like taking out the trash or mopping the floor. "Don't panic, you three, I don't let my comrades die, especially when they're people I care about," Yujao stated firmly, trying to lift the effects of the killing intent from her genin, and it worked as they all visibly stopped shaking violently. Yakumo shakily stood up before getting into a stance with her tanto. Naruto and Koga both relaxed and slipped into fighting stances, as their eyes were now hard and sharp. "I wouldn't be so sure," Zabuza stated, appearing in the middle of the young genin and the old bridge builder, ready to strike. "It's over." However, before the swordsman could strike the killing blow, Koga pivoted and rammed the blade of his Wakaizashi into the rogue ninja, only for him to turn to water as the clone dissipated. Ready to strike from behind, the real Zabuza made his move, only for Yujao to push Koga out of the way, taking the hit. The jonin was sliced in two before she could block, only for the clone to disappear in a puff of smoke. As her blade rested against Zabuza's throat, Yujao leaned in and whispered, "Now it's over." "Nice one, Sensei," Yakumo stated as the group seemed to relax just a little. Zabuza stood there for a short second and then started laughing at the swordswoman before speaking. "Over? I don't think so. While your technique is good, it's nothing compared to the original. I will never be defeated by a copycat like you using nothing but an imitation of the real thing, he said as he went on. You're full of surprises, though. You had already placed that shadow clone and made it give that speech earlier while you hid in the mist, waiting for me to make my move. Nice try, the mist ninja said as a second Zabuza appeared behind her. But I'm not that easy to fool. The clone she had her sword poised to kill splashed to the floor as Zabuza struck, only for her to duck the strike as the rogue swordsman's blade swung past and gouged a line in the dirt. Changing his grip on the handle, Zabuza sent a kick into her midsection, which sent her flying a good distance and into the water. Pulling the blade out of the ground, Zabuza dashed forward, only to stop in his tracks as dozens of spikes littered the ground that led to the edge of the water. Makabishi spikes. Trying to slow me down, foolish. You're wasting my time, commented Zabuza as he jumped over the spikes and dove into the water. As Yujao surfaced, she noted that the water seemed denser and heavier, only for Zabuza to come up behind her and run through a set of hand signs. Fool, water prison jutsu. As he finished the last sign, a sphere of water encased Yujao, trapping her with no way out. Escaping into the water was a bad mistake. I should have known better. This is his element after all, Yujao thought as she was now useless. She couldn't get out of this jutsu. Shit, he's a lot stronger than I realized. I should have known better than to have underestimated him, Yujao angrily thought. Her overconfidence was not only going to cost her own life but the life of Tajuna, and worst of all, the lives of her genin. This prison may be made of water, but it's harder than steel. Hard to fight when you can't move, Zabuza said as he shifted his focus to her genin. So much for the great Yujao. I will finish you later, but it looks like your little friends will have to be dealt with. Water clone jutsu. With that, Zabuza conjured a water clone using a single hand to perform the sign for the jutsu. All three genin were standing stunned as they had just seen their sensei get caught like it was nothing, and now they were the next item on his to-do list. You think you can call yourselves ninja because you wear a headband? When your life has hung in the balance so many times that you no longer even notice it, then you may be called a ninja. When your skills earn you a slot in my bingo book, then you may have earned the title of ninja, but to call kids like you ninja is a joke, Zabuza stated before continuing. Come now, where's the bravado from earlier that you showed? Especially you two, I didn't notice you shaking before, absolutely pathetic. A real ninja is one who can survive even in the face of death, and let me tell you a little secret I have. Emphasizing the last two words, Zabuza proceeded to tell the trio of his exam to become a shinobi. In the Bloody Mist, the genin selection exam involved you killing the classmates and friends that you grew up, ate, and trained with. It was a test that truly showed who was the strongest. Now, imagine a kid who wasn't even part of that exam showing up and killing over 100 of those students. Those were good times. At his story, Yakumo turned a sickly green at the thought of that massacre. Koga seemed to be faring better, but not by much, as he had to focus to keep his body in check, while Naruto seemed to be holding out the best as his hand only had a slight shake to it. As he finished, the clone Zabuza created earlier vanished into the mist and reappeared in front of Naruto to everyone's shock and sent him flying with a kick to the head, knocking his headband off in the process. Kids like you are way in over your heads, his clone started as he walked towards the group. You're just a bunch of immature, weak, scared, little brats who are already dead and just don't know it yet, Zabuza stated as his foot came to step on the headband that Naruto had been wearing just a second ago. Run! You guys can't win, just take Tajuna-san, run and save yourselves. He can't move while he's holding me here, and his clones can't move too far from the original. Yujao screamed hysterically as she was about to witness the deaths of not just her genin but the two boys she saw as her ototo right before her eyes. As the clone approached slowly, Yakumo and Tajuna had their lives flash before their eyes. Tajuna remembered his family and the wave, their smiles, and all their hopes placed on him to complete the bridge. Yakumo remembered her mother and father smiling at her, her defeating Ito with help from Kushina and Minato, the time she spent with Kurone and training with her. Then she saw her team, with all the missions and training sessions they had together, but then she saw a familiar head of blonde hair, but instead of a blank face, this blonde gave her a charming smile. And she felt a small bit of regret as she wouldn't be able to keep the promise she made about being his friend for much longer. Koga's mind raced, trying to find a way out of this mess. But the only way he could see them getting out of this with their lives intact was if they could free their sensei. However, it wasn't like they could just run up and break the jutsu holding her, they needed a plan, and fast. As a voice chimed in on his thoughts, now might be a good time to use it, said a female voice in his head. Otherwise, the three of you, your Ana-chan, Tajuna-san, and my brother inside your brother and me are all going to end up dead. Pausing just to let the point sink in deeper, she added, oh, and if my brother and I die, you can bet my father will find a way to kill the both of you in the afterlife. That thought alone made a chill run down Koga's spine. You really aren't helping right now, he mentally shot back. However, what happened next was something that surprised even Zabuza, as a thud sounded before his water clone splashed to the floor, revealing Naruto now standing in front of them with his eyes narrowed in anger with a scowl on his face as he faced the rogue ninja. Naruto stooped to retrieve his headband, putting away the kunao he had in his hand before rising as he tied it back in place. "That hurt, but I guess I'm going to have to go all out, huh?" he said as his scowl slowly turned into a smirk. "I was hoping to save this for the Chunin exams, but it looks like I have no choice." Naruto pulled out his dual kamas as a viridian green chakra enveloped his whole body like a cloak. Tails sprang from the chakra as he slowly opened his eyes. His navy blue eyes were now yellow, and his round pupils now resembled a wolf's, as his hair seemed to lengthen slightly and become a bit more unruly as his canines became more pronounced. While the kamas in his hands now shone with the same viridian color as the cloak, the chakra blades were empowered with this new chakra almost to the point that they looked like they were glowing fangs. Yujao had a look of shock and disbelief on her face as she looked at the boy whom she thought of as one of her otatos. He now stood there with a look that could only be described as feral. Her mind went straight to one thought, that this was the power of the 9 tails sealed inside him and his siblings, but it felt different from what she remembered the fox's chakra feeling like all those years ago when it attacked the village, like it had changed somehow. The Naruto standing opposite her appeared to be a completely different person from the boy she knew. As for Yakumo and Tajuna, their jaws would have to be picked up off the floor as they both just stared in utter disbelief. Koga and his inner self, on the other hand, couldn't help but inwardly chuckle as he smiled outwardly, knowing full well what the cloak was capable of, though he did notice that his cloak was a different color than his brother's. As Naruto's slight smirk slowly turned into a predatory smile, he uttered a few words that made Zabuza slightly unnerved. "I'm a little different from your run-of-the-mill immature brat," the words coming out with what could only be described as a snarl. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki, Wolf's Blood Namikaze. Stick that in your bingo book." Cue epic fight music soundtrack interlude, time 135 on track. The standoff that had been going on for the last minute broke as Zabuza created a half-dozen water clones that charged at Naruto. At this, the young blonde rushed the clones with a speed that caused Zabuza to worry as a trickle of sweat rolled down the side of his face as his thoughts raced with the new information he had just learned. This kid is the son of the Hidden Leaf's Yellow Flash. His thought was reinforced by how fast the kid was moving. Naruto's strikes were quick and clean with minimal wasted effort. Zabuza wasn't just surprised, he was outright stunned. A boy at least half his age was using the dual kamas with such grace, skill, and speed, yet with an air of savagery too. It shouldn't be possible. Yet at the same time, a feeling that he had long since thought dead began to resurface after almost a decade. For the first time in a long time, Zabuza actually felt excited at the prospect of fighting another person blade on blade. He was broken out of his thoughts when Naruto had finished off the last of his clones and started to run toward him, the dual kamas trailing behind him, splitting the water as he went. The overwhelming chakra coming off the blades and the wielder caused ripples to trail them. "Huh, looks like I might get to have some fun after all," Zabuza whispered, removing his hand from the water prison. He grabbed his executioner's blade and charged Naruto, leaving Yujao to drop back into the water as the jutsu dissipated and allowed her to take large gulps of precious air. Seeing Zabuza release his sensei, Naruto mentally breathed a sigh of relief. That was one problem taken care of, and the other was headed straight at him. Tightening the grip on his kamas, he swung and met Zabuza's blade head-on, a deafening clang and shower of sparks flying as steel met steel. Grunting at the overpowering force the larger man had on him, Naruto shifted his wrist slightly and managed to throw Zabuza slightly off balance due to the angle of the twin blades when their weapons clashed. Sidestepping, Naruto spun to the left and slashed in an attempt to at least break Zabuza's guard and find an opening. Smirking under his bandages, he had to admit that if he had been using a regular run-of-the-mill sword, the blade would have broken by now, and he would be on the ground headless. But unfortunately for the brat, or fortunately for him, depending on how you looked at it, he had the executioner's blade. Tightening his grip on his sword and bracing himself for the oncoming attack, Zabuza took the full brunt of Naruto's savage-like swing as his arms buckled a bit from the power the young ninja was using. However, it didn't even come close to the power of another swordsman of the mist's monstrous swings, and he knew that if he was taken out by this level of power, he would never hear the end of it if he lived and Kisame ever found out. Naruto's eyes went wide. He had at least expected Zabuza to take a step back or something. However, he didn't expect him to shrug off his swing like it was nothing, especially since he was using the chakra cloak that Kao gave him access to. The momentary distraction was exploited as Zabuza kicked him in the gut, making Naruto stumble back a few feet before he had to roll to the side in order to avoid the overhead swing from Zabuza. Righting himself, Naruto rushed towards Zabuza again, using his speed rather than his power this time. Naruto dodged the swing at his knees with a well-timed jump that allowed him to twist in the air and score a shallow cut along Zabuza's shoulder. Wincing slightly at the cut, his opinion of the kid shot up, as only a slight few had ever tagged him in a fight, even if it was just a minor cut. Naruto noticed his sensei running towards them, her hands a blur as she prepared a jutsu, ready to provide backup. He smirked. Zabuza had been expecting this. Forming a hand sign, 13 water clones formed en masse and headed for Yujao as she readied for the fight to come. Naruto looked at the older ninja and smiled as he spoke. "Trying to keep little old me all to yourself? I am touched. Tisk, don't flatter yourself, it's unbecoming, Zabuza said as he readied for round 2. I just don't want any interruptions in our duel. Naruto smirked at this as he readied himself to go again. I couldn't have put it better myself, the young shinobi said, surprising him, as once again, this kid was different than what he had expected. When you mess with one wolf, you have to deal with the whole pack. Well, you messed with my pack, so now you have to deal with me, Naruto said, motioning to his team, then back to himself. So, enough stalling, let's get on with it, just you and me. Zabuza couldn't help himself as he burst out laughing. Kid, you really are something else. Are you insane or just plain suicidal, brat? You're openly challenging one of the strongest 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist. Even with your sensei, you two wouldn't be able to best me. Zabuza barked out, his eyes never leaving the blonde in front of him, as he also tightened his grip on his blade. What came next out of Naruto's mouth was something that he would end up regretting in a minute. Don't you mean former 7 ninja swordsman of the mist, old man? From what I've seen, you've lost your edge as a swordsman. Guess laying around doing nothing but killing weaklings and common thugs for a few years will do that to you, Naruto said with all the sarcasm he could muster. At this, tick marks began to pop out on Zabuza's head. Oh, you're fucking dead, brat, and for the record, I'm not that old. I'm only 26. Zabuza yelled, rage boiling in his eyes as he charged at Naruto. Naruto winced as his plan to anger the rogue swordsman worked, probably too well. Bringing his kamas up to block the blow from Zabuza as a shower of sparks rained down on him, his arms buckled under the sheer power of Zabuza's swing as he made a mental note to himself. Note to self, try not to anger a former master swordsman during a duel by commenting on their age. I would have told you that it was a bad idea, but seeing as how that wouldn't have stopped you, I kept my mouth shut, Kao interjected, only for Naruto to shoot the wolf a mental glare. While Naruto and Zabuza had their duel, the rest of the team was working to take down the water clones Zabuza had called up. Yujo's attention had been shifted to the clones that were coming at her, only for her to see Koga rush out onto the water, weaving hand signs before shouting out, lightning style, lightning hound. As his palm filled with lightning chakra, it leaped from his palm and took the form of a large feral beast that charged straight for the pack of clones, taking down 3 clones before it was cut down. Yakumo was again stunned as not only did Naruto know water walking, but so did his brother. Just how strong were these two? As she had this thought, another popped into her head. Was she holding them back? No sooner had that thought gone through her head when 3 of the clones broke off and headed for her. As they did, she knew she had to move fast. Weaving hand signs, she cried, lightning style, lightning needles. As dozens of senbon made of electricity formed in front of her before they shot out at the clones who were just seconds away. As the electric projectiles hit their mark at high speed, the clones were shredded by the lightning, as she knew from their training sessions that water nature was weak to lightning nature, which was why the jutsu was much more effective in this case. Yujo fought through the group of clones and took down 6 of the clones before the last one was about to strike. The blade of Koga's Wakaizashi stuck out of his chest as the clone dissipated as it splashed to the ground. With the clones dispatched, they turned to the fight between Naruto and Zabuza. As the 2 weapon-wielding shinobi clashed, sparks flew each time their blades met. Seeing a diagonal slash coming from Zabuza, Naruto misjudged the timing of his dodge. This allowed Zabuza to land a clean cut on his shoulder. The favor was returned when they collided once more, Naruto angling and pushing his kamas off against the executioner's blade, managing to land a cut on Zabuza's cheek. This went on for several minutes before the two separated and were breathing heavily. Using the distance and the slight break to his advantage, Zabuza twisted his sword so as to hold it in a reverse grip perpendicular to his body behind him. Zabuza performed a move he hasn't used since his time as a part of the Mist Ninja Force. As he tensed before uttering, 7 swords arced decapitating fang. Naruto barely saw him move as Zabuza appeared behind him, sending him flying from the monstrous power of his attack. Hitting the water and skipping a few feet, he managed to regain his balance and right himself in the air. His eyes widened as he saw the after effect of Zabuza's attack. A scar in the water ran from where Zabuza stood to where he was before his attack, at least 7 to 9 feet long, a foot wide, and 2 feet deep. Not bad, brat, you're actually still alive. I must be getting rusty if you lived through that. Nobody's seen that and lived to admire it like you're doing right now, Zabuza praised slightly, though he was discontent with the lack of power in his attack. He was rusty, and he didn't like that. Naruto smirked as he readied for one final strike. Zabuza saw this and moved to do the same. Their duel would be finished with one final strike. Silence reigned over the lake, as no one dared to take a breath during the tense moment. Finally, as if they were waiting for it, a leaf dropped onto the lake, and the two charged each other. Ninja art, savage wolf cross claws. 7 swords art, reverse carving fang. Faster than the average eye could follow, the final strikes of Naruto and Zabuza ended. The water between them ripped open as water slowly began to fill back into the gash the two had made, causing turbulent waves to form. Naruto's eyes widened as he coughed up blood as a cut appeared from his left shoulder, going diagonally downwards, ending near his hip. His chakra cloak dissipated, and he fell, hitting the water with a splash. His world started to go black as he saw Yu-Jao and his brother sprinting toward him. He managed to mutter one word before losing consciousness. How? Epic fight music end. Zabuza stood firm. For a split second, he was the victor. Before he coughed up blood, staining the bandages over his mouth, as a horizontal gash across his body was bisected by a vertical gash running the same length up his chest. The deepest part of the cuts was on his right bicep, which was cut halfway to the bone, and his left leg, which was cut almost clean through to the bone. Zabuza fell, though before he could hit the water, a masked figure in a kimono appeared next to him and leaned him onto their shoulders. "Thank you for taking care of Zabuza for me," the young tracker said as they held up Zabuza's body. "I have been tracking him for weeks, but it seems you were able to get to him first. Tell the young man when he wakes up that he fought well." With those words, the tracker ninja vanished in a swirl of mist, taking Zabuza's body and sword with him. Yu-Jao brought Naruto's body back to the shore of the lake. She was met with a teary-eyed Yakumo and a concerned Koga, who asked if he was alright. To everyone's relief, the cut he received wasn't life-threatening. The deepest part near his shoulder was halfway toward cutting the bone, which Yu-Jao took care of quickly using her medical ninjutsu. Tajuna walked over, dumbfounded as his mind raced with questions about how a boy his age could fight someone like that and live to talk about it later. One thing was for sure, though, his opinion of Naruto had gone up by a huge margin. While this was happening, elsewhere, the masked figure that had Zabuza held close gently put him down, leaning him up against a tree as they started tending to his injuries. After a few seconds, Zabuza's eyes opened as he locked on to the person treating him. "Ugh, that you, Haku?" he asked, slightly disoriented from the amount of blood loss he suffered during the fight. "Yes, Zabuza-sama, it's me. I'm sorry that I let you get injured like this. I should have stopped him when I had the chance," Haku solemnly said in a feminine tone, removing the mask on their face to reveal a beautiful yet sad female face. She expected to get yelled at for failing to protect him, but she got yelled at for a completely different reason. "Are you an idiot?" Zabuza questioned, making the young female ninja blink in confusion. "That was a one-on-one duel between that brat and me. If you had interfered, I would have cut you down for tarnishing my reputation as a swordsman. I may not have much left to my name, but that brat reminded me that I still do have my reputation as a swordsman," he said in a stern tone as he started checking over his injuries, being actually surprised at the damage he sustained. Damn, that brat wasn't half bad. Guess he wasn't bluffing when he said he was different. He was broken out of his assessment by Haku, who reminded him to be careful. While the young kunoichi worked on his wounds, his thoughts kept returning to the duel between him and the boy. That kid, he's something else. I could feel it when that green chakra covered his body. It was as if I was fighting a feral beast. The way he moved was more wild, more animalistic than technique. The main reason it turned out like this was because he lacks experience, and I have let myself get rusty over these past few years. Heh, if he's this good now, just wait until our rematch. After Yu-Jao finished healing Naruto's injuries and everyone else was ready to move on, they headed the rest of the way to Tajuna's home. With Naruto out, Yu-Jao carried him piggyback. Koga had offered to switch with her after a half hour, but she turned him down, as she was fine and it would only slow them down to pass Naruto off to the next person to carry him. After an hour of walking, they arrived at their destination. As they arrived, a young woman who looked to be in her late 20s with dark hair walked out of the house, only to stop when she saw them approaching. She came running to meet them and hugged Tajuna, starting to cry as she held onto the older man as if he would vanish if she let go. "You're back. I was so worried about you. When you said it would only take 2 days, I was worried when you didn't make it back on time. I had feared the worst," the young woman rambled on as Tajuna just let her hug him and returned the embrace. When she stepped back from the hug, she noticed everyone else as Tajuna spoke. "Tsunami, I am fine. These brave ninja from the Leaf Village protected me and kept me safe from the men who attacked me," he said. Turning to the group, she bowed before speaking. "I'm Tsunami, thank you so much for protecting my father. Without him, the last hope for the wave would be lost," she said solemnly. Knowing that his daughter would venture into more depressing memories, Tajuna opted to break the now saddened mood. "Now, Tsunami, don't just stand there. We have guests. Let's try and make them feel welcome, and one of them needs a quiet place to rest after what happened," Tajuna said, motioning to the boy who was out cold on the older woman's back. "You're right, father, everyone please do come right in. It's small, but it is home," Tsunami said with a smile as she led the group into the house. As they entered, they spotted a child with spiky black hair and eyes. Seeing them enter, the child gave them a slightly angry look before Tsunami called out to him. "Inari, say hello to our guests. They are ninja who protected Grandpa," Tsunami said with a gentle and motherly tone as she smiled at her son, though Inari ignored them as he headed up to his room. Seeing the reaction of the kid raised alarms in Yu-Jao's head. A kid his age shouldn't be looking like that. Something big must have happened with him. Quickly glancing around, she also noted that there weren't many pictures of Tsunami with someone who looked like her husband. Mentally, she made a note to herself about that. Well, looks like the situation is more drastic than we thought. The kid's dad either left them or was killed by Gato's men, more likely the second, she assessed, as Tsunami apologized for her son's behavior, getting an understanding nod from the Konoha ninja, seeing as the situation in Wave must have been harsh. Showing Yujao where she could have Naruto rest, Tsunami went into the kitchen and put a pot of tea on as the rest of Team 12 got settled. When all was said and done, one thing was still on the two female team members' minds: Naruto. After Yujao finished a more in-depth treatment of Naruto's wounds, she called Yakumo and Koga together for a team meeting. "Sensei, what happened back there with Naruto? It was like he was a completely different person?" Yakumo asked, not remembering her friend and teammate being that strong or that scary. "I don't know for sure, but I do know that he has kept a lot of things secret after he came back from the Forest of Death, even from me," Yujao said, looking at Koga with a raised eyebrow. "What?" he asked as she gave him her best older sister look. "Don't look at me like that, it's not my place to tell secrets that aren't mine. Naruto is the one who should be telling you about this," Koga stated, trying to defend himself. "But you do know about it?" she questioned in the tone she used that meant she was in big sister mode. As she asked this question, Koga's inner self chimed in with her 2 cents. "Oh, he knows all right, after all, he's got me just like Naruto has my brother." Koga couldn't help but mentally facepalm at her comment as he thought back to the night he met the young-tailed beast that resided inside him, and what happened the day after. Flashback: the day was one that Koga would remember as both a good and a bad day. He had overheard his parents yelling at Naruto for trying to do the water walking exercise on his own, as well as hearing Naruto crying in his room through the wall. The sound was just soft enough that he could hear it since their rooms were right next to each other. He wanted to go and see if his brother was alright, but he knew that what his parents had said was something that anyone would be upset about. They had said things that were way overboard and hurtful. Right now, Koga knew that more than anything, Naruto would need some time to calm down before he would listen to anyone, and so he waited. When he was about to go and see if his brother was alright, he heard a knock on the door to Naruto's room and his mother asked if she could come in. Koga heard the door open and slipped out of his own as he tiptoed to his brother's door. He heard his mother talk softly to Naruto, saying how sorry she was for both her and Minato's words and actions. When he peeked into the room, he saw her sitting on the edge of the bed, gently stroking Naruto's hair and saying she and Minato loved him. Before he could be discovered, he made his way back to his room and shut the door as quietly as he could. When he had made it back to his room, Koga knew that he had to do something, or else Naruto was going to think their parents hated him. While he thought about how to go about fixing this new problem with his family, he had been lying on his bed and hadn't noticed when he had fallen asleep, nor that he was now inside his mind, until a sound startled him from his thoughts. When Koga noticed he was no longer in his room but in a large open space that could have fit his room about a dozen times over, he almost panicked if not for a voice that caught his attention. "So, you finally come to visit," a female voice said that sounded like it was a young girl's. As Koga turned around to look at who had spoken to him, the last thing he expected to see was a small black and white fox. Its coloring was similar to that of a marble fox, or as close as he could guess. He had never seen one up close, just in books and such. However, something about how this one was colored was off. It had white-tipped tails and white paws while its main body was a black color with white running down its back in a pattern, as well as a white mark in the shape of a crescent moon in the center of her forehead. Koga blinked as he didn't know how to respond. A talking fox? Now that was a new one on him, but he had already met Kuromaru, and he talks, so it wasn't that far of a stretch. If anything, it would make it easier to understand her, but what did she mean by finally coming to visit? He had never met her or even seen her before. Now that he thought about it, where was he, and how in the elemental nations did he even get here in the first place? "So, are you going to say something, or are you just going to sit there?" the she-fox questioned, snapping Koga out of his thoughts. Who are you, exactly?" Koga asked bluntly. Who I am is a bit hard to say since I don't have a name," the young Biju said as she came closer. As his thoughts went into overdrive for just a second about where he could be and who this talking fox was, they just as suddenly came to a screeching halt when his mind registered her last statement. "Wait, you don't have a name?" he questioned, clearly puzzled by that fact. The fox sighed as she figured they were in for a long night. After explaining what she was and how she got here, along with the fact that she was inside the seal on his body, Koga finally was able to work everything out, along with putting some pieces in place that made the she-fox rethink her previous assumption about being here all night. "So, you have been here since the night the Nine Tails was sealed?" Koga questioned. "I also have all the fox's memories up until the portion of the excess chakra from the Nine Tails was sealed inside you. But whoever made the seal didn't know that when he sealed the chakra inside you, it took a small amount of your own chakra, and when it was mixed together inside the seal with the chakra from the Nine Tails, I was born," the she-fox stated. "Wait, Tio-Yusen sealed the chakra into Naruto and the others, so how is it that I had some of its chakra sealed in me?" The newly self-discovered Jinchuriki questioned to no one in particular. "Well, whoever did it used the same type of seal that was used on your brother, if that helps at all," she said, though she knew it wasn't much to go on. It really doesn't help because anyone who studied Fuinjutsu to the level that Toyu-san did could use that jutsu just as easily, the boy said, pondering it for a split second before switching gears and changing the subject. So, what you're saying is that you're the daughter of the Kyuubi? Koga asked, eyes wide at the statement that the fox just made a moment ago. To which the young Biju replied, kind of. And you have no name, he asked, to which the young she-fox replied with a simple shake of her head. Well, how about I give you one? Koga said, making her blink as she stared at him for a second. You would give me a name, but you don't even know me, she stated as she looked at him with wide eyes. Of course, I would. Everyone deserves to have a name, even tailed beasts. Koga paused for just a moment as his thoughts drifted to what was happening with Naruto. Plus, I know what it's like for someone to be alone too, he finished as he stroked the fur of the young fox next to him. And you would know this how? You have a family that loves you. I have seen it. When have you ever been alone? She asked. It's true, I may not know what it feels like personally, but when I see the way Naruto looks at the rest of the family, I get a small glimpse of what it's like for him to feel like he's alone, Koga stated, surprising the she-fox again as she saw the look in the young boy's eyes of how bad he felt and how much he wanted to make things better for his whole family. So, what's your plan? The young Biju asked. I am working on that, but I can't just sit by and do nothing. That would be just as bad as if I was a part of the problem, he said as he looked at her before he changed the subject yet again. Now then, I believe that I said I would give you a name, so let's see, how about Hikari? Koga asked the young Biju. Hikari, she said, trying it out once as she then looked at him. Light, she questioned as the young boy just nodded his head. Yep, we'll be a light in the darkness that helps my brother find his way back home and as well as a reminder that when he feels like no one is there, our light will help him know he's not alone, that he has a family that loves him. The newly named Hikari smiled at that thought and replied with a deeply grateful, thank you. Flashback end. Yes, I know what it was, or I should say what it is, but I don't think I should be talking about stuff that could be considered an S-class secret, Koga stated, knowing full well what it was since he had trained to use the same thing himself, though again, the color was different from both Naruto's and the Kyuubi's. Ujo blinked for him to think that it would rate that high on the scale of classified intel meant it was big. She knew that if anyone broke a secret of that level, it was punishable by death worst-case scenario. This meant that it was something that only specific people knew about and they only discussed it in specific places. If that was true and this was something of that nature, she was going to be having a private meeting with the Hokage to talk about this in detail. For now, she would have to wait for Naruto to wake up so she and the rest of the team could talk with him. Ujo went over everything she had read in Naruto's file, as well as everything she knew about her Ototo, to see if she could figure out what had happened back there, but nothing made any sense. From what she could remember, Naruto never had such an ability, and the color of the chakra was not normal. When chakra channeled into a sword or something like her chakra blade, it looked like a lighter blue color. However, the green chakra that Naruto had used was something strange to her. It reminded her of when she had seen Kushina use the Nine Tails chakra that was sealed inside her, but the color of the chakra was red, not green, and the feeling that seemed to emanate from the boy was not the same either. She knew it was somehow related to the Nine Tails chakra that he had, but she couldn't figure out how. Maybe this is something he picked up while he was in the Forest of Death? She questioned in her mind, but that didn't seem to track with the fact that Koga knew about it, and that it was similar to what she had seen her sensei use. Plus, the number of tails, if it was the Nine Tails chakra, then why didn't it have the same color as before? After her mind came up with about a dozen questions and no answers, she decided to wait until Naruto woke up and could shed some light on the subject. When Naruto did wake, it was just past 1 in the afternoon. Tsunami checked in on him when he had come around and woken up from being out for about 3 hours. Well, now, seems like someone finally decided to come back to the land of the living, Tsunami said, smiling as she helped him sit up. After a minute or two, the rest of his team along with Tajuna came into the room to see how he was doing, as well as for some of them to try and get some answers to their questions. However, Ujo didn't think that Naruto would just open up and tell them everything they wanted to know, especially after what Koga had said about what had happened, but one could always hope. Well, good to see that you're up, Tajuna said as he smiled at Naruto. Please don't do that to us, Naruto. I was worried that you weren't going to make it back there after the fight, Yakumo said as she hugged him. Naruto, who still wasn't all that good with physical contact from many people, flinched slightly, which caused Yakumo to pull back. Oh, I didn't hurt you, did I? She asked. Before Naruto could answer, Ujo cut in. Don't worry, he is fine. I took care of all the major stuff back at the battle site and went back over him when we got here just to make sure he wasn't in any danger and to make sure I didn't miss anything. He might still have some chakra exhaustion, but that is to be expected. Yakumo smiled as her fears had been put to rest. Well, now that we've had our feel-good moment of the day, care to talk about what happened back there? Ujo asked, hoping that her Ototo would at least be willing to share a small amount of what he was hiding. Naruto didn't know how to approach talking about the subject, but at the same time, he knew that his Eni-chan wouldn't be satisfied with a simple "it was nothing" or "it was a trick I picked up in the Forest of Death." Finally, he decided on a partial truth, but he would need more privacy since it was a pretty big secret. I don't know if I should talk about it without permission from Hokage-sama. This reinforced what she had heard Koga say earlier about it being a high-class secret. After a moment to think on it, she asked if Tajuna and Tsunami would give them some privacy to discuss the subject, which the father and daughter agreed to and left the room. Okay, we are alone. Now will you tell us what is going on and how you were able to fend off one of the top 20 most dangerous rogue ninja alive right now? Yujao asked as she looked Naruto in the eyes. I don't want to have to make you tell me, but I will if I have to. Naruto winced at the comment she had just made. He knew that when she pulled rank on him, it meant she was serious. Even so, this wasn't something he could just go around telling people. If it were, he wouldn't have kept it a secret for this long. If you must know, it is related to the Nine Tails chakra that is sealed inside me, Naruto stated, again deciding to go with a partial truth that would answer Yujao's question. Naruto had no idea how much data about the Nine Tails chakra was detailed in his file, but he knew that at least it would be mentioned if not talked about in some detail. Naruto knew that she would have had to have been given the basic info on what happened with the Nine Tails and what had been done to stop it. So rather than beating around the bush, he decided to ask her how much she knew about the subject. How much info have you been given on what happened the night the Nine Tails was defeated? Naruto asked, to which Yujao responded, enough, and yes, I know about what happened after too, she said, confirming that she knew what happened when it was sealed. Then you know that I have access to its chakra and am able to use it, Naruto said, to which she mentally frowned as she knew that Naruto had never been trained in how to use this power or told that it was even available to him, so how did he know about it? She questioned in her mind. Yakumo was lost at this point in the conversation. What did Naruto mean by he had access to the chakra of the Nine Tails, and how could that even be possible? The fox monster was defeated by the fourth Hokage, who was Naruto's dad. When she was about to ask what everyone was talking about, Yujao told her that what she was about to tell her was something that she was to never talk about outside of the company of the team and those whom Naruto told her knew. After the warning, she told Yakumo everything she knew about what happened and the truth about what had happened to the Nine Tails, which shocked Yakumo as she looked at Naruto, who only nodded. Yujao, however, couldn't help but think something was off. From what she knew, Naruto's parents had never said anything to him about the subject, and she knew for a fact that he had never been trained by them to use it or trained much at all by his parents for that matter. Yujao was still perturbed at that fact, but when she had learned about the genjutsu, she eased up on them, if only a bit. Suddenly, a thought popped into her head. Why wasn't I for the fact any of the people Naruto was close with affected by the genjutsu if it was used on the village, then why weren't we affected, she thought, but with no real way to answer that, she pushed the thought aside and refocused on the current situation. Naruto looked at her and asked, you trust me, right? This question caused Yujao to feel as if she had been slapped by him. Of course, she wanted to trust him, but they needed answers, so she replied, you know I want to trust you, Ototo, and I do, so I am asking you to trust us with the truth, she said as Naruto looked away. The truth is a little more complicated than what you think it is, Naruto stated. All I can tell you is that it has to do with the Nine Tails, pausing as he felt a little unsure before he went on. This is something I haven't shared with anyone, not my family, not even the people I trust the most in the village, and for good reason, he said, which Yujao knew meant a lot if Naruto never shared it with anyone and kept it secret all this time. Really, why not? Yakumo asked, confused by why Naruto wouldn't share this secret with anyone. Once a secret is known, it can never be unknown, and you can never go back to the way things were before, Naruto said, quoting the wolves as he looked at the rest of his team. Koga knew what Naruto was trying to get at. Once he spilled the beans on this secret, people would look at him differently than they did before. He knew that Naruto didn't want people to look at him for what he was but rather who he was. Plus, he knew that if Naruto shared this info and didn't have permission to share it, he would get in real big trouble when they made their mission report. Heck, he would already technically be in trouble when they got back because Yakumo wasn't supposed to know about the fact that Naruto and Menma plus both sisters had the Nine Tails split up and sealed inside them and somehow himself, which he still didn't get how that one worked. Finally, Naruto pulled his last card to play as he stated, if you really want to know more, talk to Hokage-sama when we get back, to which Yujao relented and accepted that she would have to wait until they got back to the Leaf Village. Now that we are done with one topic for now, it is time to address the second important thing that we must prepare for. Zabuza is alive, Yujao stated, which made everyone in the room give a different reaction. As Yakumo was shocked, Naruto's reaction was underwhelming as he just accepted the fact, while Koga seemed to have figured that out as he didn't seem surprised, more like he was annoyed at the fact he had been right. But how? We saw him go down, and that hunter ninja, they… Exactly, Yujao said, interrupting Yakumo. The job of a hunter ninja is to hunt down and eliminate rogue ninjas so that their secrets can't be stolen by other ninja and used against them, meaning that if the hunter had truly been there to kill Zabuza, they would have started disposing of the body on site. Instead, they took the body away, which goes against how they operate, Koga stated, getting a nod of approval from Yujao. This in and of itself is a glaring clue that states we have not seen the last of Zabuza or his accomplice, she said, looking to her 3 genin. Which means that we have about 2 weeks to train while Zabuza tries to recover from his injuries. During this time, we will take shifts watching Tejuna while he works on the bridge before we face them again. After they had finished their team meeting, they joined the family for dinner later that day and turned in early so as to get a good night's sleep. Come morning, they were going to start training. That had been about a week ago. Within that time frame, Yujao had learned that her team was way ahead of the 8 ball in both skill and technique, as she soon discovered that Naruto had not only mastered tree climbing but water walking as well, while Koga wasn't far behind him as he was still working to fully master water walking. To top it all off, Yakumo, who had been the only one who still needed to learn tree climbing, mastered it in just 2.5 days and was now starting water walking. At this rate, these 3 will be the top genin team of this year without a doubt, Yujao thought to herself as she watched Tejuna during her shift. Yujao also decided that it would be better now rather than later to find out everyone's chakra nature. So during the next training session, she gave each of them a piece of chakra paper and told them to pour their chakra into the paper, the results of which surprised even her. Naruto's paper split in 2 and then one of the 2 pieces burned up, stating a dual wind-fire nature, while Koga's turned soggy and wrinkled, stating a dual water and lightning nature. Yakumo's paper wrinkled, which meant she had a lightning nature. Not only that, but she knew that Yakumo also had a natural talent for genjutsu that could put anyone who studied the art to shame. Then there was Naruto, who seemed to be strong in both taijutsu and ninjutsu, along with a bit of kenjutsu, as he had shown when fighting Zabuza. Lastly, Koga rounded out the team with his talents in both ninjutsu and kenjutsu, which he had been training in with Yujao for a while now. Things were looking like they would be ready to take on Zabuza and his accomplice and win. The mood was as positive as it could be, that was until dinner rolled around. Naruto had been on guard duty, so that left the rest of the team to train. When they came in for dinner, Tsunami was just finishing setting the table as Naruto and Tejuna just so happened to get back at the same time. After they had thanked their hosts for the food, they dug in. About halfway through the meal, Inari couldn't take it anymore as he slammed his fist on the table before he spoke. Why do you guys bother to try so hard? No matter how hard you train, you're still no match for Gato's men. No matter what glorious claims you make or how hard you work, the weak will only end up getting killed. Inari shouted at them, his eyes burning with hatred, looking at the Konoha ninja gathered around the dinner table. Hearing Inari's words, Yujao quickly lost the grin on her face. Koga stared intently at him, Yakumo's mouth thinned into a small line, but immediately the atmosphere turned tense when Naruto slowly stood up and looked at the boy, matching his glare with an icy glare of his own that if it could have, would have frozen the kid where he stood. Why do we bother to train so hard? No matter what we do, we're gonna get killed by Gato's men. Are you an idiot? Naruto commented in a cold tone that made the room feel like it just dropped a few degrees, his icy gaze intensifying with every second passing. Everyone was unable to speak, never had any of them seen the blonde act like this. Inari voiced his retort. Why don't you just be quiet? Just looking at you makes me sick. You don't know anything about this country. You don't know what it's like to suffer and be treated like dirt. The situation remained tense and increased even more when Naruto grabbed the kid by his collar and pointed to his headband. You see this? This isn't just a headband, this is a symbol of my dreams, my honor, and my determination. So what if it seems hopeless? No matter what happens, I will never give up, I will never quit, I will fight to the very end, he said, glaring at the kid as he went on. Just look at yourself, whining and complaining like some little victim. You're nothing but a coward. Do you really believe you are the only one who has suffered? Newsflash, kid, everyone suffers, and yet here you sit, waiting for someone to come and save you like it's all some bad dream you can wake up from. Wake up and face reality. Heroes don't just appear overnight, they aren't born either. Heroes are made when someone gets knocked down hard and then has the strength, the courage, and most importantly, the will to get back up and fight back. You want a hero? Then man up, grow a pair, embrace your dreams, and become one yourself. You need to have dreams to be a hero in the first place, though. Without those, you might as well not even try. Those who don't have dreams will amount to nothing, and those who complain about their life without trying to change things will amount to less than nothing. So don't go trampling on your father's memory by saying it's useless. At least he tried to change things, that's more than most can say they will ever do. If you won't stand up and fight, don't expect others to do it for you. You have to fight your own battles no matter how big or small, Naruto said before letting the kid go. Pushing his chair back, he made his way to the door, stopping before he passed through the door as he spoke one last time. I'm no hero, nor will I ever be one, but at least I am willing to embrace my dreams and fight for them. If someone like me can do it, then anyone can do it. Or maybe I'm just a fool, but you know what? He paused to look back at the boy to get his point across. I would rather be a fool than a coward. And with that, he left to go off by himself, letting the door shut behind him to emphasize his point. At which Inari ran from the table and locked himself in his room. Yujao turned to their hosts. Sorry about that, Naruto has never been one for mincing words. Tajuna waved a hand, saying that he didn't say anything that wasn't true. For one so young to see things like that, something drastic must have happened to him. Yujao flinched at that, as she knew what had happened as Koga spoke up. He was ignored and neglected by most of the village and even our own family, minus me and a handful of people, until he ran away from home at 8 years old because he couldn't stand being overlooked like he was an afterthought. Tsunami gasped, her hands covering her shocked expression, while Tajuna slightly choked on his tea, saying he was lying before Koga continued. For 4 years, he lived in one of the most dangerous places that is used by our village for training strong ninja and came back alive and better off than the ninja that were sent in there by the Hokage, our father, to try and find him. My brother has been through more in 12 years than most will ever go through in 30. If it weren't for the good people who showed they cared about him and showed him kindness, he most likely would never have come back home. That poor boy, Tsunami said quietly as Tajuna just stared dumbfounded at this news. Naruto, Yakumo whispered, looking to the door. So then why does he stay? Why hasn't he left already? I mean, if he has been through all that, what is keeping him from leaving it all behind? Tajuna asked, still somewhat stunned by this revelation. Because he's trying to protect the people and things that are important to him. And while there may not be a ton of them, he will go to any means to protect them along with his own family. Even though they ignored him when he was younger, he still sees them as family and therefore worth protecting. Yujao said as she looked to the door Naruto had left through. Because that's who he is. After dinner, the team went off to be by themselves to process their feelings and what they had learned. One such person was on the roof alone with his thoughts and feelings. Looking at the stars, Koga felt like he hadn't in a long time. The last time he had felt like this, it was a year after Naruto had run away, and things had been getting worse every day. When he got like this, he knew that the only thing that would help would be music. Taking a scroll out of his back pouch, he opened it and unsealed the second seal on the paper, which produced an ocarina from the seal. As he picked up the small instrument, memories played through his head about how he had played it to help Narumi fall asleep and when he needed to express his feelings but didn't have the words. This instrument had helped. It had been a present from Kushina, but it soon became more than that. It had become a way to help cope with everything that had been happening over the years. As he thought about everything that had happened up until this point, he took it all, the good, the bad, and a bit of chakra for good measure, and poured it all into his music as he played. As the night sky spread out before him, Koga played a song that he had first heard played on a leaf whistle. It was one that always seemed to help no matter the situation and had been Narumi's favorite ever since he first played it for her, and right now he thought he could use all the help he could get. As it just so happened, he had a secret audience that was listening to the music he was making, as it seemed to wash over them. Each of them was listening from different locations, but they all were moved by the music that was being played. Tsunami was at the kitchen window while Yakumo was sitting on the deck that surrounded the house, and Yujao, who had been sitting on the railing of the balcony that was connected to the room that she and Yakumo were set up in. It was as if the music seemed to make everything feel like it would be okay, as if the music had lifted a weight from their shoulders that they didn't even know that they had. When he stopped to take a moment, Koga spoke up. I know you're there. You can come on out, he said as Yujao blinked before shaking her head at the fact of what her ototos were able to do. As she was about to climb onto the roof, another voice was heard which caused her to freeze in her tracks. How did you know I was listening? Naruto asked as he walked up next to his brother. Because I know you, he replied. And right about now is when you would be looking to be alone with your thoughts so you can process how you feel. Naruto smirked before he sat down next to Koga and just looked at the stars for a minute with Koga in silence, and then took out a scroll of his own and unsealed a 6-string bass. At this, Koga smiled at his brother as the two of them started to play together. The music the two brothers made this time together was even more profoundly beautiful. It was both sad and sweet at the same time as the music washed over those who heard it. The music was moving to the point that it seemed to be overflowing from the two brothers. It was as if the music seemed to refresh the souls of those who heard it. Yujao felt as she had when she was in the clearing and heard that woman singing. The music was so moving that it felt almost too real. When the music ended, Naruto nodded to his brother as he left the same way he entered, with a body flicker. Once his brother left, Koga smiled before he spoke out loud for the second time that night. You can come on up now, he said, causing Yujao to blink once again before climbing up onto the roof. How did you know I was listening? She asked, to which he smiled and answered, now that would be telling. He said, earning a playful shove from his Eni-chan who looked at the stars with him. That song you two played is beautiful, you know, Yujao said, looking at him as his face sprouted a small smile at her comment. Yeah it is, Koga said as his gaze remained skyward. You know, Naruto only said what he said at dinner because he sees what he could have been like in Inari, he said, looking to his one-chan. I know, but it doesn't make it any less hard to listen to, Yujao said as she leaned forward before continuing, but was it the right thing to do, or should we be more understanding? I mean, the kid lost his father permanently, Naruto still has a chance with your father. Naruto has been as close to that kid in the sense of losing a parent as one can get before death, both parents actually, not just one, Koga said, pausing to let the point sink in before continuing. It is going to take time for those wounds to heal for both of them, but unlike Inari, Naruto has resolved to do something about it and not just give in to the idea that it's a hopeless situation. That is what he was trying to get the kid to see. He finished. Yujao had never thought about it like that before. As she thought about it, she reached over and hugged Koga before she looked at him and said, "Don't ever stop playing music, it may just be the thing that helps Naruto the most one of these days." And with those words, she climbed down from the roof and went inside. Koga smiled as he laid back and once again gazed skyward before saying, "You have no idea," as he thought about how it had already helped so much in his life and in more ways than one. The next morning came faster than Naruto would have thought as he was shaken awake by a pretty young woman who seemed concerned that he was sleeping out in the forest. When he first saw her, he thought that she seemed familiar for some reason. Offering to help as he saw she was picking herbs that would help with healing wounds and illnesses, he decided to help her. As they searched in relative silence surrounded by the sounds of nature, Naruto observed her from the corner of his eye and noted how she moved and acted and decided to play along to see what happened as he now had a theory that he wanted to test. After about 15 minutes, the silence was broken by the girl. "I think that should be enough. Thank you for the help." "You're welcome," Naruto replied. "So are these for a friend who was hurt?" he asked, looking to gauge how she reacted. The girl looked at him and smiled, saying, "Why, yes they are," pausing before she went on to ask, "So, are you a ninja? I noticed you're wearing a headband." "Yes, that's right. I was out here training last night late and I must have fallen asleep," Naruto said, hoping that she would reveal more if they kept talking. "I see. So, are you training to protect someone?" she asked, to which Naruto nodded, replying, "Not just someone, but the people who are precious to me. There may only be a handful right now, but I will do anything for them." The girl froze for a second as she heard the steel and resolve in his voice at the mention of those he wanted to protect. She could relate to how he felt, as she too had someone she wanted to protect and she would lay down her life for them. As this thought went through her head, Naruto asked her if she had anyone that was precious to her. This caused her to blink before she replied, "Why, yes I do, and he is the most important person to me." "Well, I hope that he gets well soon," Naruto said. "By the way, my name is Naruto, what's your name?" "My name is Haku," she replied, smiling before she picked up her basket to go. Sighing inwardly at having to go back to the hideout and deal with the attitude of Zabuza, who for the past few days had been doing nothing but complaining about blonde brats and weak-ass kenjutsu skills. It had finally been too much for her and she had decided to get some fresh air and leave for a bit. As she started to walk away, Naruto called after her. "Oh, and Haku, tell Zabuza-san when you see him that I look forward to our rematch." This caused Haku to stop in her tracks, which was all Naruto needed to confirm his suspicion. Turning to face him, she looked at him with a look of confusion as she spoke. "If you knew who I was, then why would you help me?" she questioned in disbelief at the fact he would actively and knowingly help his enemy. "Because I feel like you're similar to me. We both have people who are precious to us, and we'll do anything to make sure that they're happy. And also, I don't want a handicap when me and Zabuza duel again," he said, walking away to head back to Tajuna's house, leaving a speechless Haku behind to ponder her thoughts. Staring at the back of the blonde as he walked away, Haku couldn't seem to get rid of the light flutter that she was feeling in her chest from the blonde and the way he acted. Giggling softly to herself as she left, she didn't know it, but she headed back to the hideout in a happier mood than when she left. Things after that seemed to be different. There was an atmosphere about as the team trained to prepare for Zabuza. In the time that was left, Koga mastered water walking and was able to pick up some genjutsu skills along with learning a new technique he had been studying, while he had been able to help Yakumo with her lightning style training to help her have more versatility in her arsenal since Yujao wasn't able to help in the regard that she didn't have a lightning nature. All the while, Yujao was sparring with Naruto to help sharpen his kenjutsu skills to help him be more prepared for the next time they fought Zabuza. About halfway through the week, the trio of genin were walking through the worn-down roads of Wave, getting groceries for Tsunami to make dinner. She had sprained her ankle earlier in the day after slipping in the kitchen, and they offered to help, saying it was the least they could do for all their hospitality. As they were about to head back, they heard the sound of muffled screaming and went to investigate. What they found was a group of thuggish men taking a pair of girls around their age into a building. Seeing that scene made the three of them come to the decision that they would help these girls. Making their way stealthily inside, they overheard them speak. "So, you guys found some fresh product," a tall and brutish-looking man said, admiring the new pieces of merchandise that was brought in. "Hee, sure did, boss. Gato will pay quite the price for this catch, I bet. They've probably been hiding all this time, but we saw them walking by themselves a few minutes ago," a tall and skinny-looking man sneered, his eyes trailing over the bodies of their new catch. "Hey, boss, why don't we check if they really are fresh? After all, don't want to give Gato something used, right?" a short and fat man said, wiping the drool off his lips. "Fine, but just don't break them," the brutish man said, walking into the back of the building, as the other men started to approach the bound girls. Unable to hold herself back anymore, Yakumo was about to lunge at them but was stopped by Naruto. She looked at him like he was nuts. They needed to save these girls before they were raped, but when she saw the look in her teammates' eyes, she knew that they were going to help, they just needed an opening. Koga was also ready to drop down and send these scum to the Shinigami himself until he felt a hand on her shoulder. This caused him to ease up, if just a slight bit, as he looked to his brother for the go-ahead. Waiting for the right moment to strike, and when the opportunity came, he made his move and with a whispered, "Now," they descended upon them. To say that the fight was a bit one-sided was an understatement. As one by one, the thugs dropped dead from the combined assault of the trio. Naruto took out 2 on his way down and a third with a well-placed kunai throw, while Yakumo caught several in a genjutsu and made them turn on each other. Koga, on the other hand, took a more direct approach as he drew his wakaizashi on the way down and with a single hand sign, he created a shadow clone as he went about cutting through the enemies in front of him. "What the heck?" one man shouted, as he frantically scanned the room, looking for a way out, his eyes settling on the group of kids who just cut their way through 15 armed men like it was nothing. He turned to run, but there was no way out, and now the trio were standing in front of him when he turned around, killing intent dripping off them as he fell to the floor, wetting himself. Naruto leaned down and whispered in his ear, "This is for all the families you've torn apart. Now run like the rat you are and tell Gato what happened here. And if I ever see you in Wave again and you aren't getting on a boat to leave, I will hunt you down and by the time I am finished, you will beg for me to put you out of your misery," Naruto said before standing up, borrowing some of Kao's chakra. His eyes shifted to that of the wolves to drive home his point, asking, "Am I clear?" To which the man could only whimper and nod his head emphatically as he scrambled to his feet. Not looking for where he was running, he ran straight into the wall and bounced off it before dashing out the door and ran for all he was worth. With that done, the trio approached the 2 young girls and cut the bindings of them as they removed the gags that had been placed on them. The 2 girls were scared for their lives before Yakumo asked if they were okay. The 2 girls blinked and nodded before they were helped back to their homes, which their families were most grateful for. After which, the trio booked it back to Tajuna's house so that Tsunami wouldn't be worried. The rest of the week flew by in a blur of training and sparring and sleeping as they sharpened and honed their skills so that when they faced Zabuza and the now-known Haku, they would be as ready as they could be. As Team 12's rematch with Zabuza drew closer, after breakfast, Tajuna told them that the finishing touches to the bridge were being made, and that they should be finished with it by the end of the day. Yujao noticed that Naruto was not there as he had been out late again, probably training, she thought to herself and decided that the rest of the team would go on ahead with Tajuna to the bridge. While this was going on, Naruto was racing back to Tajuna's house, mentally berating himself for training so late into the night as it had caused him to sleep later than he should have. Trees raced by as Naruto made his way back to the house. Even though he was making good time, he knew he was still going to be late. When Naruto made it back to the house, he saw what was happening and went into action. As 2 men who he guessed worked for Gato had Tsunami at sword point as Inari was telling them to let his mother go, Naruto had to give the kid credit for trying to keep his mother safe. Naruto slipped behind the 2 men as he flickered onto the roof above the 2 men. Readying to strike, he found an opportunity when they both turned to the boy who had tried to strike at the 2 men only to be cut into by the 2 men as they sheathed their swords. However, now a log had taken the place and the hit that would have ended young boy's life. Also, his mother was now gone from where she had been a moment ago. This surprised them as they wanted to know who was interfering, but this surprise cost them both dearly as Naruto used it to strike them both down, as a pair of shadow clones struck from behind. Inari was stunned that the boy was able to take out the 2 men without any hesitation. The young boy couldn't believe it that someone not much older than him could be so strong. "Inari!" Tsunami cried as she ran to her son and hugged him for all she was worth and she wept tears of joy. As the 2 shared a heartfelt moment, Naruto approached, not wanting to intrude, he waited for them to finish as the 2 looked up at Naruto bent down and placed a hand on Inari. "Are you 2 okay?" Naruto asked. "Yes, thank you so much, Naruto. I am so grateful to you, Naruto," Tsunami said, wiping the tears from her eyes. Looking at the young boy, Naruto spoke, "Keep your mother safe. Go find somewhere to hide and stay safe." The young boy nodded and led his mom by the hand as they ran off to find shelter. Not one to leave a job only half done, Naruto raced at top speed to get to the bridge so he could support his team. While this was going on, another fight was just warming up. The face-off between Team 12, plus Tajuna, and Zabuza with Haku, was just starting with the 2 groups in a standoff on the yet-to-be-finished bridge, waiting for the other to make a move. "Where is Blondie? That brat and I have unfinished business," Zabuza questioned, seeing that Naruto was not present. "Sorry, but he's not here. Looks like you're just going to have to settle for little old me," Yujao said in a calm tone as she walked forward to face Zabuza, drawing her sword as she did. "I guess I could use a warm-up before my rematch," Zabuza said as he rolled his shoulders, loosening up for the fight to come. Without another word, a group of water clones formed and charged the group. With a flash, Koga's wakaizashi sliced through the water clones without any wasted effort as water splashed to the ground. Yujao smiled as she stepped around her ototo and pointed her sword at Zabuza. "Now that the warm-up has been taken care of, let's dance. Haku, take care of the other 2 while I deal with her before Blondie shows up," he stated as he readied his executioner's blade. "You really think that girl is strong enough to take on 2 opponents at once?" You have a lot of faith in her, huh? Ujo commented. Huh, in terms of strength, she could be considered a Chunin by ninja standards, so I would be more concerned for the two brats than I would for her, though your concern for her is almost touching, he shot back at her. I don't need to be concerned when it comes to them. They can handle their own. After all, they're my students, and they have trained hard to get to the level they are at, so don't underestimate them, or you might just end up regretting it like you almost did last time. And with that, the fight between them began in earnest as they raced toward each other and clashed swords. Haku stood across from Yakumo and Koga. As she readied for the fight, she knew that it wouldn't be easy for her if these two were anything like Naruto. Then it was going to be rough. Since she knew Naruto and what he could do and would do if she hurt his friends, she didn't want to kill them, so she tried to reason with them one last time. All we want is the bridge builder. Give him over to us, and you can walk away. He is the one we want, not you. Not going to happen, he is our client, after all, Yakumo said, making Haku frown behind her mask. Take off the mask. Since we know who you work with, you're not fooling anyone this time around, Koga stated, staring Haku down. Oh, maybe I just like wearing it, Haku replied as she moved into a combat stance. Koga and Yakumo also slipped into combat stances as they readied themselves to fight. I am going to love removing that mask when this is over, Koga said, smirking at Haku, and with that, the fight began as the three went at it. Haku found the two of them were able to more than hold their own against her. As she was caught off guard by the teamwork the two displayed, Yakumo managed to catch Haku in her recently learned jutsu. As she rushed forward, before she could strike, a flash of light blinded her as she was caught in Yakumo's lightning illusion, flash pillar. The next thing Haku knew, she was surrounded by mist so thick that she couldn't see her own hand in front of her face. She couldn't see anything, in fact, or even hear a sound of the fight that was going on no more than 20 feet away. All of a sudden, a thought struck her, and she took a risk. Release. With a surge of her chakra, she shattered the genjutsu and just in time to dodge the incoming hound made of lightning, which she destroyed with her water whip jutsu. As the fight went on, Haku was more and more impressed at the fact that they were as good as the swordswoman had said they were. They had even gotten close a few more times, so she decided to take things up a notch as she flashed through a set of hand signs, and with the last one, a group of ice mirrors sprang up from the water at their feet to form a dome of mirrors around the two genin. Secret jutsu, crystal ice mirrors. And with those words, she stepped into one of the mirrors, which then reflected her image across the dome of mirrors as a rain of senbon came from the mirrors to strike at them from what seemed like all directions. When it was finished, the two inside the dome had been cut about a dozen times each, and while none of the cuts would be lethal, they were just the beginning as Haku readied for a second strike. It's over. This fight was mine the moment you found yourselves inside my jutsu, she said as she moved to strike again. I don't think so, Koga said before running through a set of hand signs. Gale style, thundercloud, void wave. Haku wasn't able to change course in time before what seemed to be a black storm cloud enveloped her two opponents, and not only that, but lightning lashed out from the cloud and struck her mask, leaving a cut in it. Not only that, but another bolt singed the edge of her kimono as it grazed her leg for getting a little too close. As she retreated into the closest mirror, when she was once again inside the mirror, she found herself once again raising her opinion of the two genin that she was fighting. With this new development, anything could happen. But before both fights could continue, a streak of blonde hair exploded from the tree line as Naruto came to land near the dome of mirrors with his kamas drawn. He took out 3 mirrors without even missing a beat as he slid to a stop next to Koga and Yakumo. With a slight grin on his face, he looked over to his teammate and questioned, "So, you guys miss me?"